Namaste class, I am Dr. Rohit Kumar, your academic counselor, Indira Gandhi National Open University. I teach you a paper BPSC 144. Paper name is Introduction to South Asia. In previous classes, we will discuss about Block 1, Block 2, Block 3. Block 1 name is South Asia and Introduction, and second one is Society and Polity in South Asia, and third is Issue in Development, and fourth block is Conflict and Cooperation in South Asia. There are two units in Block 4. Unit 12, its name is Water Disputes and Water Sharing, and Unit 13, Civil Society in South Asia. Now, Unit 4, 12, there are some objectives related to this unit. Number one is to appreciate the value of water as an indispensable resource. And second one is to understand water issues across international boundaries and borders. Third one is to understand the dynamics of water cooperation in South Asia, both in terms of settling water disputes and farming water, sharing and water benefits agreements. To provide an overview of the water treaties in South Asia, particularly the Indus Waters Treaty between India and Pakistan and the Ganga Treaty between India and Bangladesh. Now, introduction, understanding the water scale. Water is life. Different religions express this reality. In Hinduism, everything is water. Basically, in a Hindu Hinduism point of view, everything is water. In the Quran, God created all things from water, and the Bible water is mentions 722 times. The earth is described as the blue planet. Basically, in Hinduism philosophy, they were called everything is water, and Quran God created all things from water, and in Bible water mentioned in 722 times they describe as the blue planet. While water covers 70.9% of the Earth's surface, only 3% is fresh or potable and used for human consumption. Of this, 2% is frozen and locked in glaciers, snow, ice, and preformed. Of the remaining 1%, 30% is groundwater, and the remaining fresh water found in rivers, lakes, ponds, and the water bodies in the non-frozen, salt-free, and accessible for human consumption. This is the visible water that society interacts with for drinking, agriculture, domestic, and industrial needs. Precipitation and rainfalls also add to the fresh water stock. Water resources is fundamentally challenged by increasing population and consumption patterns. In it's estimated that 2 out of every 3 people in the world will live in water-stressed conditions by the year 2030. In the 20th century, world population tripled and the consumption of water increased 6 times. By 2030, the demand for water will be 40% more than it is currently and 50% higher in the most rapidly developing countries that include India and China. According to UN 2015, estimated by 2030, world population is projected to reach 8.5 billion. The bulk of the population increase will be in countries already experience water shortage. Since water resources is the lifeline for all life, it is often referred to as the common resources that are meant for collective use and belonging to all rather than for limited ones. Since water resources is the lifeline for all life, it is often referred to as the common resources that are meant for collective use and belonging to all rather than the limits on ownership. Jeff explains water commons means that water is no one's property. Its rightful belong to all of humanities and the earth itself. It is our duty to protect the quality and availability of water for everyone around the planet. This ethic should be the foundation of all decisions made by about use of this life-giving resource. Water is not a commodity to be sold or squandered for hoarders. Water disputes and water sharing. There is emphasis on the commons principle today. It is explained water rightfully available for the ecosystems. Mode Barlow argue that every human activity now needs to be measured by its impact of water and the water commons, and declares that will flagrant violation of human rights when only the rich have access to clean water. The UN Water website has recorded fundamental facts on water from various sources, including the World Bank, UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, and the Oregon State University. Some of these facts are 85% of the world population lives in the nearest half of the planet. 783 million people do not have access to clear water. 6 to 8 million people die. 6 to 8 million people die annually from the consumptions of disaster and water-related diseases. Agriculture accounts for 70% of global freshwater withdrawal. An estimated 148 states have international basins within their territory. There are 276 transboundary basins in the world, 64 in Africa, 16 in Asia, 68 in Europe, and 46 in North America, and 38 in South America. These facts outline four broad characteristics of water. First, water is the largest shared resource in the world. Basically, this is the largest share in the world in these terms of sources. Almost 90% of water flows across political boundaries and therefore requires considerable interstate understanding. Second, water as the transboundary source remains by natural unruly and conforms to an known universally accepted rules. Procedures to exist based on principle and norms, but water sharing agreements among nation countries are reached ultimately through political equation. Third, states have shown a willingness to cooperate some of the world's most implacable. These facts outline four broader characteristics of water. First, water is the largest shared resource. Now, runoff rivers. Rivers are the most visible form of fresh water. Rivers are a mini cosmos spanning history, culture, spirituality, and technology inventions. Several millennia ago, the rise of ancient civilizations were marked by the flow of rivers and their use for irrigations and transportation. Even today, in the 21st century globalized world, there exists a symbolic relationship with river. River at one level are economically exploited and are value addition, for example, irrigation and power generation, and at another, rivers are an inseparable part of the identities, cultures, and religious perceptions of different peoples. Rivers are the largest renewable water resource. Rivers flow from their source in the direction gravity allows to the mount where they disappear into their surroundings. Rivers have drawn human to engineering interventions such as dams, diversions, and barrages. These marvels have undoubtedly resulted in a great economic benefit. However, such interventions have changed flow patterns of disturbing the downstream quality of water as well as sediments depositions, which subsequently affect fish and wildlife. 180 while also displacing people from their location. Only 37% of world longest river defines as the more than 1,000 kilometers are free flowing. Most of these rivers are in a state of degeneration and degradation with declining water quality levels and population. Several reasons can be attributed to it, such as intensive water use for agriculture, unregulated industries development and waste flow, and river habitat modification. The World Wildlife Fund report describes a few free-flowing river as one that flows undisturbed from its source to its mouth, either at the coast and inland sea or at the influence confluence with a large river without countering any dams, wires, or barrages, and without being hemmed it by dikes or levees in today's world. Such rivers, particularly those that run over long distance and increasingly rare. In large river systems, distinct stretch of rivers can retain characteristic of a free-flowing river. Basically, is a negative from human side for rivers. Despite the presence of water infrastructure upstream or downstream of it, this stretch. Rivers are crucial to economic development and form an important part of national policies because rivers have broad-based engagement. They represent basic values like equity, transparency, accountability, sustainability, and the participation of the people in water policy process. Basically, there are the five features to maintain and sustain the water resources: equality, transparency, accountability, sustainability, and participation of the people in water policy process. Epistemologically, rivers are therefore interdisciplinary and its relation has to be understood from the context of history, culture, and ecology. In the first 6 decades of the 20th century, there was considerable focus on dam constructions by the 1970s. The negative ecological and economic impact of water projects promotes development planners to rethink or such concrete structure and focus on maintaining watershed principle. As a result, concepts like minimum flows and in-stream flows came into the water disputes and water sharing lexicon of water planners. New sets of knowledge today give us a holistic understanding of rivers. This is not only determined in terms of volumes and but equally as the integrated system that includes plants, plains, watershed, and deltas. Of late, the flow of environment flow concept is e-flow or environment flow concept is essential for sustainability, managing water resources, and meeting long-term needs of people. Greater the understanding about the various dimensions of rivers, better would benefits accrue. The WWF reports describes ecologically flow as the quantity, timing, and quality of water flows that are required to sustain a freshwater and strange ecosystem as well as the livelihood and the well-being of human depend on these ecosystems. Now, just as rivers water is required for agriculture, industry, and domestic use, so also water is a requirement as a necessity for the well-being of the river. The relationship between river flows and river ecology is important as rivers meanders from the source to the mouth. The journey and the changes that occurs and described in terms of contempt. Noted Indian water expert Rama Vasalai underlined the significance of this distancing between in stream flows from different purpose flow are needed for maintaining the river rhythm, making it possible for the river to purify itself, sustaining aquatic life and vegetation's recharging groundwater, preserving conditions, preventing the inclusions of salinity, and enabling the river to play its role in the crucial and spiritual lives of the people. South Asia, a riverine neighborhood. Riverine neighborhood. South Asia is the southern region of Asia, which is defined both geographically and its ethnocultural terms. It consists of the Hindu Kush and Himalayas mountain range, the Indus Basin in the west, and the Ganga Brahmaputra Meghna river system in the east, and the West Peninsular India in the south, described as the crowded, hot, covered, hot, hungry, and a fast evaporating region. South Asia occupies about 5% of the world land mass and has about 4% of world's annual renewable water resources that flows through several river basins. Almost 95% of water in South Asia is consumed by the agriculture sector as compared to the world's average of 70%. Basically, in South Asia region, 95% of consumption rate of water, natural water for agriculture and other world, rest of the world, 70% data. Expect from Nepal and Bhutan the per capita water availability is lower than the world's average. Given the uneven endowment and development of water resources in South Asia, these issues and challenges are large, diverse, and complex. The Indian civilization laid great emphasis on ensuring abundance of food and sharing the products among the living as a primary principle of righteous peoples functioning for the Dharma. India's national song Vande Mataram has the lines Sujalam Sujalam Satyashilam Mataram, which translate in rich with the hurrying streams, bright with orchards glimpse, the land that is richly watered, richly fruit and richly harvest the perennial rivers and the vast fertile stretches make it the land of abundance. The Indo-Gangetic plain in the greatest expanse of rich tillable soils and thus one of the world's greatest agricultural regions. The socio-cultural economic development around the river is shaped by the predictably and availability of resources. South Asia comprises of 8 countries: India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives, with a population of 1.9 billion of 23% of the world population. Basically, South Asia as a region, in terms of population, 23% of the world population exists in South Asia. Complex water challenges, fluctuating rainfall, receding glaciers, and increasing per capita water categories, the region as vulnerable to water issues, which Pakistan and Afghanistan, the most water state in the region. South Asia's rivers are vulnerable to climate change, degradations and flooding, increasing demand of water, which increasing population. Several rivers in South Asia crisscross national boundaries and therefore and transboundary. These transboundary rivers limit the riparian state in the complex network of environmental, economic, and security interdependency. Such interdependency can either reinforce or reduce differences. River are River also acquires political characteristics that resulting rivalries and or rivalries or cooperation in the South Asian context. Transboundary rivers raise an important question: does a river represent a supra identity which transcends national identity and help is ascertaining shares values and benefits across about borders? In other words, whether water can drive greater cooperation between states or whether it requires inter- intractable political problems to be resolved. First, before water cooperation can be achieved, India is the only country in South Asia that shares the rivers with all its neighbors, thus making it unequivocally as appears a lower riparian country. India's water relations with Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, and Bangladesh are an essential components of regional stability and also we can say conflict. Water in South Asia is also a sensitive and emotive issue as the region economic and predominantly rural livelihood depends on water. Moreover, many of the Himalayas rivers are intimately tied up with the issues of territory as the river centers areas where there is contestations over broader borders, water disputes, and water sharing and territories. For example, the Indus flows through parts of Kashmir, which Pakistan intentionally raises it as a disputed territory. Similarly, as the Brahmaputra is linked with the Sino-Indian border, tensions in the eastern Himalayas, where China claims the territory of Arunachal Pradesh, where the Brahmaputra enters India. Now, South Asia's major rivers. These principles set continental rivers more than 100 kilometers in length originates from the Hindu Kush Himalaya and the Trans Himalaya or the Tibetan Plateau, the Indus, the Ganga, and the Brahmaputra, basically IGV, Indus, Ganga, and Brahmaputra. The Indus River flows from its source in Tibet after passing through Ladakh, where it is joined by the Jaskar and Siok rivers. It's entered Pakistan occupied Kashmir, basically POK, and then flows southwards into Pakistan. The Indus collects the Chenab, Jhelum, Satluj, Ravi, Bias rivers from India. Before draining into the Arabian Sea near Karachi, together it's called the Indus River system. The Ganga emerges as the Gomukh in the Himalaya as the terminus of the Gangotri, where the Bhagirathi and Alaknanda join. While Ganga originated in the Indian territory, is an exclusive Indian river of the nine major tributaries of the Ganga that flow into the India from Nepal. The three principal tributaries, Karnali, Gandaki, and Kosi, and all have their sources in Tibet. The Ganga forms part of a larger river basin known as the Ganga Brahmaputra Meghna (GBM). Ganga Brahmaputra Meghna. The Brahmaputra originated from the glacier and alpine lakes in the Tibetan Plateau, where it is referred to as a Yarlung Janbubu. The river traverses a large territory linking China, India, Bhutan through tributaries, and Bangladesh, where it is called Jamuna, eventually draining into the Bay of Bengal. All the three major rivers, which is tributaries, carry huge amount of nutrients-rich sediments, which deposits as fertile soil along the river soil along the river's banks. This has allowed civilization to develop and thrive along the river course for millennia. Today, these rivers flow through densely populated parts of South Asia, providing fresh water for irrigation, drinking, and fishing. As these rivers empty into the seas, Arabian Sea on the west and the Bay of Bengal in the east, they form the world's largest river deltas. For example, the Sundar Basin. The name is Sundar Basin. We can say Sundarban. It is also important to recognize that these transboundaries river cascades from the towering heights of the Himalayas, and therefore there is an enormous hydro potential, particularly in Nepal, Bhutan, Kashmir, and northeast India. There is a rising demand of energy in South Asia, and this is equality need for a low carbon energy in mild commitment to reducing carbon emissions. River in South Asia are among us the most damaged, and countries in the region continue to invest in the subsistence hydropower. For Nepal and Bhutan, hydropower is the backbone of their economy. India has the world's fifth largest hydropower capacity. The various assessment of climate change on the glacier suggest that there is going to be an increase in melt flow, resulting in regular floating constructions of facilities to store this excess water and release it during the periods present. Glacier roughly contribute to about 10% of flow in the Brahmaputra and the Gangas, while its account for almost 45% in the Indus. Beyond the economies of water management, including the needs of the need for dams and water storage facilities for economic development, there is the political reality of fear and misperceptions among lower Repair countries, especially over such structures, clearly the hydrology of the region is not only tied up with economic development but also with security. Water and security of hydropolitics. The fundamentals of security and security who is secure from whom or what, when, where, and how remain embedded in the security discourse. In understanding the broad-based nature of security today, expressed as broadening and deepening of security, it is important to consider the impact of water resources on the state and society. Water issues between state or interstate can lead to dispute and potentially hostile situation, thereby affecting political diplomatic relations. Likewise, water challenges can also impact relations between province with the states of interstate. Basically, there are the what was the reason water and security of hydropolitics. They are the reason how to dispute and what is the major reason between two nations and two interstate two nations dispute. Basically, some rivers are they flow in interstate. That was the reason they are dispute to distribution of water resources and the percentage of water sharing. They are the main reason to use for use of agriculture, industry, and other things. The following points commonly emerge. There is a no single casual factor to water induced conflict. Water induct, inducted conflict Induced conflict is not an entity in itself but part of complex pathway to conflict that involves political, strategic, economic, and territorial factors. These factors contribute to water resources being a dispute or at times a threat, depleting and degradations, increased demands, and uneven distribution. Those concerned with water crisis and divided into two schools. One indicates that water as the source of conflict is more likely to occur within countries than between them. This school focuses on water as the source of cooperation and an impetus for scientists and political leaders to use modern science and advanced technology to create new solutions and sustainable alternatives. The school also looks into the history, scope, and design of international water territories. The other school argues that water as the source of disputes or conflict will be increasingly interested in nature and examine water relations country. Basically, there are the two schools. The view on water resources sharing. One is to there are the water is the resources as a cooperation and scientists particularly to use modern science and advanced technology to create new solution and sustainable alternative to humankind. And second one is they consider that water as the resources. They are the main factor to they are the main factor is the main argue is that water resources as a dispute resources. This school of thoughts, however, marks it's very clear that water resources have rarely been the sole cause of conflict and should be viewed as the function of the relationship among social, political, and economic factors, includes economic development. This school also evaluates the role of water as a tool and weapon both political and military of statecraft, basically for state. Water disputes and water sharing in South Asia, with growing water challenges, it is now a common national security refrain that a stable supply of water is critical to the country's political, social, and economic stability. The political framing of water issues is intersectionally linked with the variety of water contextual issues, particularly energy, food, and wealth generation. Further, and as explained earlier, internal or domestic water challenges will greatly impact transboundary water relations. With water a bilateral and regional agenda, South Asia is a hydropolitical security complex in which states are distinguishably part ovens as part user of rivers. This framework has opened up various levels of analysis on how riparian states behave upstream, downstream, contextual real use issues and clashes of priorities, given that states are interested in maintaining capabilities. Waterhouse now acquire a political sharpness and the attributes of power. Water relations can never be permanently settled. The reason being that river flow are not constant. The flow is turned are determined by the seasonal variation and upsets uses, particularly those that are not consumptive in nature. Also, interventions and diversion on rivers impact flow. Political relations can easily be impacted by changes in the quantitative and qualitative nature of the river. Basically, solution given by the one dimension basically is a political dimension to solution of conflict and disputes of water dispute of water is human and next valid interpretations of the use of river water has resulted in claims and counterclaims. There are, however, accepted legal norms of equitable utilization, no harms rules, and restriction sovereignty that riparian states work to and frame negotiation and treaties to overcome such differing positions. This South Asian given India riparian linkage, whether upstream or downstream, and given its diplomatic investment in number of treaties with its riparian neighbors, hydro-diplomacy will be a vital component of its neighborhood policy. Now, water treaties. Before understanding the water treaties between South Asian countries, it is essential to know that there are two types of water in question. This is described as big water and a small water. Drinking water and the water for domestic services, which constitutes about 10% of the water needed, it's categorized as small water. Basically, we can generate drinking water and water for domestic service, which contributes about 10% of the water needed, is categorized as small water. The remaining 90% is big water, which concern the productions of food and energy, and it's crucial to economic development. This includes water for irrigation and hydroelectric production. Principally from the nuts and bolts of the water treaties in South Asia, water treaties reflect a measurement of cooperation and offer state a structure to coordinate action. The basis for river water treaty is to find an equitable approach for meeting mutual human needs. Water treaties in South Asia are also a barometers to gauge states' behavior and the political climate. This raises a few interesting questions. How and at what extent does a changing political climate affect existing treaties? Does the signing of river water treaties lead to more cooperative venture in other areas between the riparian concerns, thereby enhancing the overall cooperation environment in the region? In the negotiation process, presiding the signing of a treaty to be seen as a matter of conflict resolution, or it is the only provision that temporarily conceals the claims and counterclaims and the real and perceived fear of the riparian, particularly lower riparian. Do the real and perceived fear lead to non-compliance of the treaty with an overriding militarized approach in which the possessions of water is determined unilaterally? And finally, what are the linkage and trade-offs associated with the transboundary water sharing? Water treaties are also time-specific, specify and area translations of a political will at a particular time, and they cannot be viewed in terms of finality as the lives and livelihood of people exponentially grow around the river basin, so that thus the demand for and consumption of water, the efficiency of treaties between the riparian will always be tested, if not completely served or abrogated. In South Asia, the following broad characteristics define water treaties. River water treaties are both rights-based and needs-based. The former is dominant during the course of negotiations. In the post-treaty period, issue are most needs-based. That is why water treaties in South Asia cannot be seen as final solution, as states continuously have to cope with changing ground realities. Example of this area are the Indus Water Treaty between India and the Pakistan, and the Ganga Treaty between India and Bangladesh, water disputes and water sharing. Both the upper and the lower riparian have stakes in the continuations of a treaty. In South Asia, the upper riparian in the most cases is strong military power, which leaves the lower riparian to avoid military stakes, confrontations, and emphasizes the mutual benefits of a treaty. Lower riparian employed not water linkage to pursue the upper riparian in the domestic settings of Pakistan and Bangladesh. For instance, water is effectively staged as the issues of lower riparian victimhood versus the upper riparian aggressors. A third party may play a critical role in the negotiation of water agreement. Firstly, as a mediator to help initiative a cooperative framework on the shared water basin and the later on as a provider of financial assistance. The involvement of a third party is an advantage for lower riparian, which makes it easier to enter into a treaty agreement as it offers space for neutral interventions or adjudications or adjudications of disputes. As an example, the Indus Water Treaties come into effect through the meditations of the Water Bank, which also plays a key role in this dispute adjudication. Disputes resolution mechanism play a crucial role in existing water treaties and are an important element of future water cooperation. In other words, when the rate of changes within a river basin exceeds and the institutional capacity to absorb the change likelihood of disputes in high. The Indus Water Treaty, for example, has the Permanent Indus Commissions, which has met 116 times since 1960 to look into concern and grievances over the implementations of the treaty. In the case of India and Bangladesh, the Joint River Commission created in 1972 discussed the framework for the sharing of water between India and Bangladesh. It was established with a view to maintain license in our order to ensure the most effective joint effort in maximizing the benefits for common river system. The JRC is headed by the Water Resources Ministry of both the countries, its most notable source in the Ganges Treaty in 1996. However, such mechanism will need strengthening with new hydrologic knowledge. With the growing importance of river watershed management approaching as the with easy availability of new monitoring technology, an entirely new set of enforcement mechanisms can be structured and infused into a treaty with lasting value. Now, let's sum up. Regions are now increasingly viewed as hydrological units and a no region which shares water in except exempt from water relations, controversies, and disputes. A stable supply of water is crucial for regional stability, and any economic and geopolitical forecasting has to factor the water resources. Where various reports indicate that the lack of water, rather than lack of arable land, which constrain food production, the water food link is crucial for sustained development and economic growth. This inextricable linkage in politically difficult region makes water a source of economy and social instability. However, the underlying fact that sovereignty over the resource is not determined by formal legal principle to the complexity. Now, moving on to unit number 30, name is civil society in South Asia. There are some objectives related to this unit. Number one is define and classify different types of civil society in South Asia. Analyze how do civil societies help connect with people to their communities. Identify factor on rise of civil society in South Asia for the last 20 years. Discuss the relationship between the state and civil society in democratic societies. Explain the importance of civil society and social movement to promote democracy. Describe the methods, strategy, and techniques used by the civil societies. Now, introduction. Business, labor, and civil society organized have skill and resources that are vital in helping to build a more robust global community. Kofi Annan, 7th Secretary General of United Nations Organization, the terms civil society has been explained in the variety of ways varieties of ways. Originally, it means a political community, a society governed by law under the authority of the state. More commonly, it's distinguished from the state and in terms of use of describe institutions that are private in that they are independent from government interference and organized by the individual in pursuits of shared interests, emotions, values, or purposes, etc. Civil society is an arena outside of the family, the state, and the market where people associated to advance common interest. Civil society play an important part in the rising social issues in the country, but its lack of true spirit model the social movement can fail show that there is a direct relation between knowing about the social problems and acting towards resolving its holding on the movement spark speaks a lot about the true spirits of the organization. Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, the social reformer and Indian first justice minister, used the slogan educate, organize, and agitate in the 1942 speech to all Indian depressed classes conference. He spoke of the need to upend caste oppressions, oppressions in India. In this words, the mob without proper education gets organized or involved in agitations, then it will lead to utter chaos. It may lead to violent protest. The direction they flow may end up in the confusion. Our conscience knows that agitations by uneducated and unorganized people generally cannot be effective. So that here proper education and well-structured organization is prerequisite for agitation's success. Different type of civil society organization. Civil society in real sense refer to a realm of autonomous non-governmental organization, professional association, etc. Causes-based interest or pursuits group are, however, a key part of civil society is includes young beings, literally social circles, differently diverse bodies, associations, coalition advocacy and self-help groups, sports and leisure clubs, veterans or indigenous peoples, organizations, religious faith based on minorities groups, labor or trade unions, women organized social movement, charitable trust, families, and so on. These are all equally play a pivotal role as a civil society. The inclusion of modern society voices is essential to give expressions to the marginalized as those who often are not heard. They facilitate better awareness and a more informed citizenry who make better voting choices, participation in politics, and hold the government more accountable as a result. That is why civil society has emerged as an important phenomenon to be studying of issues of governance in political science. It is referred as the third sector of the society. The complex variety inherent in the nature and concept has made civil society an integral part in the literature of comparative politics defining civil society. There are the different type of different definition about civil society given by different type of scholars and thinkers and political leaders. The definition of civil society varies from state to state and from society to society. Its contemporary times and the civil society is being distinguished from the state because of the use of institution or in the terms to describe the institutions that are private. In a real sense, they are not part of the government, but as an important group, association, or institution, they will always have something to contribute to society. Thus, some of the important elements of civil society are freedom from profit making and administrative regulations, constructive actions, and grassroots level. Idea to bring a social change and the change for professionals to join the movement for more noble causes. Consider the following definitions of civil society. Civil society is a community of citizens linked by common interest and collective identity. Its main is the will and interest of the citizens. It is the third sector of society after government and businesses. It limits the power of the state and users in turn and vibrant democracy by enhancing participation. Anthony Giddens, civil society is the domain of social association within the check exercise of the state. John Stuart Mill and Alexis de Tocqueville subordinates civil society is the mediating dominance domain where particular interest of individual and universal interest of states can be reconciled for production and an essential basis for modern society. Legal arena of political where a self-organization of groups, movement, and individuals relatively autonomous from the state attempt to articulate values, create association and solidarity and advance their interests. Stephen Lynch, civil society describes diverse non-government institutions strong enough to counterbalance the state and which is not preventing the state from fulfilling its role as a keeper of the peace and attributors between major treaties can nevertheless prevent the state from dominating and atomizing the rest of society. Anna Planner, civil society refers to a wide array of organization, community groups, non-government organization, labor unions, indigenous groups, charitable organization, faith-based organization, professional association, and functions worldwide. Notable Indian political theorists and historians Parth Chatterjee and Sudipa Kaviraj, Indian civil society from Western civil society. According to them, the application of concept of Western civil society in India is wrong as the state is not as extensive as in the West. Norman D. Palmer, in the book The Indian Political System, writes that despite mass illiteracy and consequent want of social communication, interest groups are very much in existence in India, although it must be admitted that they are not large in number and are different from those in the Western countries. Regulatory social conflict by enforcing rules that prevent citizens from harming each other. In classical political philosophy, many philosophers educate equate civil society with the state in their philosophy. For instance, the great philosopher Socrates taught that conflict within society should be resolved through public reason using dialectical, a form of rational dialogue to uncover truth through question and answering methodology. He believed that through this, the qualities of leadership develop in the people. On the other hand, an Athenian philosopher Plato, Athens philosopher Plato considered dialectic to be merely a methods of dialogues. Plato's dialectic aims not just to communicate but to seek truth. For instance, our perceptions have developed in such a way that perceive the usefulness of the object, seeing how they functions. Or perceptions are limited, like we cannot see beyond the color spectrum, or we cannot see radio waves, ultraviolet rays, etc. Yet Hegel did not overlook the importance of individual self-interest and at the same time advocate the protections of individual rights and properly through appropriate mechanisms of state institution. In Hegelian theory, civil society comprised a vast gamut of social, civil, and economic institutions such as religious groups, professionals, bureaucracy, courts, welfare agency, and educational establishment. He further explained that the civil society operates at three levels: family by birth, civil society a combination of individualism and selfishness, and the state composed of citizens' orientation toward common interest of the whole political community. One minute, please. Civil society and the state. To address the question of the relationship between the state and the civil society, there were differences of opinion. At one end, there were theories complaining the state to limit its role as much necessary towards making civil society efficient for its self-regulation. That is, the more effective the civil society, the less was the need of the state. Contrarily, another viewpoint treated civil society as subordinate to the state, which was in the interest of civil society itself. It explained the need of a state as necessary for substance of a civil society. Marxist perspective about civil society. Classical Marxism understood civil society as an entirely different entity while accepting the Hegelian idea of civil society as an association of private individuals pursuing private interest. Marx equated this association with the bourgeois society based on class interest. He forwarded the idea of civil society as a society of self-seeking economic actors. Unlike Hegel and Paine on Tocqueville, Marx completely ignored the democratic principle of civil society association. The later Marxists like Gramsci revised the reductionist approach of Marx' liberal perspective. Theories from the liberal school like J.S. Mill and Tocqueville react against state intervention, which was seen as paralyzing the independent functions of civil society affairs. They warned against the abuse of state power as upper uh, use spring the freedom of citizens and advocates the principle of democracy and participation through civil society. Tocqueville, for instance, extensively distinguished between the state civil society and civil society. Now, radical perspective about civil society. Radical school of thought. One believes first one we clear about Marxist perspective of civil society, totally different from liberal perspective and radical perspective, while accepting the Hegelian idea of civil society as an association of private individuals pursuing private interests. Marx equated that association with bourgeois society. Basically, Marxist perspective from Karl Marx is the association with bourgeois society based on class interest. Class interest, basically, there are the uh, bourgeois and labor class. Bourgeois are the major and powerful people in our society. They are the capitalists. They control the civil society and as well as the state. That's why Marx claimed that civil society is nothing but it's the bourgeois society based on class interest and power and one society and one-sided society. Otherwise, liberal perspective theorists from the liberal school like J.S. Mill and Tocqueville react against the state intervention, which was seen as paralyzing the independent functions of civil society affairs. They warned against the abuse of state power as usurping the freedom of citizens and advocate the principle of democracy and the participation through civil society. Basically, the civil society is the democratic frame of the individuals. Radical perspective, radical school of thought in 1970 to 1980s deemed with the rise of civil society as central to establishing democratic states. Well, please. Which critical school of thought in 1970 to 1980s deemed the role of the civil society as central to establishing a democratic state. The civil society in the late 20th century Europe claimed a radical role for towards bringing about the political transformation by replacing the authoritarian state by the democratic order. It was characteristic more as an opposition for challenging the communism of the Soviet bloc in Central Eastern Europe. The relevance of radical civil society theorized in the works of Kuron and Puar became debatable due to internal difficulties in the aftermath of the successful implementations of liberal democracy post 1980s post communism. Thus, the focus shifted to liberal civil society with a participatory approach. Civil society in contemporary political science. Thoughts building on the liberal tradition, the modern theorists essentially stressed on the positive role of civil society and informed that no em- emancipation is possible in the modern world without a strong civil society that can strengthen the public sphere and can provide a haven form and a center of resistance to the behemoth beam of the state. The state, through in policy of welfare, seems to have attempted to bridge the gap between the individual and the political state. It has failed to surpass the significance of civil society. One of the most potent tools for democratization, John Kuhn has dealt with the state civil society dichotomy in the more holistic in the modern liberal democratic framework. State laws and mechanisms have relevance of their own which, when overlooked as likely to disturb the orderly functioning of the social system, both state and civil society are to guard each other with trespassing each other spheres of activity. Role and significance of civil society. Civil society are any organization of people With policy goals, work within the political process to promote such goals. Groups attempt to influence policy in various ways, including advocacy, organized interest, hire representatives to advocate on behalf of the group interest. Civil society coordinates with the non-profit organization whose aim is to work for unprivileged section of the society, etc. Communication, one of the most important features is to facilitate communication in the planning process of policy, public policy, which have in public meeting. Public accountability. It's increasing the public accountability like civil groups can monitor for substantive benefits and effect of policies on ground level. Lobbying it includes containing members of government and the executive branch to disseminate information about the positive or adverse effects of proposed legislation. Support system. Civil society often supports government plans and projects in many ways. It often includes mobilizing local resources and initiatives for purpose planning and management, proper planning and management. Influencing elections. Interest may attempt to influence elections in order to help get people who support their issues elected or re-elected. Electioneering techniques includes giving money to candidates, endorsing candidates or issues, and conducting grassroots activities such as get out the vote drives, educating various publics. Civil society groups work hard to educate the public, government officials, their own members, and the potential interest group members. Mass mobilization. To influence policy making, many groups rely on the efforts of people who are motivated to act on behalf of their issues and causes. So-called grassroots activities might include writing letters, making phone calls, contacting policymakers, and demonstrating. Globalization and civil society. In the era of globalization, there has been an upsurge of a new social movement beyond regional boundaries. The postmodern perspective threw light on the spheres of social networks at global scale and the emergence of civil society as a powerful third sector. Robert D. Putnam, in the seminal work Blowing Along and Making Democracy Work, Civil Tradition in Modern Italy, explained the significance of civil society in establishment that a responsible government is a consequence of a strong civil society or social capital. The terms used, society has moved beyond its purpose of striving for popular democracy to what World Bank defines a wide array of non-governmental and non-profit organizations such as labor unions, charitable groups, professional associations, educational institutions, cooperative and business groups. They seek to protect the interest of their interest and of the large society in terms of ethical, religious, cultural, scientific, and values. Civil society is a sphere distinct from the market and working towards active participation of its members with the purpose of securing their particular interest. Global civil society typically refer to non-governmental groups such as Amnesty International, Greenpeace, and the International Labour Organization, as well as less formal networks of activities and citizens. Globalization is the multidimensional activity that is related to the exchange of economic, culture, political interest, international ideas, and growth of free market between nations. This is a manifest by the broadening of market relations. Supporters of globalization believe that it's helped to boost the local economy, standards of living of the people, and distribution of national resources, etc. It further helps local to have access to foreign products, acquires knowledge, and use the largest latest invented technology. Now, moving on to civil society and the South Asia. Farm bills and agriculture. There are some examples related to this topic. Civil society India. How they are. What were the issues related to civil society and what was the demand? What is the demand from civil society? And there are some example like farm bills and agriculture reform in India. And other side is the river disputes, etc. etc. Now we will start this unit again in next class. Till now, you can read and write your note related to this unit. Therefore, not only this paper, that's and other paper also like comparative politics. Civil society basically is the part of political science, and other papers, and history also. They are the comparison study between a different type of notion about civil society. That's why you will make and prepare your notes very precisely. Now, thank you, and we will meet again in next class. Namaste.
Professor of History, Usmania University from Hyderabad, IGNOU Regional Center. From Hyderabad, IGNOU Regional Center. ఈరోజు మన లైవ్ ఛానల్లో BHIE 145 book, Some Aspects of European History from 1789 to 1950 అనే అటువంటి ఒక ఈ BHIE 145 యూరోపియన్ హిస్టరీ బుక్లో నుంచి యూనిట్ నెంబర్ 10 లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ గురించి మనం ఈరోజు ఈ లైవ్ ఛానల్లో డిస్కస్ చేయబోతున్నాం. లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ అంటే ఏమి? డెమోక్రసీస్ బేస్డ్ ఆన్ ది లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ అంటే రాజ్యం యొక్క అధికారం బాగా లిబరల్గా ఉండి డెమోక్రటిక్ పందాలో ఉండేదాన్ని లిబరల్ అంటే ప్రజల చేత ఎన్నుకోబడినటువంటి యొక్క మరి ప్రభుత్వం చాలా ప్రజల కోసం పనిచేసేటువంటి ప్రభుత్వం లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీ ప్రభుత్వాలు అంటారు. ప్రజాస్వామ్యబద్ధంగా మరి ఇండివిజువల్ స్వేచ్ఛగా మనిషి బతుకుండడానికి స్వేచ్ఛలు, ప్రాపర్టీ స్వేచ్ఛ, ఇట్లాంటి స్వేచ్ఛలు ఇచ్చుకుంటూ ఉండే ప్రజాస్వామ్యాన్ని లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ అంటారు. మనకు లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ ఎప్పుడు కనిపిస్తాయంటే మనకు ఆఫ్టర్ ఫస్ట్ వరల్డ్ వార్ తర్వాత ఫస్ట్ వరల్డ్ వార్లో నాజీ జర్మనీ ఓడిపోయి నాజీ జర్మనీ వర్సైల్ సంధిని ఒప్పుకుంటుంది. వర్సైల్ సంధిని బలవంతంగా నాజీ జర్మనీ మీద రుద్దుతారు. నాజీ జర్మనీ కాదు, జర్మన్ కైజర్ విలియం కైజర్ అంటే బిస్మార్క్ తర్వాత విలియం కైజర్, రెండవ విలియం పరిపాలన చేస్తాడు. అతను ఇంగ్లాండ్తో పాటు సరి పోరాటం, ఇంపీరియలిజం, కలోనలిజం అనే పోటీతోటి మరి ఈ యొక్క విలియం కైజర్ అనేవాడు రాజు, రష్యా రాజు, జర్మనీ రాజు విలియం కైజర్ అనేవాడు ఇంగ్లాండ్తో పోటీగా యుద్ధ ఆయుధాలు సేకరించుకోవడం, నావికాదళాన్ని సేకరించుకోవడం, సీక్రెట్ అలయన్స్ పెట్టడం, అల్టిమేట్గా అది వరల్డ్ వార్ 1కు దారితీసింది. ఈ వరల్డ్ వార్ 1లో నుంచి ఓడిపోయినటువంటి వాళ్ళు ఎవరంటే జర్మనీ, పటవన్ టర్కీ రెండు ఓడిపోయింది. గెలుపొందిన వాళ్ళు ఎవరంటే మరి ఇంగ్లాండ్, ఫ్రాన్స్ అండ్ అమెరికా. వుడ్రో విల్సన్ అమెరికా, మరి ఫ్రాన్స్ క్లెమెన్సీ ఫ్రాన్స్, మరి ఇంగ్లాండ్ వాడు లాయిడ్ జార్జ్. ఈ ముగ్గురు బాగా ట్రయో గెలుపొందిండ్రు. ఈ జర్మనీ ఓడిపోయింది. జర్మనీతో పాటు దాని మిగతా దేశమైన టర్కీ, ఆటమన్ టర్కీస్ ఎంపైర్ కూడా ఓడింపబడింది. సో ఈ విధంగా ఓడింపబడినటువంటి యొక్క జర్మనీ మీద పెద్ద కంపెన్సేషన్ పెడుతూ అది మోయలేనంతటువంటి ఆర్థిక భారాన్ని పెడుతూ యుద్ధానికి మొత్తానికి జర్మనీ కారణమని సూచిస్తూ దాని మీద మరి పెద్ద మొత్తంలో కంపెన్సేషన్ పొందడం జరిగింది. అంతేకాకుండా జర్మనీ యొక్క ఈ యొక్క బొగ్గు గనులు ఉన్నటువంటి రూల్ రూల్ ఏరియా ప్రాంతాన్ని కూడా ఫ్రాన్స్ ఆక్రమించింది. అల్సేస్ లొరైన్ ప్రాంతాన్ని కూడా జర్మనీ నుంచి ఫ్రాన్స్ తీసుకున్నది. సో ఆ విధంగా మరి జర్మనీని బాగా యుద్ధానికి మొత్తానికి కారణం జర్మనీ అని చెప్పి జర్మనీ యొక్క సైన్యాన్ని మొత్తం అబాలిష్ 1,00,000 సైన్యాన్ని అబాలిష్ చేశారు. నావికా దళాన్ని అబాలిష్ చేశారు. మందుబొమ్మ సామాగ్రి లేకుండా చేశారు. ఇంకా అంతేకాకుండా ఫ్రెంచ్ సైన్యాలు మరి మిగతా సైన్యాలు ఈ యొక్క జర్మన్ భూభాగంలో నార్త్లో ఉంటాయి. వాటికి అవసరమైనటువంటి యొక్క ఆహార పదార్థాలన్నీ కూడా ఈ ఓడిపోయినటువంటి జర్మనీ దేశం భరించాలి. దాన్ని వర్సేల్ సంధిని జర్మన్ దేశం మీద ఫ్రాన్స్ క్లెమెన్స్ ఈ ఫ్రాన్స్ అధిపతి మరి ఇంగ్లాండ్ అధిపతి లాయిడ్ జార్జ్ మరి వుడ్రో విల్సన్ వీళ్ళు గెలుపొందిన వాళ్ళు ముఖ్యంగా ఈ ఫ్రాన్స్ అండ్ ఇంగ్లాండ్ వాళ్ళు ఈ వైమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ అనేటువంటి రిపబ్లిక్ వ్యవస్థను మరి జర్మనీలో ఏర్పాటు చేస్తారు. ప్రజాప్రభుత్వం వైమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ అంటే టోటల్గా ప్రజల చేత యూనివర్సల్ సఫరేజ్ ప్రజాభిప్రాయ సఫరేజ్ అంటే యూనివర్సల్ ఓటింగ్ తోటి ప్రజాప్రభుత్వాన్ని ఏర్పాటు చేస్తారు. ఎక్కడ? జర్మనీలో. అది దాన్ని వైమార్ రిపబ్లిక్, జర్మనీ వైమార్ రిపబ్లిక్. ఆ విధంగా అలాంటి యొక్క జర్మనీని ఆ విధంగా చేయటం జరిగింది. ఆ విధంగా జర్మనీ దేశం హవయేళన గురైంది, ఇన్సల్ట్ గురి అయింది. ఎందుకంటే దాని ప్రాంతాలను లాక్కోవడం, హెవీ కంపెన్సేషన్, యుద్ధపు అపరాధ మరి కంపెన్సేషన్ దాని మీద రుద్దటం, వసూలు చేయడం బలవంతంగా. సో ఈ విధంగా జర్మనీని వర్సేల్ సంధిలో మరి ఈ యుద్ధానికి అసలైన కారణమే జర్మనీ. కాబట్టి బాగా పనిచేసేటట్టు వైమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ మీద రిపబ్లికన్ ప్రజాప్రభుత్వాన్ని ఏర్పరిచి ఆ ప్రజాప్రభుత్వం మోయలేనంత బరువును, ఆర్థిక భారాన్ని వైమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ మీద పెట్టడం, లేదా ఇంకా కంపెన్సేషన్ మరి ఇవ్వాలని చెప్పడం, మిలిటరీ యొక్క పోషణ కూడా జర్మనీ భరించాలని చెప్పడం. ఆ విధమైనటువంటి ఎన్ఫోర్స్ ట్రీటీస్ అన్నీ కూడా ఎన్ఫోర్స్ చేశారు. ఎవరి మీద? జర్మనీ మీద. దాన్నే వైమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ ఏర్పాటు ఎన్ఫోర్స్ చేసి మరి వాళ్ళ ఆధ్వర్యంలో, ఇంగ్లాండ్ ఆధ్వర్యంలో వైమార్ రిపబ్లిక్, వైమార్ ప్రజాప్రభుత్వాన్ని ఏర్పాటు చేస్తారు ఇక్కడ జర్మనీలో. సో ఆ విధంగా ఏర్పాటు చేసిన ప్రజాప్రభుత్వం మరి మీ ప్రజాప్రభుత్వాన్ని అణిచివేసే విధంగా జర్మనీ చుట్టూగా ఒక వలయంగా బలమైనటువంటి రక్షక దేశాలను పెట్టడం, బలమైనటువంటి మరి ఆయుధ సంపత్తితోటి మరి ఆర్థిక వ్యవస్థ బలమైన దేశాలను క్రియేట్ చేసి ఆ జర్మనీని మళ్ళీ యుద్ధానికి దారి తీయకుండా, మళ్ళీ పుంజుకోకుండా దాన్ని అలా మరి అప్రెస్ చేయటం జరిగింది. దాంతో ఈ జర్మనీ దేశంలో వచ్చినటువంటి వైమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ ఏదైతుందో ప్రజాస్వామ్య ప్రభుత్వం ఈ హెవీ కంపెన్సేషన్, ఇన్సల్ట్స్ తట్టుకోలేక అక్కడ పొలిటికల్ మార్పులు వస్తున్నాయి. ఏంటి? ఈ విధంగా ఇది రైట్ వింగ్ అని, లెఫ్ట్ వింగ్ పార్టీలని, సెంటర్ పార్టీలని 3 పార్టీలు రావడం జరిగింది. ఈ వైమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ నెమ్మదిగా ఫెయిల్ కావడంతో అక్కడ ఒకటి లెఫ్టిస్ట్ పార్టీలని, రైటిస్ట్ పార్టీలని, సెంటర్ పార్టీలని మరి ఈ విధంగా పార్టీలు రావటం జరిగింది అక్కడ జర్మనీలో. సో ఆఖరికి ఈ విమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ హెవీ కంపెన్సేషన్ మరి అది మోయలేకుండా మోపినటువంటి భారాన్ని తట్టుకోలేక ఆ ప్రజాప్రభుత్వం మరి విమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ ప్రభుత్వం మరి కూలిపోవటం జరిగింది. ఎప్పుడైతే ఆ విమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ ప్రభుత్వం కూలిపోయిందో అక్కడ నెమ్మది విమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ ఎప్పటి నుంచి ఎప్పటిదాకా పనిచేసింది? వర్సేల్స్ అంది 1920 19లో 1919లో 1920లో వర్సేల్స్ అంది 1919లో వర్సేల్స్ అంది పొందబడింది జర్మన్. unbearable economic compensation enforced on the German. దాంతో ఏర్పడినటువంటి ప్రజాప్రభుత్వం పనిచేయకుండా పోయి లెఫ్ట్ పార్టీలని, రైట్ పార్టీలని, సెంటర్ పార్టీలని ఆవిర్భవించి నెమ్మది ప్రజల ఆశను మరి ఈ ఆర్థిక పరిస్థితుల దృష్ట్యా, క్రైసిస్ దృష్ట్యా ఇది పనిచేయలేకపోవడంతో ఆ విమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ 1919లో ఏర్పడ్డ మరి వుడ్రో విల్సన్, లాయిడ్ జార్జ్ ఇంగ్లాండ్ వీళ్ళిద్దరు బాగా లిబరల్స్ కాబట్టి లిబరల్ వుడ్రో విల్సన్ యొక్క కోరిక మేరకు నానాసార్ 1920లో ఒక సమితి యుద్ధాన్ని నివారించడానికి ఒక లీగ్ ఆఫ్ నేషన్స్ నానాసార్ సమితి ఏర్పడుతుంది. కానీ దాంట్లో వుడ్రో విల్సన్ మెంబర్గా లేకపోవడం అది చాలా రిపబ్లిక్ అలా ఫెయిల్ అయిన తర్వాత లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీ ఫెయిల్ అయిన తర్వాత సెంటర్ పార్టీ నాజీ జర్మనీ పార్టీ 1933లో టేక్ ఓవర్ చేసినాక వెమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ ఫెయిల్ అయిపోయింది. వెమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ ప్లేస్లో సెంటర్ పార్టీ మరి నాజీ పార్టీ అధికారంలోకి వచ్చింది జర్మనీలో. దాని తర్వాత ఇంగ్లాండ్లో పార్లమెంటరీ ఫార్మ్ ఆఫ్ డెమోక్రసీ ఉన్నది. ఇంగ్లాండ్లో దాన్ని లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీ అంటారు. కానీ ఇంగ్లాండ్లో ఫస్ట్ వరల్డ్ వార్ కన్నా ముందు బాగా సూపర్ పవర్ ఉన్న ఇంగ్లాండ్ మరి సెకండ్ రేట్ పవర్గా మారటం, అమెరికా ఫస్ట్ రేట్ పవర్గా మారటం, అమెరికా సాయం లేకుండా ఇంగ్లాండ్ గెలుపొందే అవకాశం లేకుండా పోయింది. సో ఆ విధంగా యుద్ధంలో ఇంగ్లాండ్ బాగా దెబ్బతిన్నది. ఇంగ్లాండ్తో పాటు ఫ్రాన్స్ కూడా దెబ్బతిన్నది. సో ఈ విధంగా లిబరల్ డెమోక్రటిక్ పార్టీస్ ఉన్నటువంటి ఫ్రాన్స్ అండ్ ఇంగ్లాండ్ కూడా మరి ఫస్ట్ వరల్డ్ వార్ తర్వాత మరి ఈ జర్మనీ ఇచ్చినటువంటి కంపెన్సేషన్, జర్మనీ నుంచి పొందినటువంటి వలస సాధ్యం ఇది ఇంగ్లాండ్కి వచ్చింది. మరి ఈ యొక్క ఫ్రాన్స్ మరి జర్మనీ యొక్క రూల్ సార్లోయ ఖనిజ ప్రాంతాన్ని మరి ఫ్రెండ్స్కి ఇవ్వటం, అల్సేస్ కూడా ఫ్రెండ్స్కి ఇవ్వటం. సో తోటి ఫ్రాన్స్ దేశం కంపెన్సేషన్, మరి జర్మనీ ఇచ్చిన కంపెన్సేషన్ వాటితోటి ఫ్రెంచ్ దేశము, ఇంగ్లాండ్ దేశము లిబరల్ డెమోక్రటిక్ దేశాలుగా సర్వైవ్ అయినాయి. లెఫ్ట్ రైట్ వింగ్ పాలిటిక్స్ అక్కడ కూడా వచ్చినాయి. లెఫ్ట్ రైట్ వింగ్ పార్టీలు మరి ఆ విధంగా లెఫ్ట్ రైట్ పార్టీలు మరి ఇన్ఫ్లుయెన్స్ అయినాయి ఏది ఇంగ్లాండ్లో అండ్ ఫ్రాన్స్లో. సో ఆ విధంగా ఫ్రాన్స్లో సోషలిస్టులు సామ్యవాదం బలంగా కావటం, సోషల్ హైరార్కీ క్లాసెస్లో తేడాలు రావటం, ఇంతకుముందు ఉన్నటువంటి యొక్క రూరల్ ఏరియా క్లాసెస్ కాకుండా ఇప్పుడు న్యూ మిడిల్ క్లాసెస్ రావటం, మరి వర్కింగ్ లిబరల్ డెమోక్రటిక్ వర్కర్స్ గవర్నమెంట్స్ రావటం ఎక్కడ ఇంగ్లాండ్లో. ఫ్రాన్స్ ఈ రెండు కూడా జర్మనీ మీద వేసినటువంటి యొక్క ఎన్ఫోర్స్ చేసినటువంటి యొక్క రీఎంబర్స్మెంట్ మీద లేదా పత్తి పరిశ్రమల మీద, రబ్బర్ పత్తి పరిశ్రమలు, మరి ఇంగ్లాండ్ యొక్క ఇండస్ట్రీస్ జరిగినటువంటి అభివృద్ధి, మరి అదేవిధంగా ఈ ఫ్రాన్స్ ఇంగ్లాండ్లో కూడా ఫుడ్ క్రైసిస్ రావడం జరిగింది. ఫుడ్ క్రైసిస్ జర్మనీలో ఎట్లా అయితే ఫుడ్ క్రైసిస్ వచ్చిందో ఈ ఇంగ్లాండ్ ఫ్రాన్స్లో కూడా ఫుడ్ క్రైసిస్ రావటం, ఇంగ్లాండ్ ఆ ఫుడ్ క్రైసిస్ నుంచి మరి బయటికి రావటం, ఆ తర్వాత ఫ్రాన్స్ దేశం కూడా వ్యవసాయకంగా ఇండస్ట్రియల్గా అభివృద్ధి చెందుతుంది. ఈ విధంగా మరి ఈ రెండు దేశాలు కూడా మరి కొంత ఫస్ట్ వరల్డ్ వార్లో మరి జర్మన్ దేశం కొంత కోల్పోయినప్పటికీ మరి మిగిలిన ప్రాంతాలన్నింటినీ కూడా రీజనరేట్ చేస్తూ మరి ఫస్ట్ వరల్డ్ వార్లో ఉన్నటువంటి యొక్క మరి ఆ యొక్క బానిస ఫస్ట్ వరల్డ్ వార్లో ఉన్న వాటిని ఎదుర్కొంటూ మరి ఈ ఇంగ్లాండ్ లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీ ఇన్ ఇంగ్లాండ్, మరి సోషలిస్ట్ పార్టీ ఇన్ ఫ్రాన్స్, మరి లిబరల్ డెమోక్రటిక్ పార్టీ ఇన్ ఫ్రాన్స్, సోషలిస్ట్ డెమోక్రటిక్ పార్టీ ఇన్ ఫ్రాన్స్, ఈ రెండు గవర్నమెంట్స్ కూడా మరి ఈ పీపుల్స్ సపోర్ట్ చేయడం, పీపుల్స్ గవర్నమెంట్ ఏర్పాటు కావడానికి మరి లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీ కంట్రీస్ డెమోక్రసీస్ కంటిన్యూ అయినాయి ఎక్కడ ఇంగ్లాండ్లో ఫ్రాన్స్లో. ఆ విధంగా లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ సక్సెస్ఫుల్ వేర్ ఇన్ ఇంగ్లాండ్ అండ్ ఫ్రాన్స్. ఇంగ్లాండ్లో మరి ఫ్రాన్స్లో మరి ఈ ఈ ఈ రెండు ఇట్లా కూడా లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ సక్సెస్ఫుల్గా రావడం జరిగింది. ఈ ఈ ఆ తర్వాత అక్కడ ఈ యొక్క ఎకనామిక్ క్రైసిస్ 1920s వర్సైల్స్ ట్రీటీ దాని మీద రుద్దడంతో ఈ జర్మనీ మీద రుద్దడం, జర్మనీ కంపెనీస్ మోయలేకపోవటం, మరి దాని యొక్క జర్మనీ వీక్నెస్ తోటి అక్కడ వ్యతిరేకత రావటం, ఆ విధంగా ఇంగ్లాండ్లో ఫ్రాన్స్లో వ్యతిరేక తిరుగుబాటు రావటం, సోషలిస్ట్ తిరుగుబాట్లు రావటం, మరి ఆ విధంగా మరి సోషలిస్ట్ తిరుగుబాట్లను అణిచివేసి ఇంగ్లాండ్లో మరి పార్లమెంటరీ ఫార్మ్ ఆఫ్ గవర్నమెంట్, వర్కర్స్ యూనియన్స్, వర్కర్స్ గవర్నమెంట్ రావటం, మరి అదేవిధంగా మరి ప్రొలిటేరియన్ గవర్నమెంట్. రష్యాలో కమ్యూనిస్ట్ పార్టీ 1917లో బోల్షెవిక్ రివల్యూషన్ జరిగి అక్కడ కమ్యూనిస్ట్ గవర్నమెంట్ ఏర్పడింది. ఆ కమ్యూనిస్ట్ గవర్నమెంటు మరి గవర్నమెంట్ యొక్క రష్యన్ మోడల్ ఈ ఎకనామిక్ క్రైసిస్ ఏదైతుందో ఆ రష్యాలో రాలేదు. ఎందుకంటే రష్యా కమ్యూనిస్ట్ కంట్రీ. అక్కడ రష్యా లెనిన్, స్టాలిన్ ఇద్దరు వెళ్ళినటువంటి రష్యాలో అక్కడ కలెక్టివ్ అగ్రికల్చరిజం రావటం జరిగింది. కలెక్టివ్ అగ్రికల్చరిజం, కలెక్టివ్ ఇండస్ట్రియలైజేషన్, నేషనలైజేషన్ ఆఫ్ ప్రాపర్టీ, మరి ఫండమెంటల్ ది ప్లానింగ్ సిస్టమ్, ఎవ్రీ 5 year ప్లానింగ్ సిస్టమ్ తోటి రష్యా వృద్ధులు ఎకనామిక్ క్రైసిస్ నుంచి తప్పించుకొని వృద్ధిలోకి పోవడం జరిగింది. ఇది రష్యా. అక్కడ కమ్యూనిస్ట్ గవర్నమెంట్, స్టేట్లెస్, పవర్లెస్ కమ్యూనిస్ట్ గవర్నమెంట్ రావడం జరిగింది. అక్కడ ఈ యొక్క రష్యన్ రెవల్యూషన్, లెనిన్, స్టాలిన్ ఆధ్వర్యంలో మరి కమ్యూనిస్ట్ గవర్నమెంట్ రావడం జరిగింది. సో ఈ వచ్చినటువంటి కమ్యూనిస్ట్ వ్యవస్థ మరి ఈ కమ్యూనిస్ట్ భావాలు నార్థన్ యూరోప్లో, వెస్టర్న్ యూరోప్ స్ప్రెడ్ అవుతుంది. దాంతో మరి అలా స్ప్రెడ్ కాకుండా పోలాండ్ ఆల్రెడీ మరి కమ్యూనిస్ట్ ఇన్ఫ్లుయెన్స్ పోయింది. సో అదేవిధంగా మరి ఈ యొక్క డెమోక్రసీ గవర్నమెంట్స్ కూడా, ఇది ఇంగ్లాండ్ డెమోక్రటిక్ గవర్నమెంట్, ఫ్రాన్స్ డెమోక్రటిక్ గవర్నమెంట్ కూడా మరి అక్కడ కూడా ఎకనామిక్ క్రైసిస్, ఎకనామిక్ డిప్రెషన్ ఎదుర్కొనేది. రష్యా మాత్రం ఎకనామిక్ డిప్రెషన్ నుంచి సర్వైవ్ కాగలిగింది. ఎందుకంటే అక్కడ ఉన్నటువంటి లీడర్ వాళ్ళ యొక్క ప్రణాళికాబద్ధమైనటువంటి యొక్క అభివృద్ధి మోడల్స్ వాళ్ళు ఎంచుకున్నారు కాబట్టి, సోషలిస్ట్ మోడల్స్ ఎంచుకున్నారు కాబట్టి, కలెక్టివ్ అగ్రికల్చర్ ఏర్పరచుకున్నారు కాబట్టి ఈ రష్యా మాత్రం ఆర్థిక మాంద్యం నుంచి తప్పించుకున్నది. కానీ మరి వెస్టర్న్ యూరోప్లో, సెంట్రల్ యూరోప్లో ఆర్థిక మాంద్యం బాగా ఫ్రీ ట్రేడ్ పాలసీ, లెసెస్ ఫెయిర్ పాలసీ తోటి ఆర్థిక మాంద్యం బాగా మరి పీక్ స్టేజ్కి పోవటంతో ఆర్థిక మాంద్యం అక్కడ గవర్నమెంట్స్ మరి లిబరల్ డెమోక్రటిక్ గవర్నమెంట్స్ అయినటువంటి గవర్నమెంట్స్ మరి కొంత డెమోక్రటిక్ ఉన్నటువంటి గవర్నమెంట్స్. ఇంగ్లాండ్లో అయితే లేబర్ పార్టీ పోయి వర్కర్స్, లిబరల్ పార్టీ పోయి లేబర్ పార్టీ వర్కర్స్ గవర్నమెంట్ రావటం జరిగింది. ఎక్కడ ఈ యొక్క ఇంగ్లాండ్లో వర్కర్స్ లేబర్ గవర్నమెంట్ ఇంగ్లాండ్లో. ఫ్రాన్స్లో కూడా సోషలిస్ట్ భావాలు ఉన్నటువంటి యొక్క పార్టీ ఆధ్వర్యంలో ఈ యొక్క లిబరల్ సోషలిజం రావడం జరిగింది. ఆ విధంగా లిబరల్ సోషలిస్ట్ ఎకానమీ, రిపబ్లిక్ ఎకానమీ. సో ఈ మళ్ళీ ఇలా ఈ సోషలిస్ట్ భావాలు ఉన్నటువంటి యొక్క ఫ్రాన్స్, లెఫ్ట్ రైట్ సెంటర్ పాలిటిక్స్ తోటి ఈ యొక్క పాలిటిక్స్ తోటి లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ మరి ఎన్నో ఆటుపోట్ల గురి అవుతూ ఈ లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ గవర్నమెంట్ మరి ఇంగ్లాండ్లో, ఫ్రాన్స్లో, మరి ఫ్రాన్స్లో కొంత వీక్ అయినప్పటికీ కొంత ఇది సర్వే కావటానికి లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీ సర్వే అని ఎక్కడ ఇంగ్లాండ్లో, ఫ్రాన్స్లో సర్వే అని, జర్మనీలో మరి కొంత లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్. మరి ఈ విమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ తర్వాత సెంట్రలిస్ట్ పార్టీ వచ్చింది. కానీ ఇంగ్లాండ్, ఫ్రాన్స్లో మాత్రం లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీ గవర్నమెంట్స్ మరి దాన్ని లిబరల్ డెమోక్రటిక్ పొలిటికల్ గవర్నమెంట్ ఏర్పాటుకు దారి తీసింది. సో ఇది మనం ఈరోజు లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీ గవర్నమెంట్ ఆఫ్ లిబరల్ డెమోక్రటిక్ గవర్నమెంట్స్ ఆఫ్ ఈ ఇంగ్లాండ్, ఫ్రాన్స్, మరి అదేవిధంగా ఇంగ్లాండ్, ఫ్రాన్స్ దాంతో పాటు లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీ గవర్నమెంట్స్ అవలంబించినటువంటి యొక్క మరి ఈ విమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ కూలిపోయి సెంట్రలిస్ట్ పార్టీ, నాజీ పార్టీ ఎమర్జీ. ఇది విమార్ లిబరల్ డెమోక్రటిక్ పార్టీ అయినటువంటి యొక్క విమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ పార్టీ పోయిన తర్వాత ఈ రష్యాలో సోవియట్ యూనియన్ ఆధ్వర్యంలో బోల్షివిక్ రెవల్యూషన్ మరి లెనిన్, స్టాలిన్ వారి పంచవర్ష ప్రణాళికలతో అది ఎకనామిక్ ఆస్పెక్ట్లో సర్వైవ్ అయ్యింది. మరి అదేవిధంగా వెస్ట్రన్ డెమోక్రటిక్స్ కంట్రీస్ అయినటువంటి యొక్క ఈ యొక్క వెస్ట్రన్ కంట్రీస్లో కనిపించినటువంటి లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ కొంత ఆటుపోట్లకు, లెఫ్ట్ రైట్ మరి కాన్స్టిట్యూషనల్ మొనార్కీ అనేటువంటి యొక్క వాటికి మరి వాటితోటి మొనార్కీ అనేటువంటి అంశాలతోటి అది ముందుకు ప్రభుత్వాలను తీసుకుపోవడానికి ఈ లిబరల్ డెమోక్రటిక్ పార్టీస్ పనికొచ్చినాయి. ఏది అక్కడ ఈ ఇంగ్లాండ్లో పనికొచ్చింది, అదే ఫ్రాన్స్లో పనికొచ్చింది. సో ఆ విధంగా మరి లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీ పార్టీస్ అనేటువంటి యొక్క పార్టీలు 20వ శతాబ్దంలో, 19వ శతాబ్దంలో మరి ఈ ఓల్డ్ మిడిల్ క్లాస్ కాకుండా న్యూ మిడిల్ క్లాస్ లిబరల్ డెమోక్రట్స్, న్యూ మిడిల్ క్లాస్ ఎమర్జ్ అయ్యి వాళ్ళు లీడింగ్ రోల్ తీసుకోవటం, మరి ప్రజాస్వామ్య సేకరణ తీసుకోవడం అనేది జరిగింది. ఈ విధంగా లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీ గవర్నమెంట్స్ పనిచేయటం మొదలుపెట్టినాయి. ఎక్కడ ఇంగ్లాండ్లో, ఫ్రాన్స్లో, అదేవిధంగా మరి ఈ యొక్క వెస్టర్న్ ఎడ్యుకేటెడ్ ఉన్నటువంటి యొక్క ఈ వెస్టర్న్ ఎడ్యుకేటెడ్ ఎన్లైటెడ్ ఉన్నటువంటి యొక్క ఈ విమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ డ్యూ టు ఫైనాన్షియల్ ఇన్స్టెబిలిటీ, ఫైనాన్షియల్ క్రైసిస్ తోటి కొలాప్స్ అయింది. కానీ అది కొలాప్స్ అయ్యి ఈ విధంగా ఎకనామిక్ డిప్రెషన్ 1929లో వస్తే దాని సొల్యూషన్, ఎకనామిక్ డిప్రెషన్ అంటే ఏంది? 1929లో వచ్చినట్టు ఎకనామిక్ డిప్రెషన్ అంటే వస్తువులు ఎవ్రీవేర్ ఫుడ్ గ్రెయిన్స్ రేట్ పడిపోయినాయి, ప్రైసెస్ పడిపోయినాయి, వస్తువులు ఉన్నాయి దాని మార్కెట్ని కొనే పరిస్థితి లేదు. ప్రజల దగ్గర మరి పర్చేజింగ్ పవర్ లేదు. సో అట్లాంటి పరిస్థితుల్లో కెనీషియన్ ఎకానమీ కీన్స్ అనేవాడు ఏం చేశారంటే కెనీషియన్ ఎకానమీ దాంతో ఏంటంటే లిబరల్ కెనీషియన్ ఎకానమీ ప్రకారంగా గవర్నమెంట్ ఇంటర్వ్యూన్ అయ్యి పబ్లిక్ వర్క్స్ చేపట్టాలి. పబ్లిక్ వెల్ఫేర్ వర్క్స్ చేపట్టి ఆర్థిక మాంద్యాన్ని, ఫుడ్ గ్రెయిన్స్కి రేట్ లేకపోవడం, ఇండస్ట్రియల్ గూడ్స్కు రేట్ పడిపోవడం. సో అట్లాంటి పరిస్థితుల్లో ఇలాంటి యొక్క మెజర్స్ ఎవరు ఇలాంటి మెజర్స్ తీసుకున్నది అంటే ఈ 19th century లెజర్స్ ఫెయిర్ పాలసీని, ఫ్రీ ట్రేడ్ పాలసీని డిస్కార్డ్ చేసి లిబరల్ పాలసీస్ను తీసుకురావటం. ఈ విధంగా మరి లిబరల్ పాలసీస్ను మరి కల్టివేట్ చేస్తూ ఈ మొనార్కీస్ పోయి ప్రజాప్రభుత్వాలు ఏర్పడ్డాయి. ఆ విధంగా ఇంగ్లాండ్ మరి ఎకనామిక్ క్రైసిస్ నుంచి ఇంగ్లాండ్ బయటపడింది. అక్కడ ఇంగ్లాండ్లో కూడా మరి లేబర్ పార్టీ, సెంటర్ పార్టీ, లేబర్ పార్టీ రావడం జరిగింది. అదేవిధంగా మరి ఈ యొక్క ఫ్రాన్స్లో కూడా సోషలిస్ట్ భావాలు పెళ్ళిచ్చాయి. సోషలిస్ట్ భావాలు ఒకసారిగా ఫ్రాన్స్లో పెళ్ళుతుంది. కానీ అక్కడ కూడా అణచివేయడంతో లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీ గవర్నమెంట్ సర్వైవ్ అయింది. ఇంగ్లాండ్లో కూడా మరి తిరుగుబాట్లు, అగ్రికల్చరల్ తిరుగుబాట్లు, ఇండస్ట్రియల్ ఎగ్జిబిషన్ సెంటర్స్ పెట్టి వస్తువులను ప్రమోట్ చేయడం, మరి అదేవిధంగా ఈ వస్తువులను ప్రమోట్ చేసి వస్తువులను అమ్మే వ్యవస్థను కూడా ఏర్పాటు చేయడం జరిగింది. సో ఆ విధంగా లిబరలైజేషన్, గ్లోబలైజేషన్ దాంతో మన యొక్క ఇండస్ట్రీ, అగ్రికల్చరల్ ఇండస్ట్రీ, మరి రూరల్ ఇండస్ట్రీ, అర్బన్ ఇండస్ట్రీ, మరి ఈ ఇండస్ట్రీస్ అన్నీ కూడా మరి ఈ అంతకుముందు ఉన్నటువంటి యొక్క క్రైసిస్ పీరియడ్ నుంచి, ఆర్థిక మాంద్యం నుంచి మరి మూమెంట్ జరిగేటట్టుగా గవర్నమెంట్ ఇంటర్వెన్షన్, కెనీషియన్ ఎకనామిక్ ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ తోటి ఈ ఆర్థిక మాంద్యాన్ని మరి ఈ యొక్క అంశాన్ని ఇది ఈ గవర్నమెంట్ ఇంటర్వ్యూన్ అయి dig the pits and dig the pits and fill the pits అనేటువంటి యొక్క నినాదంతో మరి ఇలా dig the pits, fill the pits. సో ఈ సోషలిస్ట్ దానివల్ల ఆర్థిక వ్యవస్థలో కదలికలు రావటం జరిగింది. ఆర్థిక వ్యవస్థలో కదలికలు వచ్చి ఈ యొక్క ఎకానమీ ముందుకు పోవటం జరిగింది. సో దాన్ని కెనీషియన్ ఎకానమీ అని అంటారు. ఆడమ్ స్మిత్ ఎకానమిక్ వెల్త్ ఆఫ్ నేషన్స్ అనే గ్రంథంలో ప్రభుత్వమే ముందుకొచ్చి ఈ ఆర్థిక వ్యవస్థలో వాలంటరీగా పబ్లిక్ యొక్క భవనాలను కట్టించటము, మరి కెనాల్స్ను వీటిని తోగించటము, వాటిల్లో ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ పెట్టి ఆ విధంగా ప్రభుత్వమే ఆర్థిక మాంద్యాన్ని నుంచి ప్రభుత్వాలను నడిపే దిశగా మరి మార్పు తీసుకొచ్చే దిశగా మా ఈ ఆర్థిక మాంద్యం యొక్క 1918 ఆర్థిక 1929-33 ఆర్థిక మాంద్యం తొలగేటట్టుగా ప్రయత్నాలు చేయటం జరిగింది. అది ఎకనామిక్ డిప్రెషన్. మరి ఇంకా దీంతో పాటు అది కాకుండా ఇంకేంటంటే ఇంగ్లాండ్, ఫ్రాన్స్ ఫర్ సెర్చింగ్ ఫర్ సెక్యూరిటీ, ఆల్వేస్ ఫ్రాన్స్ సెర్చింగ్ ఫర్ సెక్యూరిటీ. ఎందుకంటే ఈ సెంట్రలిస్ట్ పార్టీ, లిబరల్ డెమోక్రటిక్ పార్టీ పోయిన తర్వాత సెంట్రలిస్ట్ పార్టీ అయినటువంటి యొక్క హిట్లర్ అగ్రెసివ్గా తయారై మరి నెమ్మదిగా అగ్రెసివ్గా తయారై వాటిని థ్రెటన్గా ఇది జర్మనీని నిర్బంధించే విధంగా అతను సందులు చేసుకోవడం మొదలుపెట్టాడు. ఎవరు? ఫ్రాన్స్ వాడు. దాన్ని లెపర్నో ప్యాక్ట్స్ 1925 లొకర్నో ఒప్పందం అంటారు. లొకర్నో ఒప్పందం ప్రకారంగా జర్మనీ చుట్టూగా సరి అయిన బలమైన రాజ్యాలను ఏర్పాటు చేసుకోవటం, తన బలమైన రాజ్యాల మిత్రులను ఏర్పాటు చేసుకోవటం, మరి ఆ మిత్రులు ఒక్కటిగా ఉండటం, మిగతా వాళ్ళకు మరి సపోర్ట్ చేయకుండా ఉండటం. అదేవిధంగా మరి ఇలా లొకర్నో సందులు చేసుకున్నది ఏది? ఫ్రాన్స్ తన భయంతో. అదేవిధంగా ఇంగ్లాండ్ కూడా మరి తన ఇంట్రెస్ట్ కాపాడుకుంటుంది, ఓన్ ఇంట్రెస్ట్, తన ఇంట్రెస్ట్ కాపాడుకుంటున్నట్టయితే సో అట్లా ఆ విధంగా కెలాంగ్ బ్రియాండ్ ప్యాక్ట్ సందులు కూడా కెలాంగ్ బ్రియాండ్ ప్యాక్ట్ సందులు జరిగినాయి. సో ఆ సందులలో ట్రీటీస్, ఆ ట్రీటీస్లో ఇంగ్లాండ్ ఫ్రాన్స్లో ఇంగ్లాండ్ ఫ్రాన్స్లలో ఈ ఇంగ్లాండ్ ఫ్రాన్స్ సెక్యూరిటీ, ఇంగ్లాండ్ తన సెక్యూరిటీ, ఈ విధంగా రష్యా బాగా అభివృద్ధి చెందడం, రష్యాలో ఉన్న కలెక్టివైజేషన్ ఆఫ్ అగ్రికల్చర్, కలెక్టివైజేషన్ ఆఫ్ ది ఇండస్ట్రీ, దాంతో ఈ యొక్క ఇంగ్లాండ్ ఫ్రాన్స్లో డిప్లొమసీ కూడా క్రైసిస్లో పడింది. దాంతోపాటు డిప్లొమసీ క్రైసిస్, మరి ఇలాంటి క్రైసిస్, డిప్లొమసీలో వచ్చినటువంటి క్రైసిస్, మరి ఆర్థిక వ్యవస్థలో వచ్చినటువంటి క్రైసిస్, మరి ఈ యొక్క రక్షణ సందులు పరస్పరం రక్షించుకోవాలి, ఒకటిగా ఉండాలనేటువంటి రహస్య సందులు, ఇవన్నీ కూడా అల్టిమేట్గా మరి సెకండ్ వరల్డ్ వార్కు దారి తీయటం జరిగింది. ఇది మనం ఈరోజు ఈ యొక్క లైవ్ ఛానల్లో ఈ కెలాంగ్ బ్రియాండ్ ప్యాక్ట్, లక్నో ప్యాక్ట్ అనేటువంటి 1900 మరి ఇలాంటి యొక్క సందులతోటి మరి ఈ సంధి సమావేశాలతోటి మరి ఈ యొక్క రక్షణ సందులతోటి కెలాంగ్ బ్రియాండ్ ప్యాక్ట్ అనే లీగ్ ఆఫ్ నేషన్స్లో మరి లీగ్ ఆఫ్ నేషన్స్ తన సొంత సంస్థగా భావించినటువంటి ఇంగ్లాండ్, మరి ఫ్రాన్స్ తన సొంత సంస్థగా దాన్ని యూజ్ చేసుకొని ఇంగ్లాండ్ యొక్క ప్రభుత్వం పడిపోకుండా ఇంగ్లాండ్ దాన్ని ఈ విధంగా ఇంగ్లాండ్లో లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీ సర్వైవ్ అవుతూ మరి ఈ సొంత ఎజెండాను సెర్చ్ ఫర్ సెక్యూరిటీ, ఈ ఫ్రాన్స్ సెర్చ్ ఫర్ సెక్యూరిటీ, దాని సెక్యూరిటీ కోసం ఇంగ్లాండ్ కూడా కలిసి రావడం, ఆ విధంగా ఫ్రాన్స్ దేశం సెర్చ్ ఫర్ సెక్యూరిటీ అనే ఇష్యూ మీద, సెర్చ్ ఫర్ సెక్యూరిటీ ఇష్యూ మీద, మరి ఈ అలాంటి ఇష్యూ మీద ఈ రెండు దేశాలు ఒకటిగా ఉండటం, లిబరల్ డెమోక్రటిక్ కంట్రీస్, సోషలిస్ట్ డెమోక్రటిక్ కంట్రీస్గా ఈ రెండు సక్సెస్ఫుల్ కంట్రీస్గా మారటం జరిగింది. ఆ విధంగా లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ ఆఫ్ వైమార్ రిపబ్లిక్, లిబరల్ డెమోక్రటిక్ కంట్రీస్, డెమోక్రటిక్ కంట్రీలు అయినటువంటి కంట్రీ అయినటువంటి ఇంగ్లాండ్, ఫ్రాన్స్, సోషలిస్ట్ డెమోక్రసీ అయినటువంటి ఫ్రాన్స్, రష్యా నుంచి వచ్చేటువంటి కమ్యూనిస్ట్ వ్యవస్థలు, సక్సెస్ఫుల్ కమ్యూనిస్ట్ వ్యవస్థ ప్లానింగ్ తోటి ముందుకు పోయే కమ్యూనిస్ట్ భావాలు మరి స్ప్రెడ్ కావటం, దాంతో అమెరికన్ గవర్నమెంట్ ఏదైతే ఫస్ట్ వరల్డ్ నేషన్గా ఎదిగిందో ఆఫ్టర్ సెకండ్ వరల్డ్ వార్, ఫస్ట్ వరల్డ్ వార్ తర్వాత ఈ అమెరికా పెద్ద దేశంగా ఆవిర్భవించటం, అమెరికా సప్లై చేసినటువంటి ఆర్థికంగా ఇతోధికంగా నిధులు ఇవ్వడంతో జర్మనీలో రీకన్స్ట్రక్షన్ అండ్ డెవలప్మెంట్ ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ కూడా చేపట్టింది. ఆ విధంగా మరి ఉత్తరాదిలో దక్షిణాదిలో ఈ మరి వైమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ సంస్కరణ కోసం వైమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ కోసం మరి ఈ సర్వే కావడానికి కోసం ఇతోధికంగా అమెరికా ఆర్థిక సహాయం చేయటం, కమ్యూనిస్ట్ భావజాలాన్ని రష్యా నుంచి పోలాండ్, మిగతా ఈస్టర్న్ యూరోపియన్ కంట్రీస్కు స్ప్రెడ్ కాకుండా ఈ ఎకనామిక్ ప్లాన్స్ను మరి ఆర్థిక వనరులను ఆర్థిక ఉత్తేజితమైనటువంటి మరి దాన్ని ఆర్థికంగా నిలదొక్కుకోవటం, అమెరికా ఇతోధికంగా ఫండ్స్ ఇవ్వటం, ఆ ఫండ్స్ ద్వారా మరి ఈ దేశాలు ఈ లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీ కంట్రీస్ను తట్టుకునేటట్టు చేయగలిగింది అమెరికా. ఆ విధంగా లిబరల్ డెమోక్రటిక్ కంట్రీస్ ఈ లిబరలిజాన్ని కంటిన్యూ చేయడానికి మరి అమెరికా ఇచ్చినటువంటి ఇతోధికమైనటువంటి ఆర్థిక సహాయం వల్ల అవి నిలబడగలిగిన ప్రజాస్వామ్య ప్రభుత్వాలుగా కంటిన్యూ అవుతూ వస్తున్నాయి. అది మనం ఈ పాఠం, ఇది యూనిట్ 10, liberal democracies in the Germany, Weimar Republic, liberal democracies in England, in Britain, liberal democracies in France. ఈ మూడు దేశాలలో కూడా లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ ఎక్స్పెరిమెంట్ ఎలా జరిగింది, అవి ఎలా సర్వైవ్ అయ్యాయి అనేది మనం ఈరోజు మన లైవ్ ఛానల్లో డిస్కస్ చేసాం. మరి ఇది ఈ విధంగా సెర్చ్ ఫర్ సెక్యూరిటీ, సోషల్ క్రైసిస్ ఇంకా రెండవది అంటే సెర్చ్ ఫర్ సోషల్ క్రైసిస్, మరి సెర్చ్ ఫర్ సెక్యూరిటీ అనేది సెర్చ్ ఫర్ సెక్యూరిటీ అనేటువంటి మూడవ స్లోగన్ తోటి మరి ఏది కెలాంగ్ బ్రియాండ్ ప్యాక్ట్ తోటి ఇవి సెర్చ్ ఫర్ సెక్యూరిటీ. ఫ్రాన్స్, ఇంగ్లాండ్ తన స్వదేశ రాజకీయాల్లో లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ రాజ్యాలను కొనసాగిస్తున్నాయి. సో ఇది మనం ఈరోజు ఈ లైవ్ ఛానల్లో డిస్కస్ చేయబడినటువంటి అంశం. ఇది లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ అనేవి మూడు ప్రాంతాల్లో మూడు విధాలుగా డిఫరెంట్ విధాలుగా ఎక్కడ ఈ వైమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ అనేది ఒకటి, ఇది జర్మనీలో బిఫోర్ ముందు జర్మనీ ఇది లిబరల్ విమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ ఏర్పడింది ఫస్ట్ వరల్డ్ వార్ కాగానే. అది ఫైనాన్షియల్ ప్రాబ్లం తోటి మరి ఎకనామిక్ డిప్రెషన్ ప్రాబ్లం తోటి అది సక్సెస్ఫుల్ కాకుండా ఫెయిల్ అయిపోయింది. ఇది విమార్ రిపబ్లిక్. సో దాని తర్వాత మరి ఫ్రాన్స్లో మరి ఇంగ్లాండ్లో కూడా మరి వరల్డ్ వార్ యొక్క నిధులు ఎకనామిక్ నిధులు వరల్డ్ వార్ తర్వాత వచ్చినటువంటి యొక్క పొలిటికల్ ఇష్యూస్ మరి ఎకనామిక్ నిధులతోటి ఈ సెకండ్ వరల్డ్ వార్ కన్నా ముందు వచ్చినటువంటి యొక్క ఈ సందులు సమావేశాలతోటి లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ కంట్రీస్ అయిన ఇంగ్లాండ్ మరి ఫ్రాన్స్ సర్వైవ్ అవుతూ అక్కడ కూడా డెమోక్రసీస్ మరి నెలకొల్పడం జరిగింది. దో సెంట్రలిస్ట్ పార్టీస్ అవి వచ్చినా కూడా ఈ ఒక ఇంగ్లాండ్ ఫ్రాన్స్ అదేవిధంగా ఆ విధంగా లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ గవర్నమెంట్ను సక్సెస్ చేయగలిగింది. అది మనం ఈరోజు ఈ లైవ్ ఛానల్లో డిస్కస్ చేసిన లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీ ఇన్ యూరోప్, ఇన్ డెమోక్రసీస్ ఇన్ యూరోప్, పర్టిక్యులర్లీ ఇన్ జర్మనీ, మరి పర్టిక్యులర్లీ ఇన్ ఇంగ్లాండ్ అండ్ ఫ్రాన్స్, ది లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్. ఇది మనం బ్రీఫ్గా లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ను గురించి మనం ఈరోజు ఈ లైవ్ ఛానల్లో యూనిట్ 10ను లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ అనేటువంటి అంశం ఫస్ట్ వరల్డ్ వార్ తర్వాత మరి లిబరల్ డెమోక్రటిక్ గవర్నమెంట్స్ విమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ ఏర్పాటు చేశారు. మరి గెలుపొందిన రాజ్యాలు ఏర్పాటు చేసి విమార్ రిపబ్లిక్ మీద హెవీ కంపెన్సేషన్ పెట్టడంతో అది బలహీనమైపోయింది. సో దాని ప్లేస్లోనే సెంట్రలిస్ట్ పార్టీ నాజీ పార్టీ. కానీ అదే ఇంగ్లాండ్లో మరి ఇంగ్లాండ్ అండ్ ఫ్రాన్స్లో లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ గవర్నమెంట్ కంటిన్యూ అయినాయి. అక్కడ ఈ యొక్క కంటిన్యూ కావడానికి లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీ గవర్నమెంట్ ఇన్ ఫ్రాన్స్ అండ్ ఇన్ ఇంగ్లాండ్ ఈ డెమోక్రటిక్ ప్రిన్సిపల్స్ మరి అక్కడ రైట్ వింగ్ పార్టీస్, లెఫ్ట్ వింగ్ పార్టీస్, రైట్ లెఫ్ట్ సెంటర్ పార్టీస్ అనేటువంటి 3 పార్టీలు ఆవిర్భవించి ఆ 3 పార్టీలు కూడా మరి ఈ లిబరల్ డెమోక్రటిక్ పార్టీస్ 3 దేశాలలో మరి లిబరల్ డెమోక్రటిక్ పార్టీ సక్సెస్ అయిన కన్నా 4వ దేశమైనటువంటి రష్యాలో మాత్రం కమ్యూనిస్ట్ గవర్నమెంట్, వర్కర్స్ గవర్నమెంట్ కంప్లీట్ వ్యతిరేకం, లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీకి వ్యతిరేకమైనటువంటి కమ్యూనిస్ట్ గవర్నమెంట్ రావడం జరిగింది. అది మనం ఈరోజు ఈ లైవ్ ఛానల్లో డిస్కస్ చేసినటువంటి ఈ లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ పోయి మరి లిబరల్ డెమోక్రసీస్ పోయి డిక్టేటరిజం రష్యాలో వచ్చింది. జార్ ప్రభుత్వం రాజరిక వ్యవస్థ పోయి ఈ డిక్టేటరిజం ఆఫ్ పార్లమెంటరీ ఫార్మ్ ఆఫ్ కంటిన్యూయింగ్. ఇది మనం ఈరోజు ఈ లైవ్ ఛానల్లో డిస్కస్ చేసిన యొక్క టాపిక్.
মোৰ নাম শ্ৰী গীতাৰ্থ প্ৰতিম খুচৰে, একাডেমিক কাউন্সিলৰ, ইগনু, গুৱাহাটী চেণ্টাৰ। আজি মই আপোনালোকৰ সন্মুখত মনোবিজ্ঞানৰ আন এক নতুন বিষয় দাঙি ধৰিবলৈ আগবাঢ়িছোঁ। যাক আমি ইংৰাজীত লাৰ্ণিং বা অসমীয়াত শিক্ষণ বুলি কওঁ। আহকচোন আমি আজিৰ এই ক্লাছটো আৰম্ভ কৰোঁ। আপোনালোকে সবাই যদি এই কণ্টেণ্টটো যদি চায়, তো আমি বৰ্তমান আজি শিক্ষণত প্ৰথম আমি শিক্ষণ কি হয়, হোৱাট ইজ লাৰ্ণিং, তাৰ প্ৰয়োজনীয়তা আমাৰ জীৱনত কি আছে, আৰু জীৱনৰ প্ৰত্যেকটো সময়ত আমি নতুন ধৰণৰ বস্তু কেনেদৰে শিকোঁ, আৰু তাৰ যিটো প্ৰচেছ, তাৰ যিটো প্ৰক্ৰিয়া আছে, সেই প্ৰক্ৰিয়াখিনি আমি আলোচনা কৰিম। তাৰ লগতে লাৰ্ণিং বা শিক্ষণৰ যিটো প্ৰকৃতি, বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ শিক্ষণ পদ্ধতি, আৰু কেনেকৈনো এই শিক্ষণ পদ্ধতিৰ ক্ৰমবিকাশ হৈছে তাক আমি কিছুমান থিয়ৰী বা ব্যাখ্যাৰ জৰিয়তে জানিব চেষ্টা কৰিম। আৰু তাৰ লগতে কগনিটিভ লাৰ্ণিং, তাৰো আমি কিছু আভাস ইয়াত দিবলৈ চেষ্টা কৰিম এই ক্লাছটোৰ জৰিয়তে। তাৰ লগতে আমি কি পদ্ধতিৰ জৰিয়তে আমি নতুন বস্তু শিকিব পাৰোঁ, ষ্ট্ৰেটেজিজ ইন লাৰ্ণিং, আমি সেইখিনি বস্তু আজি অধ্যয়ন কৰিম। আহকচোন আমি আৰম্ভ কৰোঁ প্ৰথম শ্লাইডখনৰ পৰা। যদি আপোনালোকে চাই, প্ৰথম শ্লাইডখনৰ যিটো প্ৰথম পইণ্ট মই ইয়াত মেনশ্যন কৰিছোঁ, তাত লিখা আছে কি লাৰ্ণিং প্ৰচেছ ইজ এ ক্ৰুচিয়েল টু অল অৰ্গেনিজমছ উইচ ইভেঞ্চুৱেলি ৰিজাল্টছ ইন প্ৰপাৰ এডাপ্টেশ্যন ইন ডিফাৰেণ্ট চিটুৱেশ্যন। অৰ্থাৎ এই যিটো শিক্ষণ পদ্ধতি পৃথিৱীৰ প্ৰত্যেকটো প্ৰাণী, জীৱ অনুজীৱৰ বাবে প্ৰয়োজনীয় হয়, কাৰণ এই নতুন বস্তু শিকাৰ জৰিয়তেহে এজন ব্যক্তিয়ে তেওঁলোকে নিজৰ জীৱনত বিভিন্ন ঘাত প্ৰতিঘাতৰ লগত নিজকে খাপ খুৱাই, নিজকে এডাপ্ট কৰি পেলাই জীৱনটো অতিবাহিত কৰিব পাৰে। আৰু সেইকাৰণে লাৰ্ণিং বা শিক্ষণৰ প্ৰয়োজনীয়তা আমাৰ জীৱনত খুবেই বেছি। So in this class, I will be introducing you to learning, one of the key aspects of life. তো আমি শিক্ষণৰ কথা আমি ইয়াত ব্যাখ্যা আগবঢ়াম, ডিছকাশ্যন কৰিম, জানিব চেষ্টা কৰিম কি হয়, ইয়াৰ ধৰণ কেনেকুৱা, আমাৰ জীৱনত শিক্ষণৰ প্ৰয়োজনীয়তা কি আছে, বিভিন্ন বস্তু, এই বিভিন্ন দিশসমূহ আমি আজিৰ এই ক্লাছটোত আমি সামৰি ল'ব চেষ্টা কৰিম। তাৰ লগতে লাৰ্ণিং প্ৰচেছ এণ্ড কেৰেক্টাৰিষ্টিক্স, মানে তাৰ প্ৰকৃতি আৰু তাৰ ধৰণ, তাৰ বিষয়েও আমি অলপমান আভাস দিবলৈ ইয়াত যত্ন কৰিম। আপোনালোকে যদি চাই, ছেকেণ্ড যিখন আমি শ্লাইড মই ইয়াত প্ৰস্তুত কৰিছোঁ, ইয়াত লিখা আছে কি নেচাৰ অফ লাৰ্ণিং, মানে লাৰ্ণিঙৰ ধৰণ কি, লাৰ্ণিং হয়নো কি। চ' আমি তাক যদি জানিব বিচাৰোঁ, তো প্ৰথম যিটো পইণ্ট আছে তাতে লিখা আছে কি লাৰ্ণিং ইজ এ কি ফেক্টৰ ইনভলভড ইন বিহেভিয়াৰেল চেঞ্জ অফ এন অৰ্গেনিজম। থ্ৰু লাৰ্ণিং উই কেন চেঞ্জ ইন আৱাৰ বিহেভিয়াৰ। অৰ্থাৎ মানে লাৰ্ণিঙৰ জৰিয়তে বা শিক্ষণৰ জৰিয়তে এজন ব্যক্তিয়ে নিজৰ জীৱনত কিছুমান ব্যৱহাৰত কিছুমান পৰিৱৰ্তন আনিব পাৰে, আৰু সেই পৰিৱৰ্তনটোকে আমি শিক্ষণ বুলি কোৱা হয়। মানে যেতিয়া আমি জন্মগ্ৰহণ কৰিছিলোঁ, সেই জন্মগ্ৰহণ কৰাৰ পৰা আজিৰ পৰ্যায়লৈকে আমি বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ কৌশল শিকিছোঁ, বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ নতুন বস্তু আয়ত্ত কৰিছোঁ, নতুন জ্ঞান আয়ত্ত কৰিছোঁ, আৰু এই জ্ঞানসমূহ বা এই কৌশলসমূহে আমাক জীৱনত আগবাঢ়ি যাবলৈ সহায় কৰিছে। চ' এই যিবোৰ কৌশল, এই যিবোৰ জ্ঞান, এইবোৰ আহৰণ কৰাৰ যিটো প্ৰক্ৰিয়া হয়, এই প্ৰক্ৰিয়াটোকে কোৱা হয় শিক্ষণ বা লাৰ্ণিং। তো থ্ৰু লাৰ্ণিং উই কেন চেঞ্জ ইন আৱাৰ বিহেভিয়াৰ। এই শিক্ষণৰ জৰিয়তেও আমি আমাৰ ব্যৱহাৰত পৰিৱৰ্তন আনিব পাৰোঁ। এটা উদাহৰণস্বৰূপে, আমি যেতিয়া জন্মগ্ৰহণ কৰিছিলোঁ, আমি যেতিয়া সৰু আছিলোঁ, তেতিয়া আমি চাইকেল চলাব শিকিছিলোঁ, হয়নে? কিন্তু লাহে লাহে যেতিয়া আমি ডাঙৰ হৈ আহিছোঁ, সেই আমি সৰু অৱস্থাত বা আমাৰ শৈশৱ অৱস্থাত আমি গাড়ীখন দেখিছিলোঁ হয়, কিন্তু সেই গাড়ীখন আমাৰ চলাব পৰাৰ সেই সুবিধাটো আমাৰ ওচৰত নাছিলে বা সেই কৌশলটো নাছিলে। আৰু লাহে লাহে যেতিয়া আমি ডাঙৰ হৈ আহিলোঁ, তো আমি প্ৰথম চাইকেল চলাব শিকিলোঁ, চাইকেলৰ পৰা লাহে লাহে আমি স্কুটি চলাব শিকিলোঁ, স্কুটিৰ পৰা আমি লাহে লাহে বাইক চলাব শিকিলোঁ, আৰু তাৰপিছত লাহে লাহে আমি এতিয়া বিভিন্ন মানুহে গাড়ী চলাবও পাৰে। কিন্তু জন্মৰ সময়ৰ পৰাই বা শৈশৱ কালৰ পৰাই কোনোবা এজন ব্যক্তিয়ে যে এই যিটো গাড়ী চলোৱাৰ কৌশল বা সেই কৌশলটো আহৰণ কৰা নাই, প্ৰেক্টিচৰ জৰিয়তে, প্ৰয়াসৰ জৰিয়তে সেই কৌশলটো আহৰণ কৰিছে, আৰু সেই কৌশলটো আহৰণ কৰাৰ পিছত সেই কৌশলটোৱে ব্যক্তিজনৰ জীৱনত এটা পৰিৱৰ্তন আনিছে, ব্যৱহাৰ এটা পৰিৱৰ্তন আনিছে। পৰিৱৰ্তনটো কেনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ, কালি যদি ঘপককৈ কিবা প্ৰয়োজনীয়তা হয় আৰু সেই মানুহজনে সেই গাড়ীখন চলাই পেলাই সেই প্ৰয়োজনীয়তা বা সেই কিবা এটা যদি ইমাৰ্জেঞ্চি তেওঁলোকে ফেচ কৰিব পাৰে, সেই ইমাৰ্জেঞ্চিটোৰ লগত খাপ খুৱাই চলিবৰ কাৰণে বা যি গাড়ীখনৰ যিটো প্ৰয়োজনীয়তা আছে, সেইভাৱে গাড়ীখনৰ ভাল উপযোগিতা বা বা গাড়ীখনৰ ভাল উপযুক্তভাৱে গাড়ীখনৰ ব্যৱহাৰ তেওঁলোকে কৰিব পাৰে। ইয়াক কোৱা হয় লাৰ্ণিং। বিকজ চাওক, গাড়ীখনকে তেওঁ যেতিয়া চলাব পৰা হৈ গ'ল বা চলাব শিকিলে, তো সেই কৌশলটো তেওঁ যেতিয়াই প্ৰয়োজন হয় তেতিয়াই তেওঁ ব্যৱহাৰ কৰিব পাৰিব। মানে কি হ'ল, মানুহজনৰ ব্যৱহাৰত এটা পৰিৱৰ্তন আহিছে নাই, উইচ ইজ পাৰ্মানেণ্ট ইন নেচাৰ। চ' সেইকাৰণে আপুনি যদি সেকেন্ড পইণ্টটো চাই তাত লিখা আছে এজন ব্যক্তিৰ নাম বেৰন বেৰনে 2001 চনত এই লাৰ্নিং বা শিক্ষণৰ এটা ব্যাখ্যা বা ডেফিনেশ্যন আগবঢ়াইছিলে তেওঁ কৈছিলে কি ইট ইজ আ ৰিলেটিভলি পাৰ্মানেণ্ট চেঞ্জ ইন বিহেভিয়াৰ ৰিজাল্টিং ফ্ৰম এক্সপিৰিয়েঞ্চ মানে স্থায়ী পৰিৱৰ্তন ৰিলেটিভলি পাৰ্মানেণ্ট চেঞ্জ এটা ব্যৱহাৰত এটা স্থায়ী পৰিৱৰ্তন ঘটে তাৰ জৰিয়তে কিছুমান এক্সপিৰিয়েঞ্চ বা অনুভৱৰ জৰিয়তে আৰু সেই অনুভৱৰ জৰিয়তে যিটো ব্যক্তিৰ ব্যৱহাৰত স্থায়ী পৰিৱৰ্তন ঘটে সেই তাকেই তেওঁৰ ভাষাত কৈছিলে ইয়াকে লাৰ্নিং বা শিক্ষণ বুলি কোৱা হয় চ' ইট ইজ আ ৰিলেটিভলি পাৰ্মানেণ্ট চেঞ্জ ইন আ বিহেভিয়াৰ ৰিজাল্টিং ফ্ৰম এক্সপিৰিয়েঞ্চ চ' আমি যদি এই ব্যাখ্যাটোক যদি আমি ধ্যান দি চাওঁ আমি এই ব্যাখ্যাটোক মুঠ 3টা ভাগত ভাগ কৰিব পাৰোঁ আৰু এই 3টা যি ভাগ আছে সেই ভাগসমূহ মই ফাৰ্ষ্ট ছেকেণ্ড আৰু থাৰ্ড চ' মই তাক ভাঙি পেলাই 3টা বিভিন্ন ব্যাখ্যা আগবঢ়াইছোঁ তো প্ৰথম ব্যাখ্যাটো যদি আপুনি চায় তাত লিখা আছে ব্যাখ্যাটোত কি ইট ইজ ৰিলেটিভলি পাৰ্মানেণ্ট চেঞ্জ চ' ৰিলেটিভলি পাৰ্মানেণ্ট চেঞ্জ মানে তুলনামূলকভাৱে এক স্থায়ী পৰিৱৰ্তন So it is important to mention here is that the temporary change in behavior cannot be termed as learning. মানে আমি কিবা এটা বস্তু শিকিছো সেই বস্তুটো শিকাৰ পিছত বিভিন্ন সময়ত যদি আমি বস্তুটো প্ৰেক্টিছ নকৰোঁ বা অনুশীলন নকৰাৰ ফলত আমি সেই কৌশলটো বা সেই ব্যৱহাৰটো যদি আমি পাহৰি যাওঁ সেই তাক আমি কেতিয়াও শিক্ষণ বা লাৰ্নিং বুলি ক'ব নোৱাৰোঁ মানে আমি কিবা এটা বস্তু যদি শিকিলো মানে আমি গাড়ী চলাব পৰা হৈছো বা আমি গাড়ী চলাব পাৰোঁ আজিৰ পৰা আমি 5 বছৰ আমি গাড়ী চলোৱা নাই কিন্তু 6 নম্বৰ বছৰত ভৰি দিওঁতে যদি আমাৰ কেতিয়াবা প্ৰয়োজনীয়তা আহি পৰে কি আমি গাড়ীখন চলাব লাগে সেই সময়ত যদি আমি ভালকে গাড়ীখন চলাব পাৰোঁ তেতিয়াহে আমি তাৰ সেই কৌশলটোক লাৰ্নিং বুলি ক'ব পাৰিম বা শিক্ষণ বুলি ক'ব পাৰিম কাৰণ 5 বছৰ নচলোৱাৰ সত্ত্বেও আমি 6 নম্বৰ বছৰত যেতিয়া ভৰি দিছোঁ আৰু গাড়ীখন চলাব লগাৰ এটা প্ৰয়োজনীয়তা আহি পৰিছে আমি সেই গাড়ীখন ভালকে চলাব পাৰিছোঁ মানে কি হৈছে আমাৰ যিটো ব্যৱহাৰ আছিলে সেই ব্যৱহাৰ এটা স্থায়ী পৰিৱৰ্তন হৈছে পৰিৱৰ্তনটো কি আমি আগতে গাড়ী চলাব নাজানিছিলোঁ মই শিকিলোঁ তাৰপিছত আজি মই গাড়ী চলাব পাৰোঁ So it should be a permanent change মানে এটা স্থায়ী পৰিৱৰ্তন আমাৰ ব্যৱহাৰত হ'ব লাগিব আৰু যদি হয় তেতিয়াহে আমি সেই তাক আমি লাৰ্নিং বা শিক্ষণ বুলি গণ্য কৰিব পাৰিম যদি আমি সেই কৌশলটো পাহৰি যাওঁ বা সেই ব্যৱহাৰটো পাহৰি যাওঁ পিছৰ ফালে প্ৰদৰ্শিত কৰিবৰ কাৰণে তেতিয়া আমি তাক কেতিয়াও শিক্ষণ বা লাৰ্নিং বুলি অভিহিত কৰিব নোৱাৰোঁ সেই ধৰণে যদি সেকেন্ড পইণ্টটো আপোনালোকে চাই ইয়াত কোৱা হৈছে কি পাৰ্মানেণ্ট চেঞ্জ ডিউ টু এজিং অৰ মেচুৰেশ্যন as a growth or develop will not be considered as learning অৰ্থাৎ যেতিয়া আমি শৈশৱৰ পৰা কৈশোৰৰ পৰা বয়স্ক আৰু বয়স্কৰ পৰা প্ৰাপ্তবয়স্কৰ অৱস্থালৈ আমি আহোঁ সেই সময়ত বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ আমাৰ বয়সটো বাঢ়ি অহাৰ কাৰণে বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ মানসিক বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ সামাজিক বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ দৈহিক পৰিৱৰ্তন ঘটে সেই পৰিৱৰ্তনসমূহ পাৰ্মানেণ্ট চেঞ্জ হোৱাৰ স্বত্তেও বা স্থায়ী পৰিৱৰ্তন হোৱাৰ স্বত্তেও আমি তাক শিক্ষণ বুলি ক'ব নোৱাৰোঁ কাৰণ সেইখিনি হয় কাৰণ কি আমাৰ বয়সৰ বৃদ্ধি হৈছে বয়সৰ বৃদ্ধি হোৱাৰ লগে লগে বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ হৰমনেল চেঞ্জ আহে বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ ফিজিকেল চেঞ্জ আহে দৈহিক পৰিৱৰ্তন আহে সেই পৰিৱৰ্তনৰ কাৰণে হৈছে আমি তাক কেতিয়াও আমি গ্ৰ' কৰি আছোঁ আমি বৃদ্ধি পাই আছোঁ তাক আমি কেতিয়াও লাৰ্নিং বুলি ক'ব নোৱাৰোঁ চ' পাৰ্মানেণ্ট চেঞ্জ তেতিয়া হ'ব যেতিয়া আমাৰ ব্যৱহাৰত কিবা এটা স্থায়ী পৰিৱৰ্তন ঘটিব ঠিক আছে শেষ যদি পইণ্টটো চাই থাৰ্ড হিয়াৰ এক্সপিৰিয়েঞ্চ ডাজ নট মিন আৱাৰ অ'ন এক্সপিৰিয়েঞ্চেছ অনলি মানে মই ব্যক্তিগতভাৱে কিবা যদি মোৰ অনুভৱ আছে সেই অনুভৱ আমি লাৰ্নিং বুলি ক'ব নোৱাৰোঁ ই এটা কালেক্টিভ এপ্ৰ'চ ইয়াত এক্সপিৰিয়েঞ্চ বা অনুভৱৰ শব্দটো কালেক্টিভলি বা সমজুৱাভাৱে ক'ব বিচাৰিছে মানে প্ৰত্যেকজন ব্যক্তিয়ে যেতিয়া উদাহৰণস্বৰূপে গাড়ীখন শিকিব প্ৰথম অৱস্থাত সেই ব্যক্তিজন এক্সপাৰ্ট নহয় তেওঁ গাড়ীখনৰ ষ্টেৰিংটো ধৰিব নাজানে তেওঁ বুজিও নাপায় কি গাড়ীখনৰ ABC মানে এক্সিলেটাৰ ব্ৰেক আৰু ক্লাচ ক'ত আছে তেওঁ একো নাজানে চ' প্ৰত্যেকজন ব্যক্তি যিজনে প্ৰথমবাৰ গাড়ীখন শিকিব আহিছে প্ৰত্যেকজন ব্যক্তিৰ অনুভৱটো তেনেকুৱাই হ'ব আৰু লাহে লাহে যেতিয়া তেওঁলোকে শিকাৰ পিছত তেওঁলোকে যদি গাড়ীখন চলাব পাৰিব বা সক্ষম হ'ব চলাব পাৰিবৰ কাৰণে তেতিয়া প্ৰত্যেকজন ব্যক্তিৰ ব্যৱহাৰত এটা সমান পৰিৱৰ্তন আহিব আৰু সেই পৰিৱৰ্তনটো আহিব কিয় এটা এক্সপিৰিয়েঞ্চ বা অনুভৱৰ কাৰণে কেনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ অনুভৱ গাড়ীখন চলোৱাৰ যিটো অনুভৱ গাড়ীখন শিকাৰ যিটো অনুভৱ সেই অনুভৱৰ জৰিয়তে যিটো স্থায়ী পৰিৱৰ্তন প্ৰত্যেকজন ব্যক্তিৰ জীৱনত আহিব তাকে কোৱা হয় শিক্ষণ সেইবাবে ইয়াত যিটো এক্সপিৰিয়েঞ্চ শব্দৰ ব্যৱহাৰ কৰে যে এইটো পাৰ্চনেল এক্সপিৰিয়েঞ্চ বা ব্যক্তিগত অনুভৱৰ কথা কোৱা নাই এইটো এটা সমজুৱা অনুভৱ বা প্ৰত্যেকজন ব্যক্তিৰ এক কালেক্টিভ এক্সপিৰিয়েঞ্চৰ কথা ইয়াত এক্সপ্লেইন কৰা হৈছে চ' এইটো হৈছে নেচাৰ বা প্ৰকৃতি শিক্ষা বা শিক্ষণ বা লাৰ্নিঙৰ প্ৰকৃতি হয় এইটো চ' এইটো that's why going by the definition আমি যদি ব্যাখ্যাৰ জৰিয়তে যাওঁ লাৰ্নিং ইজ নাথিং ইটছ এ relatively permanent chain that occur in our behavior resulting from experience বেৰানৰ মতে ঠিক আছে তাৰ লগতে আপোনালোকে যদি চাই কেৱল লাৰ্নিং এনেধৰণে নতুন বস্তু শিকা নহয় ইয়াত এজন ব্যক্তিৰ নাম মই ইয়াত দেখুৱাইছো তেওঁৰ নাম হৈছে এলবাৰ্ট বেণ্ডুৰা তেওঁ কৈছিলে লাৰ্নিং can also occur through direct experiences as well as vicarious that is observing event in participating in thing মানে আমি কেতিয়াবা তেওঁ কৈছিলে কি আমি নতুন বস্তু নতুন ব্যৱহাৰ নতুন কৌশল কেৱল আমি ডাইৰেক্টলি এক্সপেৰিয়েন্স কৰিব প্ৰত্যক্ষভাৱে কামটো কৰি কেতিয়াবা নিশিকিব পাৰো কেতিয়াবা আমি লোকক অবজাৰ্ভ কৰিবলৈ লোকৰ ব্যৱহাৰ লোকৰ আভাষা ভাৱ ভংগিমা তেওঁলোকৰ শৈলী সেইসমূহ আমি তেওঁলোকৰ অবজাৰ্ভ কৰিবা মন দি পেলাই বুজিব চেষ্টা কৰোঁ আৰু বুজাৰ পিছত কেতিয়াবা আমি যদি এনে ভাবো কি তেওঁলোকে যি ব্যৱহাৰ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিছে এইটো ভাল ব্যৱহাৰ বা বেয়া ব্যৱহাৰ যিয়ে নহওক কিয় আমি যদি সেই ব্যৱহাৰটো আত্মসাৎ কৰিবলৈ নিজৰ জীৱনত আমি তাক এপ্লাই বা আমি যোগ দিব বিচাৰো তেতিয়া সেই ধৰণেও আমি নতুন শিক্ষা বা নতুন ব্যৱহাৰ বা নতুন লাৰ্নিং আমি কৰিব পাৰো এটো এলবাৰ্ট বেণ্ডুৰাই কৈছিলে সো দ্যাটস ওয়াই আপোনালোকে সেইভাবে যদি আপোনালোকে সেকেন্ড অপশনটো চাই লাৰ্নিং ইজ এন ইম্পৰ্টেন্ট প্ৰসেস ইন হিউম্যান বিহেভিয়াৰ জন্মৰ পৰা বৰ্তমানলৈকে আৰু বৰ্তমানৰ পৰা আমি যেতিয়ালৈকে জীয়াই থাকিম মানে আমাৰ ভৱিষ্যতলৈকে এই গোটেই জীৱনৰ এই ক্ৰম বিকাশত এই জীৱনৰ এই যে সাস্টেইনিং লাইফ পিৰিয়ড আমাৰ আছে জীৱনৰ ক্ৰম আছে এই ক্ৰমটোত আমি জীয়াই থাকিবলৈ বা সাৰ্ভাইভ কৰিবলৈ বা নিজকে পৰিস্থিতি বা পৰিবেশৰ লগত খাপ খুৱাই চলিবৰ কাৰণে এই লাৰ্নিং প্ৰসেস বা লাৰ্নিং বা শিক্ষণ প্ৰক্ৰিয়াৰ প্ৰয়োজনীয়তা অতিকৈ বেছি আৰু সেয়েহে এজন ব্যক্তিয়ে বৰ্তমানৰ পৰা ভৱিষ্যতলৈ যাবলৈ আৰু অতীতৰ পৰা বৰ্তমানলৈকে আহিবলৈকো তেওঁলোকে সেই প্ৰক্ৰিয়াত বা সেই পথত বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ জ্ঞান আয়ত্ত কৰিছে সেই জ্ঞানে তেওঁলোকক বৰ্তমান পৰিস্থিতিৰ লগত খাপ খাই চলিবলৈ সহায় কৰিছে সো সেই কাৰণে আমাৰ জীৱনত লাৰ্নিং বা শিক্ষণৰ প্ৰয়োজনীয়তা বহুতেই বেছি ঠিক আছে লাষ্ট পইণ্ট ইয়াত লিখা আছে কি লাৰ্নিং মে বি গুড as well as bad and learning can be of many types so মানে এটা ভাল ব্যৱহাৰ বা এটা বেয়া ব্যৱহাৰ সেই ভাল বা বেয়া ব্যৱহাৰক চিহ্নিত কৰাৰ দায়িত্বটো সমাজৰ হয় উদাহৰণ স্বৰূপে কোনোবাই এখন সমাজত যদি আছে আমি যদি আজিৰ পৰা 300-400 বছৰ আগৰ এটা উদাহৰণ লৈছো আগৰ সময়ত খুব যুদ্ধ হৈছিল সো যুদ্ধত জয়ী হ'বলৈ এজন সেনানীয়ে বা এজন ব্যক্তিয়ে অন্য এজন সেনাৰ ব্যক্তিক হত্যা কৰিবই লাগিব কাৰণ যদি হত্যা নকৰে তেতিয়াহলে অন্য সেনাৰ ব্যক্তিজনে তেওঁক হত্যা কৰিব পাৰে কিন্তু সেই পৰিস্থিতিটো যদি আজি আমি চাওঁ আজি যদি আমি কাৰবাক আমাৰ ব্যৱহাৰৰ জৰিয়তে বা আমাৰ কাৰ্যৰ জৰিয়তে আমি কাৰবাক যদি হত্যা কৰো তেনে সেই হত্যাটো আইনগতভাৱে উচিত নহব আৰু আমি তাৰ কাৰণে কিছুমান শাস্তি আমি পাম কিন্তু সেই একেই ব্যৱহাৰ মানে কাৰবাক হত্যা কৰাৰ যিটো প্ৰৱণতা সেই প্ৰৱণতা যদি 300 বছৰ আগত যদি হৈছিল তেতিয়া তাৰ কাৰণে কোনো আইনগত বা বিধিগত শাস্তিমূলক ব্যৱস্থা ব্যক্তিজনৰ প্ৰতি নাছিলে মানে লাৰ্নিং ইজ বেসিক্যালি আ বিহেভিয়াৰ মানে এটা ব্যৱহাৰ এটা কৌশল এটা ব্যৱহাৰ তেওঁ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিছে সেই ব্যৱহাৰটো ভাল হয় নে বেয়া হয় সেটো ডিপেন্ড কৰিব সমাজে সেই ব্যৱহাৰটো কেনেধৰণে পৰ্যবেক্ষণ কৰে উদাহৰণ স্বৰূপে আমাৰ অসমত যদি কোনোবা এজন ব্যক্তিক মাৰি পেলোৱা যদি এটা বেয়া ব্যৱহাৰ হিচাপে আমাৰ সমাজে অভিহিত কৰে সেই একেই ব্যৱহাৰটো কোনোবা যদি আন্দামান নিকোবৰত থকা জাৰৱাৰ নিচিনা কোনোবা ট্ৰাইব বা কোনোবা জনজাতীয় গোটে নিজৰ জীৱন অতিবাহিত কৰিবৰ কাৰণে যদি কাৰোবাক হত্যা কৰে তেওঁলোকে সেই ব্যৱহাৰটো কেতিয়াও বেয়া বুলি গণ্য নকৰে উদাহৰণ স্বৰূপে আমি আৰু এটা যদি কওঁ আমাৰ ইয়াত আমি মাংস খাওঁ বা আমি মাছ খাওঁ কাৰণ আমাৰ পৰিবেশৰ প্ৰয়োজনীয়তা হিচাপে আমাৰ খাদ্যাভ্যাসৰ পৰিৱৰ্তন হৈছে সো দ্যাট ইজ এ বিহেভিয়াৰ দ্যাট উই আৰ শোয়িং এটা ব্যৱহাৰ আমি প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিছো ইন অৰ্ডাৰ টু এডপ্ট আৱাৰসেল্ফ উইথ দা এক্সিষ্টিং এনভায়ৰনমেন্ট বৰ্তমানৰ পৰিবেশৰ লগত নিজকে খাপ খোৱাবৰ কাৰণে আমাৰ খাদ্যাভ্যাস বা খাদ্য বুলি এনেকুৱা হয় কিন্তু সেই খাদ্যাভ্যাস কিন্তু আমি যদি ৰাজস্থানৰ নিচিনা জায়গাত যাওঁ বা গুজৰাটৰ নিচিনা জায়গাত যাওঁ আপোনালোকে দেখিব তাত তেওঁলোকে কোনো মাংসাহাৰী ভোজনৰ ভক্ষণ তেওঁলোকে পৰাভক্ষণ নকৰে তেওঁলোক শুদ্ধ আমি যদি কওঁ ভেজিটেৰিয়ান বা শাকাহাৰী বুলি হিন্দীত কওঁ আমি হয় মানে কি হৈছে সেইটো এটা ব্যৱহাৰ তেওঁলোকে প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিছে ভাল হয় নে বেয়া হয় সেইটো পিছৰ কথা সেয়ে লাৰ্নিং মে বি গুড অৰ বেড এটো সমাজে তাৰ ডিসিশন ল'ব বা সিদ্ধান্ত ল'ব ভাল হয় নে বেয়া হয় কিন্তু যি নতুন ব্যৱহাৰ তেওঁ শিকিছে ভাল হয় নে বেয়া হয় পিছৰ কথা কিন্তু যিটো ব্যৱহাৰ শিকিছে নতুন সেই ব্যৱহাৰটো এটা প্ৰত্যক্ষ এটা পৰিৱৰ্তন আনিছে, এটা পাৰ্মানেণ্ট চেঞ্জ আনিছে, স্থায়ী পৰিৱৰ্তন আনিছে, তাকে কোৱা হয় লাৰ্ণিং বুলি। চ' এইটো হৈছে শিক্ষণ বা লাৰ্ণিঙৰ নেচাৰ বা প্ৰকৃতি। চ' এইখন শ্লাইড যদি আপোনালোকে মন কৰে, আপোনালোকে দেখিব ইয়াত মই বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ শিক্ষণৰ ধৰণ বা টাইপছ অফ লাৰ্ণিঙৰ কথা আমি এক্সপিৰিয়েঞ্চ কৰি মই ইয়াত মেনশ্যন কৰিছোঁ, বা জন্মৰ পৰা শৈশৱৰ পৰা কৈশোৰলৈকে আৰু কৈশোৰৰ পৰা আমাৰ আহিব লগা সময়খিনিলৈকে এই বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ লাৰ্ণিং আমি শিকিছোঁ। উদাহৰণস্বৰূপে যিটো প্ৰথম লাৰ্ণিং ইয়াত মই মেনশ্যন কৰিছোঁ, দেখুৱাইছোঁ, তাক কোৱা হয় মটৰ লাৰ্ণিং। মটৰ লাৰ্ণিং বেচিকেলি acquiring of a new motor skill or functioning is a result of practice and experiences. Okay, মানে যেতিয়া এজন শিশুৰ জন্ম হয়, সেই শিশুজনে প্ৰথম কেতিয়াও নিজৰ হাত ভৰি ভালকে চলাব নাজানে। তেওঁ হাতখন চলাব জানে হয়, ভালকে ভৰিখন চলাব জানে হয়, কিন্তু তেওঁ খোজ কাঢ়িব নাজানে, তেওঁ দৌৰিব নাজানে। তো লাহে লাহে কি হয়, তেওঁলোকক দেখে, তেওঁলোকে নতুন বস্তু, নতুন ব্যৱহাৰ আহৰণ কৰে। আহৰণ কৰাৰ পিছত আমি চাওঁ, প্ৰথম তেওঁলোকে লাহে নিজৰ ভৰিৰ ওপৰত থিয় দিব চেষ্টা কৰে, পৰি যায়, আকৌ থিয় দি আকৌ পৰি যায়। তেনেকে তেওঁলোকে লাহে থিয় দিব শিকে, আৰু থিয় দিয়াৰ লগে লগে তেওঁলোকে দৌৰিব পাৰিব তেনেকুৱা নহয়। তাৰপিছত তেওঁলোকে এখোজ দুখোজকে আমি মন কৰিছোঁ আমাৰ ঘৰত, কি এখোজ দুখোজ শিশুটিয়ে এখোজ দুখোজকে তেওঁ আগুৱাই যাব চেষ্টা কৰে, আৰু সন্মুখত মাক বা দেউতাক বা কোনোবা ৰখি থাকে, যাতে যদি পৰি যায় আমি তেওঁক ধৰি ল'ব পাৰোঁ। চ' সেই এখোজ দুখোজকে শিকি তেওঁ লাহে লাহে খোজকাঢ়িব আৰম্ভ কৰে। খোজকাঢ়িব আৰম্ভ কৰিছে বা পাৰিছে, লগে লগে তেওঁ দৌৰিব পাৰিছে তেনে নহয়। লাহে লাহে তেওঁ খোজকঢ়াৰ বাদেও তেওঁৰ স্পীডটো বাঢ়ি যায়, তেওঁৰ বেগটো বাঢ়ি যায়, আৰু বেগটো বাঢ়ি যোৱাৰ লগে লগে লাহে তেওঁ দৌৰিব আৰম্ভ কৰে। দৌৰিব আৰম্ভ কৰাৰ লগে লগে এনেকুৱা নহয় যে শিশুটোৱে গাড়ীখন চলাব পাৰিব বা চাইকেলখন চলাব পাৰিব। তেওঁ আকৌ লাহে আৰম্ভ কৰে। তেওঁ এবাৰমান পৰিব চাইকেলৰ পৰা, ভালকে চলাব নোৱাৰিব, ভৰিখন পেডেললৈকে নাযাব, তাৰপিছত লাহে তেওঁ পেডেল মাৰিব শিকিব। চ' কি হৈছে, দিছ অল থিংছ আৰ কল্ড মটৰ লাৰ্ণিং। ঠিক আছে, চ' এইটো এটা লাৰ্ণিং যিটো আমি শিকোঁ। বৰ্তমান পৰিস্থিতিত এনেকুৱা মানুহ আছে যোনে চাইকেল চলাব জানে, স্কুটি চলাব জানে, কিন্তু গাড়ী চলাব নাজানে। ত' তেওঁলোকে লাহে শিকে, শিকি লাহে এক্সপাৰ্ট হৈ যায়। ঠিক সেইদৰে গাড়ী চলাব জানে কিন্তু বাইক চলাব নাজানে। তেওঁ আকৌ বাইকখন জিৰ'ৰ পৰা শিকিব আৰম্ভ কৰে, অলপমান পৰিব লাগিব, ষ্টাৰ্টটো দিওঁতে 1 নম্বৰ গিয়াৰ দি আগুৱাই যাওঁতে ঘপককে বাইকখন বন্ধ হৈ যাব পাৰে। তেওঁ লাহে শিকাৰ পিছত সেই ব্যৱহাৰটো আয়ত্ব কৰাৰ পিছত তেওঁ লাহে এক্সপাৰ্ট হয়, আৰু ইয়াক কোৱা হয় মটৰ লাৰ্ণিং। ঠিক সেইদৰে যিটো ছেকেণ্ড টাইপৰ লাৰ্ণিং আমাৰ জীৱনত আমি দেখোঁ, তাক কোৱা হয় ভাৰ্বেল লাৰ্ণিং। মানে ইট ইনভলভছ একুৱায়াৰিং স্কিল টু কমিউনিকেট উইথ আদাৰ্ছ ইউজিং ৱৰ্ড, চাউণ্ডছ আৰু পিকচাৰ, মানে শব্দ, তাৰপিছত কিছুমান ছবিৰ জৰিয়তে যেতিয়া আমি ইজনে সিজনৰ লগত কিছুমান সংযোগ স্থাপন কৰোঁ, তাক কোৱা হয় ভাৰ্বেল লাৰ্ণিং। সেই শিশুটি যেতিয়া সৰু আছিলে, তেওঁ কথা ক'ব নাজানিছিলে, লাহে তেওঁ অলপ দুই এটা শব্দ ক'ব শিকিছে। তাৰপিছত এই শব্দসমূহক যোগ কৰি এটা ডাঙৰ শব্দ কৈছে। সেই ডাঙৰ শব্দবোৰক তেওঁ লাহে যোগ কৰি পেলাই তেওঁ এটা বাক্য ক'ব চেষ্টা কৰিছে। এতিয়া শব্দখিনি শিকিছে, প্ৰথম তেওঁ শিকিছে কি তেওঁ মাৰ পিছত লাহে আৰু কিবা এটা শব্দ শিকিছে। তাৰপিছত লাহে তেওঁলোকে সেই শব্দটোক এটা বাক্যলৈ পৰিৱৰ্তন কৰিছে, আৰু তাৰপিছত তেওঁলোকে অন্য ব্যক্তিৰ লগত বা সমাজৰ লগত এটা সংযোগ স্থাপন কৰিছে। নতুন বস্তু শিকিছে নে নাই, ব্যৱহাৰত পৰিৱৰ্তন হৈ আছে নে নাই। চ' এই ধৰণৰ সেই ব্যৱহাৰত যিটো পৰিৱৰ্তন হৈ আছে, তাক কোৱা হয় ভাৰ্বেল লাৰ্ণিং। লাহে তেওঁলোকে গম পাইছে কি কুকুৰটো দেখিবলৈ কেনেকুৱা, বাঘটো দেখিবলৈ কেনেকুৱা, সিংহটো দেখিবলৈ কেনেকুৱা, হাতীটো দেখিবলৈ কেনেকুৱা। তো আমি যদি এখন ফটো দেখুৱাই দিওঁ, তেওঁলোকে ক'ব পাৰিব কি এইটো বাঘ হয় আৰু এইটো কুকুৰ হয়। তো সেই পিকচাৰৰ জৰিয়তে, যেনেকে এটা উদাহৰণস্বৰূপে আমি উদাহৰণ যদি মই দিওঁ, সৰু ল'ৰা এজন আছে, তেওঁ ঘপককে খোজকাঢ়ি গৈ পেলাই এটা জলকীয়াৰ টুকুৰা এটা কামুৰি দিয়াৰ লগে লগে তেওঁ জ্বলা পোৱাৰ কাৰণে তেওঁ কান্দিছে। নেক্সট টাইম আকৌ যদি আমি সেই জলকীয়াটো তেওঁক দেখুৱাওঁ, তেওঁ এটা শব্দৰ জৰিয়তে সেই জলকীয়াৰ যিটো জ্বলা, সেই যিটো টেষ্ট আছে, সেই টেষ্টটোক তেওঁ ব্যাখ্যা কৰিব চেষ্টা কৰিব, আৰু কেনেকে কৰে আমি সকলোৱে জানো। ইয়াক কোৱা হয় ভাৰ্বেল লাৰ্ণিং। তাৰপিছত থাৰ্ডটো হয় কনচেপ্ট লাৰ্ণিং। যেতিয়া সেই সৰু ল'ৰাটো লাহে ডাঙৰ হ'ব আৰম্ভ কৰে, স্কুলত যাব আৰম্ভ কৰে, চ' তেতিয়া সেই পৰিস্থিতিত এই কনচেপ্ট লাৰ্ণিংটো তেওঁলোকৰ মগজুত বৃদ্ধি পায়। ইজ এ টাইপ অফ লাৰ্ণিং ইন উইচ উই লাৰ্ণ এণ্ড টু ক্লাছিফাই ষ্টিমুলি বেছড অন ইটছ কেৰেক্টাৰিষ্টিক্স এণ্ড ফিচাৰ। মানে কোনোবা এটা বস্তুৰ প্ৰকৃতি আৰু তেওঁৰ ফিচাৰ বা প্ৰণালী বা ধৰণৰ বেচিছত আমি যেতিয়া তাক বুজি পাওঁ, এই বস্তুটো হয় কি। মানে চাৰিটা ঠেং আৰু চাৰিটা ঠেং এডাল নেজ আৰু এটা দেখিবলৈ এটা বিশেষ ধৰণ চ' দেখাৰ লগে লগে ল'ৰা ছোৱালীয়ে কৈ দিয়ে এইটো ক'লা কুকুৰ এইটো বগা কুকুৰ এবিলিটি টু আইডেণ্টিফাই আৰু সি ভুকি আছে চ' এবিলিটি টু আইডেণ্টিফাই এ বাৰ্কিং 4-legged এনিমেল উইথ এ টেইল এজ এ ডগ সেই যিটো কনচেপ্ট সেই যিটো ধাৰণা যিটো মস্তিষ্কত তেওঁলোকৰ মস্তিষ্ক যিটো পৰিৱৰ্তন আহে সেই যিটো পিকচাৰ আহে যিটো ছবি মনত আহে কি যিটো প্ৰাণীয়ে ভুকি আছে যাৰ চাৰিখন ঠেং আছে আৰু এটা নেজ আছে তাক কোৱা হয় কুকুৰ চ' কুকুৰৰো আমি জানো কি বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ প্ৰজাতি আছে যেনেকে লেব্ৰাডৰ আছে হাস্কি আছে ডাবৰমেন আছে সকলো কুকুৰ বা দেখিবলৈ বেলেগ কিন্তু সেই ল'ৰাটোক সেই সৰু স্কুল যোৱা ল'ৰাটোক যদি আমি তিনিওখন ফটো একেলগে দেখুৱাওঁ ভিডিঅ'তে দেখাওঁ তিনিওখন ফটো চাই তেওঁ ক'ব পাৰিব কি হয় এই তিনিওটা কুকুৰ হয় কিন্তু আমি জানো কি সেই কুকুৰৰ ধৰণকেইটা বেলেগ বেলেগ তৎসত্ত্বেও তেওঁ ক'ব কি তিনিওটাই কুকুৰ হয় ইয়াক কোৱা হয় কনচেপ্ট লাৰ্ণিং উই হেভ লাৰ্ণ ডেট দ্য ৱৰ্ড ডগ ৰেফাৰ টু এ পাৰ্টিকুলাৰ টাইপ অফ ডেছক্ৰাইব এনিমেল তেওঁ মনত থাকি যায় কি যেতিয়া আমি কুকুৰ বুলি কওঁ তেওঁ মনত থাকি যায় কুকুৰ হ'লে চাৰিখন ভৰি থাকিব লাগিব লগতে এটা লেজ থাকিব লাগিব আৰু তাৰ লগতে সেই প্ৰাণীটোৱে ভুকিব লাগিব এটা বিশেষ ধৰণৰ শব্দ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিব লাগিব বা শব্দ মানে শব্দ কৰিব লাগিব তাক আমি কুকুৰ বুলি কওঁ সেই যিটো কনচেপ্ট that concept will always be permanent in his mind ইয়াক কোৱা হয় কনচেপ্ট লাৰ্ণিং ঠিক আছে ঠিক সেইদৰে নেক্সট আছে ডিছক্ৰিমিনেশ্যন লাৰ্ণিং তাক যেতিয়া আমি গম পাওঁ যেতিয়া সেই শিশুতে গম পায় কি এইটো মেকুৰী আৰু এইটো কুকুৰ যেতিয়া কুকুৰ আৰু মেকুৰীৰ মাজত চাৰিখন ভৰি আছে চাৰিখন ঠেং আছে এডাল নেজ আছে তৎসত্ত্বেও যেতিয়া সেই শিশুতে গম পায় কি এইটো হৈছে মেকুৰী আৰু এইটো হৈছে কুকুৰ আৰু কুকুৰৰ যদি গম পায় এইটো বেলেগ কুকুৰ সেই যিটো শিক্ষণ তাক কোৱা হয় ডিছক্ৰিমিনেটিং লাৰ্ণিং our ability to discriminate between stimuli and giving responses according to known as a discriminative learning ঠিক আছে সো এগুলা আছে বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ লাৰ্ণিং এইখন স্লাইডত আমি বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ ব্যাখ্যা লাৰ্ণিং হয় কেনেকুৱা শিক্ষণ হয় কেনেকুৱা ই কেনেকৈ আমাৰ জীৱনত আহে আমাৰ জীৱনত কেনে ধৰণৰ পৰিৱৰ্তন আনে আৰু বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ মনোবিজ্ঞানীসকলে বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট কৰিছে পৰীক্ষা নিৰীক্ষা কৰিছে আৰু সেই পৰীক্ষা নিৰীক্ষাৰ অন্তত তেওঁলোকে আমি নতুন বস্তু যে জীৱনত আমি শিকোঁ সেই শিকাৰ যিটো প্ৰচেছ বা প্ৰক্ৰিয়া সেই প্ৰক্ৰিয়াসমূহ তেওঁলোকে বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ থিয়ৰী বা ব্যাখ্যাৰ জৰিয়তে তেওঁলোকে এক্সপ্লেইন কৰিছে চ' আমি ইয়াত যদি আমি যদি ইয়াত চাওঁ টোটেল আমি ছটা ধৰণৰ ছয় ধৰণৰ ব্যাখ্যা মই আগবঢ়াইছোঁ ইয়াক আমি থিয়ৰী বুলি কৈছোঁ ইংৰাজীত চ' প্ৰথম থিয়ৰীটো আমি ইয়াত ব্যাখ্যা আগবঢ়াইছোঁ ইয়াক কোৱা হয় পেভলভছ ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিং দ্বিতীয় নম্বৰটোক কোৱা হয় লিটল এলবাৰ্ট এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট তৃতীয় নম্বৰটোক কোৱা হয় স্কিনাৰ্ছ ইনষ্ট্ৰুমেণ্টেল লাৰ্ণিং চতুৰ্থ নম্বৰক কোৱা হয় বেণ্ডুৰাছ ছ'চিয়েল লাৰ্ণিং থিয়ৰী পঞ্চম নম্বৰটোক কোৱা হয় লেটেণ্ট লাৰ্ণিং আৰু শেষৰটোক কোৱা হয় ইনচাইট লাৰ্ণিং চ' যেতিয়া আমি মনোবিজ্ঞানত শিক্ষণৰ কথা পঢ়োঁ এই ছটা ধৰণৰ লাৰ্ণিং বা শিক্ষণৰ প্ৰক্ৰিয়া বা ব্যাখ্যা বা থিয়ৰীৰ প্ৰয়োজনীয়তা খুব বেছি আৰু সেইকাৰণে আমি আজি এই বিশেষ ক্লাছটোত এটাকৈ এই ছয়টা থিয়ৰীৰ বিষয়ে আলোচনা কৰিম চ' আমি আৰম্ভ কৰিব ওলাইছোঁ পেভলভ ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিঙৰ পৰা চ' এইখিনি হৈছে থিয়ৰী ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিং লিটল এলবাৰ্ট এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট অপাৰেণ্ট কণ্ডিশ্যনিং আৰু অবজাৰ্ভেশ্যনেল লাৰ্ণিং চ' যিটো ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিং আছে এই ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিঙৰ কনচেপ্টটো বা আৰ্হিটো আগবঢ়াইছিলে আইভান পেভলভ বুলি এজন ৰাছিয়ান চাইকলজিষ্ট আছিলে তেওঁ আৰু তেওঁ 1904 চনত তেওঁৰ কামৰ কাৰণে তেওঁ নোবেল বঁটাও পাইছিলে আৰু তেওঁ কৈছিলে কি ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিং ইজ এ কাইণ্ড অফ লাৰ্ণিং ডেট ইজ বেছড অন ক্লাছিকেল এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট বাই পেভলভ অ'কে This kind of conditioning is also known as respondent conditioning or Pavlovian conditioning. মানে ইয়াৰ কথাটো এইটো হৈছে কি এটা সহজ ভাষাত যদি মই ইংৰাজীত এক্সপ্লেইন কৰিব বিচাৰোঁ ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিং ইজ বেচিকেলি এক্সপ্লেইনিং ডেট লাৰ্ণিং ইজ টেকিং প্লেচ থ্ৰু এছ'চিয়েশ্যন মানে সম্বন্ধৰ জৰিয়তে দুটা ষ্টিমুলাছ মানে ষ্টিমুলি মানে হৈছে উত্তেজন অ'কে ষ্টিমুলি মানে হৈছে উত্তেজক আৰু ষ্টিমুলাছ মানে হৈছে উত্তেজনা চ' দুটা ষ্টিমুলিৰ জৰিয়তে ষ্টিমুলিৰ সম্বন্ধৰ জৰিয়তে যিটো নতুন ব্যৱহাৰ এজন ব্যক্তিয়ে শিকে তাক কোৱা হয় ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিং মই বুজি পাইছোঁ কি এইখিনি নতুনকৈ যিসকলে ব্যক্তিয়ে চাই আছে তেওঁলোকৰ কাৰণে অলপ বুজিবলৈ অলপ অসুবিধা হ'ব পাৰে আৰু সেয়েহে এই ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিঙৰ যিটো কনচেপ্ট আছে মই পেভলভে যিটো এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট কৰিছিলে বা যিটো পৰীক্ষা কৰিছিলে তাৰ জৰিয়তে মই আপোনালোকৰ সন্মুখত ব্যাখ্যাটো আগবঢ়াম সেই ব্যাখ্যাটোৰ শুনাৰ লগে লগে আপোনালোকে গম পাই যাব আৰু তাৰ লগতে কিছুমান এটা মই উদাহৰণো দিম যি উদাহৰণ আমাৰ নিজৰ দৈনন্দিন জীৱনৰ লগতো প্ৰয়োজনীয় খাপ খাই কি কেনেকৈ ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিঙৰ জৰিয়তে আমি নতুন এটা ব্যৱহাৰ আমি শিকিছিলোঁ চ' আহকচোন আমি চাওঁ যিটো এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট পেভলভে কৰিছিলে চ' তাৰ আগত এই কিছুমান শব্দ আছে নিউট্ৰেল ষ্টিমুলাছ বুলি কয় আনকণ্ডিশ্যনেল ষ্টিমুলাছ কণ্ডিশ্যন ষ্টিমুলাছ আনকণ্ডিশ্যনেল ৰেছপন্স আৰু কণ্ডিশ্যন ৰেছপন্স চ' এইখিনি ইয়াৰ ব্যাখ্যাখিনি মই লগত আগবঢ়াইছোঁ তাৰ লগতে এতিয়া মই যেতিয়া আপোনালোকৰ সন্মুখত সেই পৰীক্ষাটো আগবঢ়াম যেতিয়া মই ব্যাখ্যা আগবঢ়াম তেতিয়া এই নিউট্ৰেল ষ্টিমুলাছ কি হয় কণ্ডিশ্যনেল ষ্টিমুলাছ কি হয় এই গোটেইখিনি মই আপোনালোকক এটা এটাকৈ এক্সপ্লেইন কৰি যাম চ' আপোনালোকে যদি চাই তেওঁ বিশেষকৈ কি কৰিছিলে এটা কুকুৰৰ ওপৰত এটা এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট কৰিছিলে আৰু ইয়াক কোৱা হয় পেভলভছ চেলিভেশ্যন ডগছ চেলিভেশ্যন এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট মানে পেভলভছ ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিং চ' আমাৰ ঘৰত আমি কুকুৰ আছে একদম মই সহজভাৱে বুজাব চেষ্টা কৰি আছোঁ আমাৰ ঘৰতো কুকুৰ আছে চ' যেতিয়াই আমি কুকুৰক কিবা খাদ্য প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰোঁ তেওঁলোকৰ সন্মুখত কুকুৰটোৱে কি কৰিব তেওঁ নেজটো জোকাৰিব জোৰকৈ আৰু তেওঁৰ কুকুৰটোৰ জিভাৰ পৰা কিছুমান লেলাৱতি পৰিব আৰু তাৰ লগে লগে ইট মিনছ ডেট সেই কুকুৰটোৱে খোৱাৰ প্ৰতি বা আমি যিটো খাদ্য দি আছোঁ সেই খাদ্যৰ প্ৰতি আকৰ্ষিত হৈছে আৰু তাৰ লগে লগে যেতিয়া আমি খাদ্যটো প্ৰস্তুত কৰিম কুকুৰটোৰ সন্মুখত সি খাদ্যটো খাব চ' ইয়াত নিউট্ৰেল ষ্টিমুলাছ প্ৰথম ক্ষেত্ৰত হৈছে সেই খাদ্যটো কাৰণ ক্ষমা কৰিব নিউট্ৰেল ষ্টিমুলাছ ইয়াত খাদ্যটো হৈছে আনকণ্ডিশ্যনেল ষ্টিমুলাছ মানে এ নেচাৰেলি অকাৰিং ষ্টিমুলাছ ডেট লিডছ টু আ ইনভলেণ্টেৰী ৰেছপন্স মানে যেতিয়া আমি কুকুৰটোৱে খাদ্যটো দেখে তাৰ লগে লগে তাৰ মুখৰ পৰা সেই লেলাৱতি পৰিবলৈ আৰম্ভ কৰে সেইকাৰণে সেই খাদ্যটোক কোৱা হয় আনকণ্ডিশ্যন ষ্টিমুলাছ ঠিক আছে তাক কোৱা হয় খাদ্য কাৰণ খাদ্যটো দেখাৰ লগে লগে অট'মেটিকেলি সি চেলিভেশ্যন প্ৰচেছ বা লেলাৱতি ওলোৱা যিটো প্ৰক্ৰিয়াটো আৰম্ভ হৈ যায় আৰু ইয়াৰ লগতে যদি আমি কুকুৰটোৰ সন্মুখত আপুনি যদি এই ফটোখন চাই অপশ্যন ছেকেণ্ড যদি কুকুৰটোৰ সন্মুখত এটা বেল বজাই দিওঁ জোৰকৈ সেই বেল যিকোনো বেল হ'ব পাৰে সেই বেলটোৰ কোনো প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়া সেই কুকুৰটোৱে নিদিয়ে যি ধৰণে কুকুৰটোৱে খাদ্যটো দেখি পেলাই এটা প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়াৰ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিছিলে সেয়েহে এই বেলটোৱে যিহেতু একো ৰিয়েকশ্যন বা একো প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়াৰ প্ৰস্তুত কৰিবলৈ অসমৰ্থ হৈছে সেইকাৰণে সেই বেলটোক ইয়াত কোৱা হয় এক্সপেৰিমেণ্টত কোৱা হয় নিউট্ৰেল ষ্টিমুলাছ এ ষ্টিমুলাছ ডেট হেজ ন' ইফেক্ট অন দ্য ডিজায়াৰ্ড ৰেছপন্স আৰু আনকণ্ডিশ্যনেল ষ্টিমুলাছ মানে হৈছে সেই খাদ্য বা ফুড যিটোৱে এটা অট'মেটিক একশ্যন বা এটা প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়া সৃষ্টি কৰিবলৈ সক্ষম হৈছে ঠিক আছে আৰু ইয়াত যদি আমি 4 নম্বৰ পইণ্টটো চাই আনকণ্ডিশ্যন ৰেছপন্স সেই আনকণ্ডিশ্যন ৰেছপন্সটো এই ক্ষেত্ৰত হৈছে এই চেলিভেশ্যন বা লেলাৱতি ওলোৱাৰ সেই প্ৰক্ৰিয়াটো কাৰণ কোনো কণ্ডিশ্যন নাই অট'মেটিকলি হৈ গৈছে চ' পেভলভে কি কৰিলে এদিন কুকুৰটোৰ সন্মুখত আপুনি যদি ফটোকেইখন চাই কিছুমান খানা প্ৰস্তুত কৰিলে তেওঁৰ সন্মুখত কুকুৰটোৰ সন্মুখত খানা দেখাৰ লগে লগে লেলাৱতি ওলাইছে কুকুৰে খানাটো খাইছে তাৰপিছত কি কৰিলে এদিন এটা বেল বজাই দিলে বেল বজোৱাৰ লগে লগে তেওঁ অনুভৱ কৰিছে কি সেই বেলৰ বিপৰীতে কোনো প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়া হোৱা নাই কুকুৰটোৰ ফালৰ পৰা মানে কুকুৰটোৱে কোনো ধৰণৰ ৰিয়েকশ্যন দিয়া নাই সেয়েহে পেভলভে কি কৰিলে এদিন বেলটো বজাইছে আপোনালোকে থাৰ্ড অপশ্যনটো যদি চাই বেল প্লাছ ফুড ঠিক আছে বেলটো বজাইছে তাৰপিছত খানাখিনি দিছে খানাখিনি দেখাৰ লগে লগে কুকুৰটোৰ কি হৈছে লেলাৱতি ওলাইছে খানাটো খোৱা আৰম্ভ কৰিছে চ' তেনেকৈ 2 3 দিন 4 দিন 5 দিন ধৰি সেই প্ৰচেছটো তেওঁ কণ্টিনিউ ৰাখিছে মানে প্ৰথম বেলটো বজাইছে তাৰপিছত খানাখিনি দিছে বেলটো বজাইছে খানাখিনি দিছে বেলটো বজাইছে খানাখিনি দিছে চ' ইয়াত যদি পইণ্টটো আছে দেখিছে নিউট্ৰেল ষ্টিমুলাছ বেল প্লাছ ফুড আৰু তাৰ সেই ফুডটো দেখি পেলাই কুকুৰটোৰ কি হৈছে চেলিভেশ্যন বা লেলাৱতি ওলাইছে চ' বেলটো বজাইছে খানাটো দিছে এনেকৈ চলি থাকোঁতে বহুত দিনৰ পিছত এদিন পেভলভে কি কৰিলে বেলটো বজালে হয় কিন্তু খানাটো প্ৰস্তুত কৰা নাই মানে খানাটো দিয়া নাই কুকুৰটোৰ সন্মুখত আৰু যেই কুকুৰটোৱে সেই বেলটো শুনিলে লগে লগে সেই কুকুৰটোৱে কি কৰিলে নেজটো লৰাই পেভলভৰ ওচৰত আহিলে আৰু লেলাৱতি পৰিব আৰম্ভ কৰিছে তাৰ জিভাৰ পৰা বুজি পাইছে মানে প্ৰথমতে সেই লেলাৱতি ওলোৱা বা নেজডাল লৰোৱাৰ যিটো প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়া আছিলে তাৰ ক্ৰিয়াটো আছিলে খানা মানে ফুড সেই ক্ৰিয়াৰ প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়া আছিলে আপোনাৰ লেলাৱতি ওলোৱা কিন্তু যেতিয়া সেই খানাটোৰ লগত বা ফুডৰ লগত এটা বেল বা এটা ঘণ্টা সংযোগ কৰাৰ পিছত সেই প্ৰচেছটো যেতিয়া কণ্টিনিউ কৰাৰ পিছত এদিন যেতিয়া ফুড মানে যিটো মেইন কাৰণ লেলাৱতি ওলোৱাৰ সেইটো তেওঁ নাইকিয়া কৰাৰ স্বত্তেও সেই লেলাৱতি ওলোৱাৰ প্ৰক্ৰিয়াটো বা সেই প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়াটো তথাপিও তাতে ইনটেক আছিলে, মানে স্থায়ী হৈ আছিলে বেলটো বজোৱাৰ স্বত্তেও। আৰু এই এক্সপেৰিমেণ্টটোৰ যুক্তি আগবঢ়াই পেলাই তেওঁ কৈছিলে কি ইণ্ডিভিজুৱেল মানে মানুহ পিপুল অলছ' লাৰ্ণ নিউ বিহেভিয়াৰ্ছ থ্ৰু এছ'চিয়েশ্যন। ঠিক আছে, ইয়াক কোৱা হয় ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিং। চ' এই যিটো মই উদাহৰণ আগবঢ়াইছোঁ তাৰ জৰিয়তে মই আৰু এটা উদাহৰণ আপোনালোকক আগবঢ়াব বিচাৰিছোঁ। এইটো আমি দৈনন্দিন জীৱনত আমিও যেতিয়া আমাৰ শৈশৱকালত আমি অনুভৱ কৰিছিলোঁ। শৈশৱত কি আছিলে, বিৰাট গৰমৰ সময়ত যেতিয়া আমি স্কুলৰ পৰা ঘূৰি আহোঁ, ঘূৰি অহাৰ পিছত যেতিয়া আমি ভাত চাত খাই পেলাই শুব আৰম্ভ কৰোঁ, শুই আছিলোঁ, তেতিয়া ঘপককৈ কি হৈছিলে, আমাৰ শৈশৱৰ অৱস্থাত কিছুমান আইচক্ৰীমৱালা আমাৰ গলিয়ে গলিয়ে ঘূৰিছিলে এটা ঘণ্টা বজাই বজাই। যেতিয়াই আমি সেই ঘণ্টাটো শুনাৰ লগে লগে আমি গলি মুখত বা গেটৰ মুখত দৌৰি যাওঁ আইচক্ৰীমৱালাটো চাবৰ কাৰণে। আৰু যেতিয়া আমি দেখোঁ আইচক্ৰীমৱালাজন আহিছে, লগে লগে আমি পইচা দি পেলাই আইচক্ৰীম খাইছিলোঁ। নেক্সট দিনাখনো সেই দুপৰীয়া সময়ত যেতিয়া আমি শুব লৈছোঁ, আকৌ সি ঘণ্টা বজাইছে, ঘণ্টা বজাৰ লগে লগে আমি গুচি গৈছোঁ। গুচি যোৱাৰ পিছত আমি দেখিছোঁ কি হৈছে, আইচক্ৰীমৱালাজন আহিছে, আমি আইচক্ৰীম খাইছোঁ। চ' আমাৰ সেই প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়াটো আইচক্ৰীমৱালাজনৰ প্ৰতি বা যিজন মানুহে আইচক্ৰীম বিক্ৰেতাজনৰ প্ৰতি নহয়, আমাৰ সেই প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়াটো আছিলে আইচক্ৰীমৰ প্ৰতি, কাৰণ আমি আইচক্ৰীম খাই ভাল পাওঁ। সেই আইচক্ৰীমে আমাৰ এটা দেহত এটা পৰিৱৰ্তন আনি আছে, যেনেকৈ কুকুৰটোৰ পৰিৱৰ্তন আহিছিলে দেহত যেতিয়া সি ফুড বা খানাটো দেখিছিলে। ঠিক আছে, তাৰপিছত এদিন আমি এনেকৈ হৈ আছে ঘপককৈ এদিন আমি বেলৰ শব্দ শুনিলোঁ, ঘণ্টাৰ শব্দ শুনিলোঁ, আমি ভাবিলোঁ কি আইচক্ৰীমৱালা আহিছে। আমি দৌৰি গৈ চাওঁ, ই আইচক্ৰীমৱালা নহয়, বেলেগ এজন কোনোবা আলহী আমাৰ ঘৰত আহিছে। নেক্সট দিনাখনো যেতিয়া আমি শুই আছোঁ, ঘপককৈ বেল বাজিলে আৰু আমি ভাবিলোঁ কি আমাৰ আইচক্ৰীমৱালাজন আকৌ আহিছে বুলি। আমি আকৌ দৌৰি যাওঁ, আমি দেখিছোঁ এবাৰ বেলেগ আলহী অহা নাই, আমাৰ ঘৰত চিঠি দিবলৈ এজন পিয়নহে আহিছে। চ' কি হৈছে, দৌৰি যোৱাৰ যিটো প্ৰচেছ, দৌৰি যোৱাৰ যিটো প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়া আমি নতুনকৈ জীৱনত আয়ত্ব কৰিছোঁ, যিটো ব্যৱহাৰ আমি আয়ত্ব কৰিলোঁ, সেই আয়ত্ব আমি কৰিলোঁ কেনেকৈ? থ্ৰু এছ'চিয়েশ্যন হয় নে নহয়? দুটা ষ্টিমুলাছ বা দুটা উত্তেজকৰ সম্বন্ধৰ জৰিয়তে আমি নতুন এটা ব্যৱহাৰ আমাৰ ব্যৱহাৰত আমি যোগ কৰিছোঁ নে নাই? ব্যৱহাৰটো কি? দৌৰি যোৱাৰ। কেনেকৈ? বেল প্লাছ আইচক্ৰীম ইজ ইকুৱেল টু ব্যৱহাৰ। চ' এইটো আমাৰ ব্যক্তিগত জীৱনত আমি যিটো অনুভৱ কৰিছোঁ, সেই অনুভৱৰ জৰিয়তে এটা উদাহৰণ দিবলৈ মই চেষ্টা কৰিছোঁ আপোনালোকক। ইয়াক কোৱা হয় ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিং, মানে পিপুল অলছ' লাৰ্ণ থ্ৰু নিউ বিহেভিয়াৰ থ্ৰু এছ'চিয়েশ্যন। এইটোতো মই উদাহৰণ দিলোঁ, কিন্তু পেভলভে এই যিটো এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট, সেই এক্সপেৰিমেণ্টটো কেৱল কুকুৰৰ ওপৰতহে কৰিছিলে, মানুহৰ ওপৰততো কৰা নাই। সেয়েহে বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ মনোবিজ্ঞানীসকলে তেওঁৰ এই এক্সপেৰিমেণ্টটোত কিছুমান ত্ৰুটি চাব আৰম্ভ কৰিলে। তাৰ ভিতৰতে এটা ডাঙৰ ওৱান অফ দ্য মষ্ট মেজৰ ক্ৰিটিচিজম বা ত্ৰুটি আছিলে কি এই এক্সপেৰিমেণ্টটোৱে কৰা হৈছিলে এটা প্ৰাণীৰ ওপৰত, কুকুৰৰ ওপৰত, মানুহৰ ওপৰত কৰা নাই। চ' তেওঁ কেনেকৈ ক'ব পাৰে কি কুকুৰে যিটো একশ্যনৰ ৰিয়েকশ্যন দেখুৱাইছে, সেই ছেইম একশ্যনৰ ৰিয়েকশ্যন, ক্ৰিয়াৰ প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়া এজন মানুহেও দেখাব? হয়নে নহয় বাৰু কথাটো কওকচোন? আৰু সেয়েহে এই পেভলভৰ এক্সপেৰিমেণ্টটো বা পৰীক্ষাটো স্থাপিত কৰিবৰ কাৰণে আৰু এটা এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট কৰা হৈছিলে, এটা পৰীক্ষা কৰা হৈছিলে। সেই পৰীক্ষাটোক কোৱা হয় লিটল এলবাৰ্টছ এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট। চ' লিটল এলবাৰ্ট এক্সপেৰিমেণ্টত লিটল এলবাৰ্ট মানে হৈছে এটা সৰু ল'ৰা, 9 মহীয়া ল'ৰা, যাৰ নাম আছিলে এলবাৰ্ট। আৰু তেওঁৰ ওপৰত ৱাটছন আৰু ৰেইনাৰে এটা এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট কৰিছিলে। সেই এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট বা পৰীক্ষাটোৰ পিছত যিটো তেওঁ ফলাফল পাইছিলে, সেই ফলাফলৰ ওপৰতে ভিত্তি কৰি তেওঁলোকে কৈছিলে কি য়েছ, পিপুল অলছ' লাৰ্ণ থ্ৰু নিউ বিহেভিয়াৰ্ছ, নতুন ব্যৱহাৰ মানুহে শিকে কাৰ জৰিয়তে? ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিঙৰ জৰিয়তে, যাৰ ব্যাখ্যা অলৰেডি পেভলভে আগবঢ়াইছিলে। ঠিক আছে, পেভলভে কুকুৰৰ ওপৰত কৰিছিলে আৰু ছেইম পৰীক্ষাটো, সেই একেই পৰীক্ষাটো ৱাটছন আৰু ৰাইনাৰে এজন ব্যক্তিৰ ওপৰত কৰিছিলে, এটা সৰু বাচ্ছাৰ ওপৰত কৰিছিলে, যাৰ নাম আছিলে লিটল এলবাৰ্ট। পৰীক্ষাটো এনেধৰণৰ। চ' আপোনালোকে ফটোখন যদি চাইছে, প্ৰথম সেই সৰু ল'ৰা এলবাৰ্টক এটা সৰু বগা নিগনিৰ সন্মুখত থৈ দিয়া হয়। নিগনিটো দেখাৰ লগে লগে এলবাৰ্টৰ কোনো একশ্যনৰ ৰিয়েকশ্যন বা ক্ৰিয়াৰ কোনো প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়া হোৱা নাছিলে। নিগনিটো দেখি পেলাই হি ৱাজ ভেৰি অ'কে, ঠিক আছে, ঘূৰি আছে, ফুৰি আছে, ঠিক আছে। আৰু তাৰপিছত একো যিহেতু পৰিৱৰ্তন হোৱা নাই, ভয় খোৱা নাই, তাৰপিছত নিগনিটো আঁতৰাই পেলাই জোৰকৈ এটা ডাঙৰকৈ তেওঁৰ কাণৰ ওচৰত বেল বজাই দিছিলে। আৰু যেতিয়া সৰু বাচ্ছা, আপোনালোকে জানে কি কাণৰ ওচৰত যদি জোৰকৈ বেল বজায়, তেওঁলোকে বহুত ভয় খায় আৰু কান্দিব আৰম্ভ কৰে। সেইটো এটা নেচাৰেল একশ্যনৰ ৰিয়েকশ্যন, এটা ক্ৰিয়াৰ প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়া হয়। চ' ঠিক সেইদৰে এলবাৰ্টো কান্দিব আৰম্ভ কৰিলে। তাৰপিছত কি কৰিলে ৱাটছনে? প্ৰথম সেই বগা নিগনিটো দেখুৱালে। নিগনিটো দেখাৰ পিছত যেতিয়া এলবাৰ্টে চাই থাকে, তেতিয়া কাণৰ ওচৰত জোৰকৈ ঘণ্টাটো বজাই দিয়ে। ঠিক আছে, আকৌ নিগনিটো দেখুৱালে, আকৌ কাণৰ ওচৰত জোৰকৈ ঘণ্টাটো বজাই দিলে। চ' এই কৰোঁতে এদিন কি হ'ল, তেওঁলোকে নিগনিটো সন্মুখত দেখালে এলবাৰ্ট বহি আছিলে, সন্মুখত নিগনিটো দেখালে, কিন্তু সেই ডাঙৰকে ঘণ্টাটো বজোৱা নাছিলে। আৰু যে তেওঁ সেই সৰু ল'ৰাটোৱে নিগনিটো দেখিলে, দেখাৰ লগে লগে সি কান্দিব আৰম্ভ কৰিলে। ঠিক সেইদৰে যিদৰে সেই বেল তাৰ লগত খানা আৰু চেলেভা বা লেলাউটি ওলোৱা। তাৰপিছত কি কৰিছিলে, বহুত দিন এনেকে হৈ থকাৰ পিছত এদিন ঘপকে খানাটো নাইকিয়া কৰি দিলে, কিন্তু বেলটো বজাই দিলে। বেলটো বজাৰ লগে লগে কুকুৰটোৱে লেলাউটি ওলোৱা আৰম্ভ কৰিলে। আৰু এই ক্ষেত্ৰত আপুনি যদি লিটিল এলবাৰ্ট এক্সপেৰিমেণ্টটোত চাই, সেই বেয়া লগা বা ভয় লগা শব্দটো আঁতৰাই দিলে, তাৰ জেগাত কিন্তু সেই যিটো বগা ৰঙৰ নিগনি আছিলে তাক দেখুৱাইছে। দেখুওৱাৰ লগে লগেও সেই সৰু ল'ৰাজনে কান্দিব আৰম্ভ কৰিলে, কাৰণ নিগনিটো দেখাৰ লগে লগে তেওঁ ভয় খাব আৰম্ভ কৰিলে, কি মই চাগে আকৌ সেই বেলটোৰ শব্দ শুনা পাম, যিটো মই শুনিব নিবিচাৰোঁ, আৰু সেয়ে তেওঁ কান্দিব আৰম্ভ কৰিলে। চ' এই এক্সপেৰিমেণ্টটোত বা এই যিটো পৰীক্ষা তেওঁ আগবঢ়াইছিলে, সেই আগবঢ়োৱা পৰীক্ষাত আপোনালোকে চাই, প্ৰথম নিউট্ৰেল ষ্টিমুলাছ মানে হোৱাইট ৰেড মানে বগা নিগনি, মানে বগা নিগনিটোৱে কোনো ভয়ৰ ভাৱ তেওঁৰ মনলৈ অনা নাছিলে লিটিল এলবাৰ্টৰ। আৰু আনকণ্ডিশ্যনেল ষ্টিমুলাছ আছিলে লাউড মিউজিক বা লাউড নইজ, যিটোৱে তেওঁক ভয়ৰ ভাৱ এটা আনিছিলে তেওঁৰ মনত। তাক কোৱা হয় আনকণ্ডিশ্যনেল ৰেছপন্স। ঠিক আছে। আৰু কণ্ডিশ্যন ৰেছপন্স যেতিয়া সেই নিগনিটো তাৰ লগতে সেই বেয়া লগা শব্দটো যোগ কৰি দিয়া হৈছিলে, তাৰপিছত সেই কৰোঁতে যেতিয়া সেই বেয়া লগা শব্দটো নাইকিয়াও হৈ গৈছিলে, তৎসত্ত্বেও সেই বগা নিগনিটো দেখাৰ লগে লগে লিটিল এলবাৰ্ট বা সেই এলবাৰ্ট নামৰ সৰু ল'ৰাটোৱে কান্দিব আৰম্ভ কৰিছিলে। আৰু এই ৰিচাৰ্চ কৰাৰ পিছত বা এই এক্সপেৰিমেণ্টটো কৰাৰ পিছত তেওঁলোকে এইটো আগবঢ়ালে, কি হয় মানুহেও সেই কুকুৰটোৰ নিচিনাই দুটা ষ্টিমুলাছক যোগ কৰি নতুন ব্যৱহাৰ শিকিব পাৰে বা জীৱনত আয়ত্ত কৰিব পাৰে। সেই সম্পূৰ্ণ এক্সপেৰিমেণ্টটো মই তলত ইয়াত পইণ্ট বাই পইণ্ট ইয়াত মই এক্সপ্লেইন কৰি দিছোঁ, পইণ্ট 1, পইণ্ট 2, পইণ্ট 3, পইণ্ট 5 আৰু তাৰ লগতে তাৰ ৰিজাল্টখিনি মই দেখুৱাইছোঁ। চ' এইটো হৈছে লিটিল এলবাৰ্ট এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট। ঠিক আছে। তাৰপিছত চাওঁ, বিভিন্ন মানুহে ক'লে কি ঠিক আছে, মানুহে এছ'চিয়েশ্যনৰ জৰিয়তে শিকে, নতুন দুটা ষ্টিমুলাছক একলগ কৰি পেলাই শিকে, কিন্তু বিভিন্ন মানুহে তাৰ মাজতো কিছুমান ত্ৰুটি বিচাৰি পাইছিলে। আৰু তাৰ ভিতৰতে দুজন ব্যক্তি আছিলে, তেওঁৰ নাম আছিলে স্কিনাৰ আৰু থৰ্ণডাইক। তেওঁলোকে বিভিন্ন ত্ৰুটি দেখুৱাইছিলে কি ঠিক আছে, মানুহে নতুন বস্তু শিকিছে হয়, এলবাৰ্টে নতুন বস্তু এটা নতুন ব্যৱহাৰ শিকিছে হয়, কিন্তু ইয়াত স্বতঃস্ফূৰ্ত হোৱা নাই। মানে মই তেওঁক জোৰ কৰিছোঁ নতুন এটা ব্যৱহাৰ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিবৰ কাৰণে, যিটো এলবাৰ্টৰ লগত হৈছিলে। তেওঁ কান্দা নাছিলে, কিন্তু তেওঁক কান্দাবলৈ বা কান্দিবৰ কাৰণে বাধ্য কৰোৱা হৈছিলে। ঠিক আছে। সেইটো এটা ডাঙৰ ত্ৰুটি তেওঁ দেখা পাইছিলে, B.F. স্কিনাৰ আৰু থৰ্ণডাইকে। আৰু তেওঁলোকে কৈছিলে কি পিপল শুড নট লাৰ্ণ নিউ থিং থ্ৰু এছ'চিয়েশ্যন, পিপল অলছ' লাৰ্ণ নিউ থিংছ অৰ নিউ বিহেভিয়াৰ বেছড অন কনচিকুৱেঞ্চেছ। মানে একশ্যনৰ ৰিয়েকশ্যনৰ জৰিয়তেও তেওঁলোকে কিছুমান নতুন ব্যৱহাৰ তেওঁলোকে আয়ত্ত কৰিব পাৰে। আৰু সেইকাৰণে আপুনি যদি চাই, কনচেপ্ট অফ অপাৰেণ্ট কণ্ডিশ্যনিঙৰ প্ৰথম পইণ্টটো মেনশ্যন কৰিছোঁ কি অপাৰেণ্ট কণ্ডিশ্যনিং ইজ দ্য লাৰ্ণিং অফ voluntary behaviors through the effects of pleasant and unpleasant consequences or a response. মানে কোনোবা এটা ক্ৰিয়াৰ বিপৰীতে পোৱা ভাল আৰু কোনোবা ক্ৰিয়াৰ বিপৰীতে পোৱা এটা প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়া, সেই প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়াটো যদি ভাল বা বেয়া হয়, সেই ভাল বেয়াৰ ওপৰত ভিত্তি কৰি পেলাই নতুন এটা ব্যৱহাৰ শিকা। মানে আপুনি এটা ক্ৰিয়া প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰি এটা কাম কৰিলে, সেই কামৰ বিনিময়ত যদি আপুনি তাৰ ৰিজাল্টটো ভালকে পায় বা পজিটিভ পায় বা ধনাত্মক পায়, তেন্তে আমি সেই কামটো বা সেই ব্যৱহাৰটো আকৌ কৰিম। ঠিক আছে। তাৰ বিপৰীতে যদি আমি কামটো কৰাৰ পিছত আমি যিটো সিদ্ধান্ত বা ৰিজাল্ট পাওঁ, সেই ৰিজাল্টটো যদি ঋণাত্মক হয় বা নিগেটিভ হয় বা আনপ্লিজেণ্ট হয়, ভাল নলগা হয়, তেন্তে আমি সেই ব্যৱহাৰটো আকৌ কেতিয়াও প্ৰদৰ্শন নকৰোঁ। মিনছ লাৰ্ণিং থ্ৰু কনচিকুৱেঞ্চেছ, একশ্যনৰ ৰিয়েকশ্যনৰ জৰিয়তে। আৰু সেয়ে ইন দিছ ফৰ্ম অফ লাৰ্ণিং দ্য মষ্ট ইম্পৰ্টেণ্ট থিং উই হেভ টু আণ্ডাৰষ্টেণ্ড ইজ কল্ড ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট। চ' ইয়াত দুটা শব্দ আমি সদায় পাম অপাৰেণ্ট কণ্ডিশ্যনিং, এটা কোৱা হয় ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট আৰু পানিছমেণ্ট মানে শাস্তি, ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট মানে এটা আমি ক'ব গ'লে যেতিয়া আমি আৰ্মি চিনেমাবোৰ চাওঁ, আমি ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট শব্দটো ব্যৱহাৰ শুনা পাওঁ। ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট পঠাব লাগে মানে আৰু শক্তি প্ৰয়োগ কৰা, কি সেই ব্যৱহাৰটো যাতে বৰ্তি থাকে, তাক কোৱা হয় ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট। চ' আমি পানিছমেণ্ট আৰু ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট এই দুটা শব্দ খুব শুনা পাম। আকৌ একেই ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিঙক স্থাপিত কৰিবৰ কাৰণে এটা পৰীক্ষা কৰিছিলে, লিটিল এলবাৰ্টৰ পৰীক্ষাটো কৰিছিলে। ঠিক সেইদৰে B.F. স্কিনাৰেও এটা পৰীক্ষা কৰিছিলে এটা নিগনিৰ ওপৰত, আৰু এই পৰীক্ষাটোক কোৱা হয় স্কিনাৰ বক্স বুলি। চ' প্ৰথম পইণ্টটো যদি আপোনালোকে চাই এটা বক্স বনাইছিলে, বক্স এটা তেওঁ নিগনি ৰাখিছিলে। He placed a rat in the box. There was a lever which is pressed would activate the food or water delivery mechanism in this is called Skinner box. মানে Skinner এটা বক্স আছিলে, সেই বক্সৰ ভিতৰত এটা নিগনি ৰাখিছিলে আৰু নিগনিটো সেই বক্সৰ ভিতৰতে এটা সুইচ ৰাখিছিলে, এটা লিভাৰ ৰাখিছিলে কি সেই সুইচটো টিপাৰ লগে লগে বক্সৰ ভিতৰত কিছুমান খানা পৰি যায়, যাতে খানা কিছুমান পৰি যায় যি নিগনিয়ে খাব পাৰে। কি হ'ল, now the rat placed inside the box and the experimenter deliver food by pressing the lever from outside and the rat eat the food one at a time. So নিগনিটো ৰাখাৰ পিছত যিজন এক্সপেৰিমেণ্টাৰ আছিলে স্কিনাৰে কি কৰিছিলে, সেই চুইচটো টিপি দিছিলে, টিপি দিয়াৰ লগে লগে অলপমান খানা বক্সটোত পৰি গৈছিলে আৰু নিগনিটোৱে খাব পাৰিছিলে। তাৰপিছত আফটাৰ চাম ট্ৰেইনিং দ্য ৰেট লেফ্ট এলোন ইন দ্য বক্স এণ্ড দ্য ফুড ইজ নট ৰিলিজ বাই দ্য এক্সপেৰিমেণ্টাৰ। অলপমান ট্ৰেইনিং দিয়াৰ পিছত সেই যিটো নিগনি আছিলে বক্সটোত ৰখা হৈছিলে, কিন্তু সেই সময়ত আগতে যেনেকৈ এক্সপেৰিমেণ্টাৰজনে বা স্কিনাৰে খানাটো দিছিলে, খানাটো দিয়া হোৱা নাছিলে। চ' কি হ'ল, বক্সটো নিগনিটো ঘূৰি আছে বিচাৰি এটা সময়ত কি হ'ল, নিগনিটোৰ ভোক লাগিলে। চ' এতিয়া সেই ভোক লাগিছে যেতিয়া কিবাটো খাব লাগিব, সি ইফাল কৰি বিচাৰি থাকোঁতে ঘপককৈ সেই চুইচটো দেখিলে, সেই চুইচটো তেনেকৈ গৈ পেলাই চুইচটো টিপি দিলে। টিপি দিয়াৰ লগে লগে কি হ'ল, যিমান অলপমান খানা আছিলে সেই খানাটো বক্সৰ ভিতৰত পৰি থাকিলে। যেতিয়া খানাটো পৰা দেখিলে সি লগে লগে খোৱাটো খাই দিলে। যিটো ভোক লাগি আছিলে, তাৰ যিটো নিড আছিলে, যাৰ যিটো প্ৰয়োজন আছিলে, সেই প্ৰয়োজনটো ফুলফিল হ'ল নে নাই, ভোকটো মৰিল নে নাই, মৰি গ'ল। তো তাৰপিছত কি হ'ল, সি লাহে লাহে গম পালে কি যদি মই সেই বক্সটো বা সেই চুইচটো টিপি দিওঁ মই কিছুমান খানা পাম। চ' সেইকাৰণে প্ৰথমবাৰ চুইচটো টিপিবলৈ কাৰণে নিগনিটোৰ যিমান সময় লাগিছিলে, দ্বিতীয়বাৰ বা তৃতীয়বাৰ বা চতুৰ্থবাৰ বা পঞ্চমবাৰ বা ষষ্ঠবাৰ চুইচটো টিপিবৰ কাৰণে তেওঁৰ সেই নিগনিটোৰ ইমান সময় লগা নাছিলে, কাৰণ সি গম পালে কি মই যিমানবাৰ চুইচটো টিপিম সিমানবাৰে মই খানা পাম। আৰু খানা খোৱা আমাৰ কাৰণে এনেও এটা পজিটিভ ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট হয় নাই, আমি মনত শান্তি লাগে, ভাল লাগে খানাটো খাই, উই ফিল ভেৰি ছেটিছফাইড। চ' নিগনিটোৰে ছেইম হৈছিলে। তো সেইকাৰণে কি হৈছিলে, বাৰে বাৰে সেই চুইচটো টিপি আছিলে, যিমানবাৰ টিপি আহিলে সিমানবাৰ খানা পাইছে, যিমানবাৰ টিপিছে সিমানবাৰ খানা পাইছে। চ' সেই চুইচটো টিপা এটা নতুন ব্যৱহাৰ হ'ল নে নাই, এটা নতুন ব্যৱহাৰত পৰিৱৰ্তন হ'ল নে নাই নিগনিটোৰ। কেনেকৈ হ'ল, কাৰণ তেওঁ সেই চুইচটো টিপাৰ পিছত খাদ্য পাইছিলে, হুইচ ইজ আ পজিটিভ ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট, হয় নে নহয়। যদি সেই চুইচটো টিপাৰ লগে লগে তেওঁ যদি শ্বক এটা পালে হয়, সেই চুইচটো তেওঁ কেতিয়াও সেই নিগনিটোৱে কেতিয়াও টিপি নিদিয়ে। চ' এই এক্সপেৰিমেণ্টটোৰ জৰিয়তে, এই পৰীক্ষাটোৰ জৰিয়তে স্কিনাৰে স্থাপিত কৰিবলৈ সক্ষম হৈছিলে তেওঁৰ ষ্টেটমেণ্ট কি পিপল নট অনলি লাৰ্ণ থ্ৰু এছ'চিয়েশ্যন, যিটো আমি আইভান পেভলভে কৈছিলে বা এলবাৰ্ট বেণ্ডুৰা ক্ষমা কৰিব, লিটল এলবাৰ্টৰ এক্সপেৰিমেণ্টত যিটো স্থাপিত হৈছিলে, তেওঁ কৈছিলে কি তেনেকৈ মানুহে শিকে, কিন্তু তাৰ লগতে মানুহে কনচিকুৱেঞ্চেছ বা প্লিজেণ্ট বা আনপ্লিজেণ্ট, ভাল বা বেয়া অনুভৱৰ জৰিয়তেও নতুন ব্যৱহাৰ শিকে, যিটো তেওঁ স্থাপিত কৰিলে এই সৰু এক্সপেৰিমেণ্টটোৰ জৰিয়তে। নেক্সট শ্লাইডত আপোনালোকে যদি চাই, ইয়াত কিছুমান শব্দৰ ব্যৱহাৰ কৰা হৈছে। মই আগতে কৈ আহিছিলোঁ কি ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট আৰু পানিছমেণ্ট, আমি এই শব্দকেইটা খুব ব্যৱহাৰ কৰিম, খুব ব্যৱহাৰ হয় অপাৰেণ্ট কণ্ডিশ্যনত। চ' তাত সেই পানিছমেণ্ট আৰু ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট দুটা ভাগত ভাগ কৰিছে, পজিটিভ পানিছমেণ্ট, নিগেটিভ পানিছমেণ্ট, পজিটিভ ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট আৰু নিগেটিভ ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট। চ' কি হয়, স্কুলত যেতিয়া আমি পঢ়ি থাকোঁতে যদি আমি পৰীক্ষাত ভাল মাৰ্কছ আনো, ভাল মাৰ্কছ আনাৰ লগে লগে আমাৰ শিক্ষকে আমাক কি দিছিলে, কিবা এটা চকলেট দিছিলে, বা আমাক সন্মুখত থিয় কৰি চবেই মোক এপ্ৰিচিয়েট কৰিছিলে, হাত তালি বজাই পেলাই মোক উৎসাহ যোগাইছিলে। চ' যেতিয়া মই উৎসাহ পালোঁ, যেতিয়া মই চকলেট পালোঁ মোৰ শিক্ষকৰ পৰা কোনোবা এটা নিৰ্দিষ্ট ব্যৱহাৰ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰাৰ কাৰণে, মই কি কৰিম, সেই ব্যৱহাৰটোক মই আকৌ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰাৰ প্ৰয়াস কৰিম। কাৰণ কিয়, মই জানো কি মই সেই ব্যৱহাৰটো যদি আকৌ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰোঁ, তেতিয়া মই আকৌ চাগে মোক উৎসাহিত কৰিব হাত তালি বজাই, চাগে মোৰ শিক্ষাগুৰুৱে চাগে মোক আকৌ এটা চকলেট দিব পাৰে। চ' সেই ব্যক্তিজনে বা সেই ছাত্ৰজনে সেই ব্যৱহাৰটোক আকৌ প্ৰদৰ্শিত কৰিবলৈ চেষ্টা কৰে। চ' ইয়াক কোৱা হয় পজিটিভ ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট, মানে সেই হাত তালিয়ে বা সেই চকলেটটোৱে সেই ছাত্ৰজনক এটা ভাল ব্যৱহাৰ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিবলৈ বাৰে বাৰে উৎসাহিত কৰিছে। চ' ডেটছ ৱাই ইয়াক কোৱা হয় পজিটিভ ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট। ঠিক আছে, তাৰপিছত আৰু তাক কোৱা হয় নিগেটিভ ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট। মানে কি হ'ল, তুমি এদিন আমি স্পীডত খুব জোৰকৈ গাড়ী চলাই গৈ আছিলোঁ, গাড়ীখন চলাওঁতে আমি এক্সিডেণ্ট হৈ গ'লোঁ আৰু আমাৰ চালান কাটিলে। পুলিচে চালান কাটে ন 1500 2000 5000 টকা চালান কাটিলে আৰু আমি ৰেড লাইটটো ফ'ল' কৰা নাছিলোঁ চ' নেক্সট টাইম কি হ'ল যেতিয়া আমি গৈ থাকোঁতে মোৰ লগৰটোৱে গাড়ী চলাই আছিলে মই ছাইডত বহি আছোঁ যেতিয়া ৰেড লাইট দেখিছে সি গাড়ীখন স্পীডত আছিলে মই লগে লগে তাক ক'লোঁ ৰখা বা যেতিয়া আমি হেলমেট পিন্ধি নাযাওঁ তেতিয়া আমি কওঁ কি হেলমেটটো পিন্ধি যা কিয় যদি হেলমেটটো পিন্ধি নাযাওঁ পুলিচে আমাৰ ফাইন লগাব যদি মই গাড়ীখন শ্ল' নকৰোঁ মই যদি ৰেড লাইট পাৰ হৈ গুচি যাওঁ কি হ'ব মই ফাইন দিব লাগিব অ'কে আৰু সেইকাৰণে সেই হেলমেটটো পিন্ধা বা ৰেড লাইট দেখাৰ লগে লগে ৰঙা লাইট দেখা ট্ৰেফিক লাইট দেখাৰ লগে লগে গাড়ীখন ব্ৰেক মাৰা মই কিয় ব্ৰেক মাৰিছোঁ যাতে মই এটা বেয়া অনুভৱ কৰিব লগা নহয় বেয়া অনুভৱ কি চালান কাটা এক্সিডেণ্ট হোৱা বেয়া অনুভৱ কি হেলমেট পিন্ধি গাড়ী স্কুটি হেলমেট নিপিন্ধি স্কুটি চলোৱাৰ কাৰণে ফাইন দিয়া যদি সেই ব্যৱহাৰটো মই এক্সপিৰিয়েঞ্চ কৰিব নোৱাৰোঁ মই সেইকাৰণে ব্ৰেক মাৰিম মই সেইকাৰণে হেলমেটটো পিন্ধি যাম এই ধৰণৰ যিটো ব্যৱহাৰিক পৰিৱৰ্তন আহে আমাৰ ব্যৱহাৰত কিবা এটা কাম নকৰা কাৰণ কামটো কৰিলে আমি তাৰ বেয়া ৰেছপন্স পাম ইয়াক কোৱা হয় নিগেটিভ ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট মানে আমাক শক্তি যোগাই আছে কোনোবা এটা কাম নকৰিবৰ কাৰণে আৰু প্ৰথমটোত পজিটিভ ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট কি আছে আমাক এটা শক্তি যোগাই আছে সেই কামটো কৰিবৰ কাৰণে বুজি পাইছে চ' এইটো হৈছে পজিটিভ ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট আৰু নিগেটিভ ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্টৰ মাজৰ পাৰ্থক্য তাৰপিছত পানিছমেণ্ট শাস্তি মানে কি আমি সৰুতে স্কুলত চাগে আমি খুব মাৰ খাইছিলোঁ আজিকালি পৰিস্থিতিত বাৰু শিক্ষকসকলে ইমান মাৰিব নোৱাৰে বা ছাত্ৰ ছাত্ৰীসকলৰ সন্মুখত তেনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ ব্যৱহাৰ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিব নোৱাৰে কিন্তু আমি যেতিয়া স্কুলত আছিলোঁ আমি এটা বাক্য আমি বিশ্বাস কৰিছিলোঁ কি চেকনিৰ আগত বিদ্যা বুলি চ' আমি যেতিয়া আমাৰ শিক্ষাগুৰুসকল ক্লাছ কৰিবলৈ আহিছিলে এখন হাতত আপোনাৰ চক পেঞ্চিল কিতাপ আৰু ডাষ্টাৰ থাকিব আৰু এখন হাতত দীঘল এছাৰি থাকিব তাৰপিছত প্ৰশ্ন শুদ্ধ বুলি ক'লে আমাক বাহ দিব আৰু ভুল বুলি ক'লে হাতখন পাত বুলি ক'লে মাৰিব হয়নে তাক কোৱা হয় পানিছমেণ্ট বা শাস্তি চ' এই পানিছমেণ্টটোক আমি লাৰ্ণিঙত আমি দুটা ভাগত ভাগ কৰিছোঁ এটা কোৱা হয় পজিটিভ আৰু এটা কোৱা হয় নিগেটিভ মানে ধনাত্মক শাস্তি আৰু ঋণাত্মক শাস্তি চ' পজিটিভ পানিছমেণ্ট মানে কি হৈছে যদি কোনোবা এজন ছাত্ৰই পৰীক্ষা হলত 2 নম্বৰী কৰি আছিলে নকল কৰি আছিলে চিটিং কৰি আছিলে আৰু শিক্ষকজনে তেওঁ হাতেলৈকে ধৰা পেলোৱাৰ লগে লগে কি কৰিলে সেই ষ্টুডেণ্টজনক বহিষ্কৃত কৰিলে বা এক্সপেল কৰি দিলে এই ধৰণৰ ব্যৱহাৰক কোৱা হয় পজিটিভ পানিছমেণ্ট মানে এটা শাস্তি দি আছে কেনেকৈ কিবা এটা যোগ কৰি মানে এক্সপেল কৰিছে ঠিক আছে বা এটা শাস্তি দিছে বা এছআই ডি এক কোব মাৰিছে মানে কি হৈছে কিবা এটা বস্তু যোগ কৰি আছে নাই এড কৰি আছে নাই পজিটিভলি শাস্তি দি আছে বুজি পাইছেতো সেইকাৰণে ইয়াক কয় পজিটিভ পানিছমেণ্ট মানে teacher punishes a student by expelling him or her from the examination because of misconduct during the exam মানে পৰীক্ষা হলত নকল কৰি থকাৰ কাৰণে সেই ছাত্ৰজনক শিক্ষকজনে কলেজৰ পৰা বা পৰীক্ষাটোৰ পৰা উলিয়াই দিয়া মানুহ এটা ব্যৱহাৰ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিছে শিক্ষকজনে ইয়াক কোৱা হয় পজিটিভ পানিছমেণ্ট সামথিং আনডিজাইৰেবল বেয়া পোৱা কিবা এটা ব্যৱহাৰ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিছে শিক্ষকজনে ছাত্ৰজনৰ প্ৰতি কাৰণ তেওঁ বেয়া কাম এটা কৰিছে তাক কোৱা হয় পজিটিভ পানিছমেণ্ট ঠিক আছে তাৰ উল্টাটো হৈছে নিগেটিভ পানিছমেণ্ট যিটো আমি ঘৰত প্ৰায় অনুভৱ কৰোঁ কি পৰীক্ষাত যদি আমি ভালকৈ নপঢ়িলোঁ বেয়া মাৰ্কছ পালোঁ সেইকাৰণে আমাৰ দেউতাই কি কৰিলে যেতিয়ালৈকে তই ভাল মাৰ্কছ নান যেতিয়ালৈকে তই পৰীক্ষাত পাছ নকৰ তোৰ মোবাইলটো মই ৰাখি থৈ দিছোঁ হয়নে কিয় মোবাইল চলাবলৈ আমি ভাল পাওঁ মোবাইলে আমাক ৰিলেক্স ফিল কৰে আমি টাইম পাছ কৰিব পাৰোঁ হয়নে আমাৰ ভালকৈ টাইম পাছ হয় লগৰবোৰৰ কথা পাতিব পাৰোঁ আৰু যিহেতুকে পৰীক্ষাত মই বেয়া ৰিজাল্ট কৰিলোঁ মোৰ দেউতাই কি কৰিলে সেই মোবাইলটো মোৰ পৰা কাঢ়ি আনিলে দিছ ইজ কল ইয়াক কোৱা হয় ঋণাত্মক শাস্তি বা নিগেটিভ পানিছমেণ্ট মিনছ removal of something which is pleasurable removal of something from you which is considered to be pleasurable তুমি ভাল পোৱা বস্তু এটা তোমাৰ পৰা কাঢ়ি লৈ গৈছে সেইটো এটা শাস্তি হয় নে নহয় হয়নে ইয়াক কোৱা হয় নিগেটিভ পানিছমেণ্ট ভাল পোৱা বস্তু এটা তোমাৰ পৰা কাঢ়ি লৈ যোৱাটো কোৱা হয় নিগেটিভ পানিছমেণ্ট আৰু বেয়া পোৱা বস্তু এটা মাৰ খাইটো কোনেও ভাল নাপায় বা কলেজৰ পৰা উলিয়াই দিয়া বা এক্সপেল কৰা ৰাষ্টিকেট কৰা কোনেও ভাল নাপায় কিন্তু সেইটো কোৱা হয় পজিটিভ পানিছমেণ্ট মানে কিবা এটা তোমাৰ যোগ কৰি পেলাই তোমাক দিছে যিটো তুমি বেয়া পোৱা চ' ইয়াক কোৱা হয় পজিটিভ পানিছমেণ্ট আৰু নিগেটিভ পানিছমেণ্ট আৰু যেতিয়া আমি লাৰ্ণিং বা শিক্ষণত এই পজিটিভ ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট নিগেটিভ ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট পজিটিভ পানিছমেণ্ট নিগেটিভ পানিছমেণ্ট বিভিন্ন ধৰণে আমি এইখিনি আমি ডিছকাছ কৰোঁ ব্যাখ্যা কৰোঁ আৰু বহুত প্ৰয়োজনো হয় যেতিয়া আমি লাৰ্ণিং পঢ়োঁ মনোবিজ্ঞানত ঠিক আছে চ' আমি ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিং বুজিলোঁ অপাৰেণ্ট কণ্ডিশ্যনিং বুজিলোঁ ৰিইনফৰ্চমেণ্ট বুজিলোঁ পানিছমেণ্ট বুজিলোঁ লিটিল এলবাৰ্ট এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট আমি বুজিলোঁ তাৰপিছত ৩ নম্বৰ ধৰণৰ শিক্ষণটো হৈছে ইয়াক কোৱা হয় অবজাৰভেশ্যনেল লাৰ্ণিং, মানে কাৰোবাক দেখি পেলাই শিকা। আমি অসমীয়াত কওঁ ন দেখি শিকা আৰু ঠেকি শিকা। আৰু এই ঠেকি শিকাটোক আমি কেতিয়াবা আমি টু চাম এক্সটেণ্ট আমি অপাৰেণ্ট কণ্ডিশ্যনিং বুলি ক'ব পাৰোঁ। লাৰ্ণিং থ্ৰু এক্সপিৰিয়েঞ্চেছ, আনপ্লিজেণ্ট আৰু আনপ্লিজেণ্ট মানে একশ্যন আৰু ৰিয়েকশ্যন। আৰু ডাইৰেক্ট অবজাৰভেশ্যন মানে হৈছে দেখি শিকাটোক আমি অসমীয়াত যদি কওঁ দেখি শিকোঁ, ইয়াক কোৱা হয় অবজাৰভেশ্যনেল লাৰ্ণিং। আৰু সেয়ে এলবাৰ্ট বেণ্ডুৰা যোনে এই অবজাৰভেশ্যনেল লাৰ্ণিঙৰ আইডিয়াটো আগবঢ়াইছিলে, তেওঁ কৈছিলে কি এজন ব্যক্তিয়ে কেৱল একশ্যন আৰু ৰিয়েকশ্যন বা ক্ৰিয়াৰ প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়াৰ জৰিয়তে বা দুটা উত্তেজকৰ সম্বন্ধৰ জৰিয়তে বা থ্ৰু এছ'চিয়েশ্যন নতুন বস্তু নিশিকে, তেওঁলোকে কিছুমান বস্তু লোকক দেখিও শিকে। আৰু সেইকাৰণে তেওঁ কৈছিলে কি দিছ কনচেপ্ট ইজ গিভেন বাই এলবাৰ্ট বেণ্ডুৰা, আৰু ইয়াক কোৱা হয় ছ'চিয়েল লাৰ্ণিং থিয়ৰী। লাৰ্ণিং অকাৰ ইন এ ছ'চিয়েল ছেটিংছ বাই অবজাৰ্ভিং আদাৰ্ছ বিহেভিয়াৰ। বেলেগৰ ব্যৱহাৰ আমি অধ্যয়ন কৰোঁ আৰু সেই ব্যৱহাৰটোক আমি নিজৰ জীৱনত আয়ত্ত কৰি আমাৰ জীৱনতো আমি সেই ব্যৱহাৰটোক দেখুৱাবলৈ চেষ্টা কৰোঁ। ঠিক আছে, তো দিছ ইজ অবজাৰভেশ্যনেল লাৰ্ণিং কেন অকাৰ ডাইৰেক্ট অৰ ইনডাইৰেক্ট। দুটা ধৰণে হয়, মানে আমি এজন ব্যক্তিৰ বা ব্যৱহাৰটো দেখিছোঁ, ব্যক্তিজনে ব্যৱহাৰ কৰি আছে এনেকৈ, আৰু সেই ব্যৱহাৰটো আমি শিকিছোঁ আৰু আমাৰ নিজৰ জীৱনত তাক আমি এপ্লাই কৰিছোঁ বা যোগ কৰিছোঁ, তাক কোৱা হয় ডাইৰেক্ট অবজাৰভেশ্যন। আৰু ছেকেণ্ডটোক হয় ইনডাইৰেক্ট অবজাৰভেশ্যন, মানে উই লাৰ্ণ বাই অবজাৰ্ভিং অৰ হিয়াৰিং আদাৰ্ছ এক্সপিৰিয়েঞ্চেছ। আমি ব্যৱহাৰটো দেখা নাই কিন্তু আমি শুনিছোঁ, আৰু সেই শুনাৰ জৰিয়তে আমি সেই যিখিনি আমি ইনফৰমেশ্যন পাইছোঁ, যিখিনি আমি জ্ঞান পাইছোঁ শুনাৰ জৰিয়তে, তাক যেতিয়া আমি ব্যৱহাৰত পৰিৱৰ্তন কৰিব চেষ্টা কৰোঁ, তাক কোৱা হয় অবজাৰভেশ্যনেল লাৰ্ণিং বাট ইন আ ইনডাইৰেক্ট অবজাৰভেশ্যন মেনাৰ। মানে কোনোবা এজনে ক্ৰিকেট খেলি আছে, মই কেনেকৈ শ্বটটো মাৰিছে মই চাই আছোঁ, আৰু তেনেকৈ যেনেকৈ তেওঁ শ্বটটো মাৰিছে সেই হিচাপে মই শ্বটটো মাৰিব চেষ্টা কৰিছোঁ, ইয়াক কোৱা হয় ডাইৰেক্ট অবজাৰভেশ্যন। ঠিক আছে, মই কিবা এটা পৰীক্ষা পাছ কৰিছোঁ, এতিয়া 3rd grade 4th grade ৰিচেণ্টলি এতিয়া ৰিজাল্ট দিব, তো ইণ্টাৰভিউ হৈছিলে, মই কেতিয়াও ইণ্টাৰভিউ বহা নাই, কিন্তু মোৰ দেউতাই ইণ্টাৰভিউত বহিছে। চ' মোৰ দেউতাই মোক বুজাইছে কি ইণ্টাৰভিউটো এনেকৈ থিয় হ'বি, এনেকৈ বহিবি, এনেকৈ কথা পাতিবি, তেনেকৈ কথা পাতিবি, এইটো কাপোৰ পিন্ধিবি। মই কেতিয়াও বহা নাই, মই ডাইৰেক্টলি অবজাৰ্ভ কেতিয়াও কৰা নাই, কিন্তু দেউতাই মোক কৈছে। তেওঁ যিখিনি কোৱাৰ জৰিয়তে যিখিনি জ্ঞান মই আহৰণ কৰিছোঁ, সেই জ্ঞানখিনিক যেতিয়া মই ইণ্টাৰভিউ দিব যাম, তেতিয়া যেতিয়া মই এপ্লাই কৰিম প্ৰেক্টিকেল ফিল্ডত, ইয়াক কোৱা হয় ইনডাইৰেক্ট অবজাৰভেশ্যন। বুজিছে, দুটা ধৰণে হয়, ইয়াক কোৱা হয় অবজাৰভেশ্যনেল লাৰ্ণিং, দুটা ধৰণৰ ডাইৰেক্ট আৰু ইনডাইৰেক্ট। আকৌ আগৰ কাহিনীয়ে আমি আকৌ ৰিপিট কৰিছোঁ ইয়াত, যিহেতু কিছুমান এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট কৰিছিলে বিভিন্ন মানুহে তেওঁলোকৰ নিজৰ ব্যাখ্যাবোৰ আগবঢ়াবলৈ। ইয়াত এলবাৰ্ট বেণ্ডুৰাও এটা ব্যাখ্যা আগবঢ়াইছে নিজৰ যিটো অবজাৰভেশ্যনেল লাৰ্ণিং তেওঁ কৈছিলে তাক স্থাপিত কৰিবৰ কাৰণে, আৰু ইয়াক কোৱা হয় বেণ্ডুৰাছ ব'ব'ডল এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট। তো কি হৈছিলে আপোনালোকে যদি প্ৰথম পইণ্টটো চায়, বেণ্ডুৰাই 72জন ল'ৰা ছোৱালী এইজ ৰেঞ্জ 3 পৰা 6 তেওঁলোকক চিলেক্ট কৰি পেলাই তেওঁলোকক বিভিন্ন গ্ৰুপত বা শ্ৰেণী বিভাজন কৰিলে, শ্ৰেণী বিভক্ত কৰিলে, ভাগ কৰিলে। One group of children were shown a movie with an aggressive model beating, hitting and abusing a bobo doll. Bobo doll মানে আছে এটা পুতলা, তেওঁলোকক এখন চিনেমা দেখুওৱা হ'ল কিছুমানক, যিখন চিনেমাত এজন এক্টৰে সেই পুতলাটোৰ প্ৰতি বহুত বেয়া ধৰণৰ ব্যৱহাৰ প্ৰদৰ্শিত কৰিছে, মানে পুতলাক ঘুচা মাৰিছে, পুতলাটোক লাত মাৰিছে, বহুত বেয়াকৈ কথা কৈছে, বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ। আৰু সেই গ্ৰুপটোৰ ল'ৰা ছোৱালীবোৰে সেই চিনেমাখন মন দি চাই আছে। ঠিক আছে, ছেকেণ্ডত কি কৰিছে, সেই যিহেতু ভাগ কৰিছিলে বিভিন্ন গ্ৰুপত, ছেকেণ্ড নম্বৰ যিটো গ্ৰুপ আছিলে সেই গ্ৰুপৰ ল'ৰা ছোৱালীবোৰক তেওঁলোকক দেখুৱাইছে কি এজন ব্যক্তি যিয়ে ববদল বা সেই পুতলাটোৰ লগত কিছুমান ব্যৱহাৰ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিছে, সেই ব্যৱহাৰবোৰ কোনো এগ্ৰেছিভ নহয়, বেয়া ব্যৱহাৰ নহয়, ভাল ব্যৱহাৰ কিছুমান প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিছে। অ'কে, আ নন এগ্ৰেছিভ মডেল ৱাজ shown playing peacefully and friendly with the ববদল, মানে পুতলাটোৰ লগত বিৰাট ভালকৈ খেলিছে, মৰম কৰিছে, মৰম প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিছে, আৰু কোনো ধৰণৰ এগ্ৰেছিভ বিহেভিয়াৰ দেখুওৱা নাই। চ' এটা গ্ৰুপে কি দেখি আছে, এটা গ্ৰুপে দেখি আছে কি ডাঙৰ মানুহজনে সেই পুতলাটোৰ লগত বেয়া ব্যৱহাৰ কৰিছে, আৰু ছেকেণ্ড গ্ৰুপটোৱে কি দেখিছে, বেলেগ এজন ডাঙৰ মানুহে সেই পুতলাটোৰ লগত ভাল ব্যৱহাৰ কৰিছে। ঠিক আছে, আৰু 3 নম্বৰ যিটো গ্ৰুপ আছে, where is in the control condition children were not shown any movie, মানে সেই চিলড্ৰেন যিখিনি ল'ৰা ছোৱালী আছিলে 3 নম্বৰ গ্ৰুপটোত, তেওঁলোকক কোনো মুভি দেখুওৱা নাই য'ত পুতলাটোৰ প্ৰতি বেয়া ব্যৱহাৰ প্ৰদৰ্শিত কৰিছে, আৰু কোনো ভালো দেখুওৱা নাই য'ত পুতলাটোৰ প্ৰতি ভাল ব্যৱহাৰ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিছে, মানে তেওঁলোক নৰ্মেল। That's why they are considered as control group or control condition, মানে একো নাই, মানে নৰ্মেল। তাৰপিছত কি হ'ল, শেষৰ পিনে যিমানকেইটা ল'ৰা ছোৱালী আছিলে মুঠ 72টা, গ্ৰুপ A, গ্ৰুপ B আৰু গ্ৰুপ C, all the groups of children were placed in a room full of variety of toys and observed them carefully. এটা ৰুমত তিনিটা গ্ৰুপৰ ল'ৰা ছোৱালীবোৰ একেলগে সোমোৱাই দিয়া হ'ল, যি ৰুমটোত বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ পুতলা আছিলে, মানে বাৰ্বি হ'ব পাৰে, মিকি মাউচ হ'ব পাৰে, টম এণ্ড জেৰী হ'ব পাৰে, অগি হ'ব পাৰে, পাৱাৰ ৰেঞ্জাৰ হ'ব পাৰে, মানে বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ পুতলা আছিলে। আৰু বেণ্ডুৰা আৰু তেওঁৰ লগত সংগীসকলে সেই গোটেই গ্ৰুপৰ ল'ৰা ছোৱালীবোৰৰ ব্যৱহাৰটো অধ্যয়ন কৰিব আৰম্ভ কৰিলে। আৰু ৰিজাল্টত তেওঁলোকে কি পালে, কি ইট ইজ অবজাৰ্ভ that the children who were exposed to the aggressive model, মানে যিসকল ল'ৰা ছোৱালীয়ে সেই বেয়াকে ব্যৱহাৰ কৰা মানুহজনৰ চিনেমাখন চাইছিলে, সেই ল'ৰা ছোৱালীবোৰে পুতলাবোৰৰ লগতো সেই একে ধৰণৰ ব্যৱহাৰ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিছে। অৰ্থাৎ সেই যিজন মানুহে পুতলাটোক মাৰিছিলে, কাটিছিলে, বেয়া বেয়া ব্যৱহাৰ কৰিছিলে, সেই একে কাম সেই গ্ৰুপটোৰ ল'ৰা ছোৱালীয়ে কৰিছিলে। তাৰ লগতে যিবোৰ ল'ৰা ছোৱালীয়ে সেই পুতলাবোৰ দেখিছিলে, যিবোৰ ভাল পুতলা, মানে ভালকে মানুহজনে ব্যৱহাৰ কৰিছে পুতলাটোৰ লগত, সেই ছেকেণ্ড গ্ৰুপৰ ল'ৰা ছোৱালীবোৰে তেনেকৈ সেই পুতলাটোক মৰম কৰিছে, খেলিছে ভালকে আৰু একো কৰা নাই, বেয়া ব্যৱহাৰ একো প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰা নাই। ইন কণ্ট্ৰাষ্ট দ্য চিলড্ৰেন হু এক্সপ'জ টু দ্য নন এগ্ৰেছিভ মডেল ডিড নট শ্ব' এনি এগ্ৰেছন টুৱাৰ্ডছ এ ব'ব ডল। বুজি পাইছে? মানে যিখিনি এগ্ৰেছিভ ভিডিঅ' দেখিছিলে তেওঁলোকে এগ্ৰেছিভ বিহেভিয়াৰ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিছে, আৰু যোনে এগ্ৰেছিভ ভিডিঅ' দেখা নাই তেওঁলোকে এগ্ৰেছিভ বিহেভিয়াৰ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰা নাই। আৰু বেছড অন দিছ থিং দ্য লেণ্ডমাৰ্ক ষ্টাডি ইন চাইক'লজি ছাজেষ্টেড ডেট, আৰু এই পৰীক্ষাটোৰ জৰিয়তে স্থাপিত কৰিবলৈ সক্ষম হয় কি ইণ্ডিভিজুৱেল লাৰ্ণ অলছ' নিউ থিংছ থ্ৰু অবজাৰ্ভিং। কি হৈছিলে, ডাঙৰ মানুহজনক অবজাৰ্ভ কৰিছে, মানুহজনে যি কৰিছে ল'ৰা ছোৱালীকেইটাই ভাল বেয়া নুবুজি পেলাই ডাইৰেক্ট সেই বস্তুখিনিকে ব্যৱহাৰখিনিকে প্ৰদৰ্শিত কৰি আছে। যদি ভালকে ব্যৱহাৰ কৰিছে ভাল ব্যৱহাৰ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিছে, যদি বেয়াকে ব্যৱহাৰ কৰিছে বেয়া ব্যৱহাৰ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিছে। চ' ইয়াক কোৱা হয় এলবাৰ্ট বেণ্ডুৰাছ ব'ব ডল এক্সপেৰিমেণ্ট। তাৰ লগতে ইয়াত আৰু দুটা ধৰণৰ লাৰ্ণিং আমি ইয়াত আছে, ইয়াক কোৱা হয় ইনচাইট লাৰ্ণিং আৰু লেটেণ্ট লাৰ্ণিং। ইয়াক কোৱা হয় কগনিটিভ লাৰ্ণিং, মানে এই লাৰ্ণিংখিনি আমাৰ সিদ্ধান্ত গ্ৰহণ হওক বা মগজুৰ জৰিয়তে হয়। আপোনালোকে চাব, যিটো অপাৰেণ্ট কণ্ডিশ্যনিং আছিলে, আমি কেনেকৈ লাৰ্ণ কৰোঁ, নতুন বস্তু কেনেকৈ শিকোঁ, একশ্যনৰ ৰিয়েকশ্যনৰ জৰিয়তে, ক্ৰিয়াৰ প্ৰতিক্ৰিয়াৰ জৰিয়তে। তাৰপিছত যিটো আমাৰ ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিং আছিলে, তাত আমি কেনেকৈ নতুন বস্তু শিকোঁ, আমি অনিচ্ছা স্বত্বেও আমি নতুন এটা ব্যৱহাৰ শিকোঁ, কাৰণ দুটা ষ্টিমুলাছ একযোগ হৈ পেলাই আমাক এটা নতুন ব্যৱহাৰ প্ৰদৰ্শন কৰিবলৈ বাধ্য কৰাইছে। ঠিক আছে? আৰু অবজাৰ্ভেশ্যনেল লাৰ্ণিং, আমি নতুন বস্তু কেনেকৈ শিকোঁ, যেতিয়া আমি বেলেগক চাওঁ। অৰ্থাৎ ইয়াত আমাৰ নিজৰ কোনো কণ্ট্ৰল বা আমাৰ নিয়ন্ত্ৰণ নাই। বেলেগে কিবা এটা কাম কৰি আছে, তেওঁক চাইছোঁ আৰু শিকিছোঁ। আমাৰ মন নাথাকাৰ স্বত্বেও আমি নতুন কুকুৰটোক যেনেকৈ চেলিব্ৰেশ্যন কৰোৱা হ'ল, তেনেকৈ আমিও নতুন ব্যৱহাৰ শিকোঁ। কিন্তু কগনিটিভ লাৰ্ণিঙত যি দুটা লাৰ্ণিঙৰ কথা আমি ডিছকাছ কৰিব গৈ আছোঁ, ইয়াত আমি নিজেই শিকোঁ, নিজৰ জৰিয়তে শিকোঁ, মানে নিজৰ মস্তিষ্ক, নিজৰ চিন্তনশীল ক্ষমতা, চিন্তাৰ ক্ষমতা, নিজৰ সিদ্ধান্ত গ্ৰহণৰ ক্ষমতাৰ জৰিয়তে আমি নতুন বস্তু শিকোঁ। চ' দেটছ ৱাই ইয়াক কোৱা হয় কগনিটিভ লাৰ্ণিং। দুটা ভাগত ভাগ কৰিছোঁ আমি ইয়াত, ইনচাইট লাৰ্ণিং আৰু লেটেণ্ট লাৰ্ণিং বুলি। চ' প্ৰথমটোক কোৱা হয় ইনচাইট লাৰ্ণিং। ইনচাইট মানে ভিতৰৰ পৰা, আৰু ইয়াক যিজন মানুহে আৰম্ভ কৰিছিলে তেওঁক কোৱা হয় গেষ্টেল চাইক'লজি এপ্ৰ'চ। সেই মানুহজনৰ নাম আছিলে কোহলাৰ। ঠিক আছে? তেওঁ কৈছিলে কি নট অল কাইণ্ড অফ লাৰ্ণিং ডিপেণ্ডছ অন ট্ৰায়েল এণ্ড ইৰ'ৰ অৰ কণ্ডিশ্যনিং, মানে কামটো কৰিছোঁ, ভুল কৰিছোঁ, আকৌ ভুল কৰিছোঁ, লাহে লাহে তেনেকৈ শিকিছোঁ, তেনেকৈ নহয়। আৰু কণ্ডিশ্যনিঙৰ জৰিয়তে, ক্লাছিকেল কণ্ডিশ্যনিঙৰ জৰিয়তে আমি নতুন বস্তু শিকোঁ। তেওঁ কৈছিলে কি ইউজিং কগনিটিভ প্ৰচেছ, মানে আমাৰ মস্তিষ্কৰ যিটো আমাৰ জোৰ আছে বা আমাৰ যিটো থট প্ৰচেছ আছে, চিন্তা ভাৱনা আছে, তাৰ জৰিয়তে উই ভিজুৱেলাইজ দ্য প্ৰব্লেম। আমি মনতে আমি সেই প্ৰব্লেম বা সেই যিটো আমাৰ কি বুলি কয়, এটা সমস্যা আছে, সেই সমস্যাটো আমি জানিব চেষ্টা কৰোঁ, আৰু তাৰ জৰিয়তে আমি মানসিকভাৱে সেই সমস্যাটোৰ সমাধানৰ প্ৰয়াস আমি কৰোঁ। A solution for it internally, even though this learning takes place implicitly, but the change in the behavior is long lasting. মানে তেওঁ ক'ব বিচাৰিছিলে কি লাৰ্ণিংটো বা আমি সেই ব্যৱহাৰৰ পৰিৱৰ্তনটো ঘপককৈ হয়, কিন্তু এই পৰিৱৰ্তনটো আমাৰ জীৱনত লং লাষ্টিং হয় বা স্থায়ী হয়। অ'কে, ইয়াক কোৱা হয় ইনচাইট লাৰ্ণিং। তেওঁ কি কৰিছিলে, তেওঁ এটা বন্ধ কেজ আছিলে, এটা পিঞ্জৰাত এটা চিম্পাঞ্জী ৰাখিলে। ঠিক আছে? চিম্পাঞ্জীটোৰ ওপৰত এটা কল বান্ধি দিলে। এতিয়া চিম্পাঞ্জীটো কলটো দেখিছে, খাবলৈ মন গৈছে, সি জঁপিয়াই আছে, সি কলটো খাব পৰা নাই। চ' কোহলাৰ প্লেচ এ চিম্পাঞ্জী ইন এ কেজ এণ্ড এ প্লেচ আ বানানা এবভ ইটছ ৰিচ, মানে তেওঁ চিম্পাঞ্জীটোৱে ধৰিব নোৱাৰাকৈ সিমান ওপৰত ৰাখিছে। After a few failed attempts, the chimpanzee started spending its time unproductively by sitting and playing. ওপৰত যেতিয়া সি থৈ দিলে বহুতবাৰ চেষ্টা কৰি আছে, চেষ্টা কৰি পেলাই পাৰা নাই, তেওঁ কি কৰিলে সেইকাৰণে সি ইফালে ইফালে ঘূৰি ফুৰোঁতে সি ছাডেনলি দেখিলে কি কিছুমান বক্স আছে আৰু সেই বক্সবোৰ সি এনেকৈ একলগ কৰি পেলাই সি চেষ্টা কৰি পেলাই যেতিয়া চালে দেখিলে সি ধুনীয়াকৈ কলটো খাব পাৰিছে। চ' ইয়াক কোৱা হয় ইনচাইট লাৰ্ণিং, য'ত আমি ছাডেনলি আমি এটা সিদ্ধান্তলৈ আহিছোঁ, আমি কামটো কৰিছোঁ, কৰি পেলাই আমি ৰিজাল্ট পাইছোঁ, ইয়াক কোৱা হয় ইনচাইট লাৰ্ণিং বুলি। ঠিক আছে, আৰু শেষৰটো ইয়াক কোৱা হয় লেটেণ্ট লাৰ্ণিং, ইয়াতো গেষ্টেল চাইক'লজিৰ এপ্ৰ'চ। ঠিক আছে, নমস্কাৰ, আমি এইখিনিকে পঢ়িলোঁ আজি শিক্ষণত, আৰু অহা ক্লাছত আমি বাকীখিনি বস্তু কভাৰ আপ কৰিম।